Our very educational story begins by explaining that the natural talent you are born with is the most important thing of all. In a room, a girl calls out to Rui, while another girl with white hair approaches to give him a kiss. With the two girls by his side, his thought concludes by saying that this was what he learned from them. Soon after, the scene shifts to a peaceful and sunny location showing Quebec Village. Suddenly, someone steps hard on a boy's back and shouts his name, Rui-sha. The red-haired girl, Alina, humiliates him by saying he is 15 years old and doesn't know how to use magic. She says Rui-sha should be able to control magic, but he thinks that is not how it works. With an annoyed look, the girl glares at the young man lying on the ground and asks what he just said. Then, she attacks him again, questioning how trash like him dares to contradict her. In pain, Rui-sha gets up and thinks that Alina used to be kind, not understanding why she changed. He then reflects that out of shame, he admits to having no talent for magic whatsoever. Furthermore, the boy completes his thought by saying that he is also very clumsy and always trips. With a sad expression, he realizes that all his efforts are useless. A memory shows that he realized this at 10 years old when he fell and the others commented on it. Unlike him, Alina is described as a genius with a confident smile on her face. Since she was 3 years old, she was already using magic, being considered a prodigy by everyone. Back in the present, Rui-sha thinks that talented people do not know what it is like to have no talent at all. At that moment, Alina pulls him by the arm and says that, as his girlfriend, she is going to train him today. She brags, claiming that it is a miracle he can date someone like her, but he looks confused. The girl continues, saying she will train him forever, leaving the young man terrified. Rui-sha tries to decline, saying he planned to train alone, which leaves her with an annoyed expression. With a furious look and a dark background, the girl cannot believe what she just heard. She shouts, asking if he thinks someone without talent like him can do anything alone. Angrily, Alina states that it is normal to be able to use elemental magic from birth. Next, she declares that this only means he is a complete failure, leaving him in shock. To make matters worse, she says it is a pity he is, just like his parents who have already passed away. Upon hearing this, Rui-sha's expression changes completely, and he tells her she crossed the line. With a cold look, he stares at her and states that he will never hang out with her again. Surprised and in disbelief, Alina stammers as she asks if he is really rejecting her. But the boy simply replies that she is wrong, leaving her confused by his answer. With his eyes full of tears, he shouts that he hates her arrogance and wants nothing more to do with her. He turns his back and walks away while Alina, shocked, calls out to him and asks him to wait. Running without stopping, Rui-sha enters a forest full of plants and trees. As he walks, he thinks that this forest is still very difficult to cross. It is revealed that the forest near Quebec Village is known by everyone as the Forest of the Unlucky. Rui-sha thinks that not even wild beasts come here, making it the perfect place for secret training. He positions himself in the center of a clearing, and a circle of green energy begins to form around him. With his hands on his chest, he concentrates and thinks that first, he needs to visualize his energy. He focuses on the magical power flowing through his body, trying to shape it to turn it into magic. Then, the young man slowly tries to send all that accumulated energy into his hand. Suddenly, a burst of green energy shoots from his hand, and he realizes it is wind magic. But the magic dissipates instantly, leaving the young man confused about what happened. With his head down, he realizes it was useless and that his effort did not help at all. The memory of Alina's cruel words about his parents returns to his mind, leaving him shaken. With an expression of determination mixed with sadness, he refuses to let this bring him down. Clenching his fist tightly against the ground, the boy decides he will not give up so easily. He thinks it is always the same, but he will not surrender and will keep trying again and again. Exhausted, he falls to the ground and admits that no matter how hard he tries, he simply cannot do it. Looking up, he wonders how long the sky has looked strange and fears he might be a magical creature. But what he actually felt at that moment was something completely different from what he expected. He felt an incredibly strong magical power and wondered if it was coming from that hole in the ground. The light pushes him back, and he tries to understand exactly what is happening there. The boy thinks he should go back to warn the others, but ends up slipping in the process. Unable to grab onto anything, the young man falls backward directly into the mysterious hole. Amidst the darkness of the fall, something resembling a dagger reflects the sky, and he panics. He wishes that if he is reborn, he will have a kind childhood friend and average athletic ability. But right after, the young man slowly opens his eyes, realizing he is no longer falling. Sitting on the ground in a completely white place, the boy wonders where he is now. His mind recalls that he ran away from Alina and left the village to train alone in the forest. After that, while training, he found a mysterious hole and ended up falling into it. He concludes he must have fallen into the hole but still wonders what this strange space is. Suddenly, a female voice surprises him and a tall woman with black hair approaches him. With a smile, she says it seems the boy has finally woken up, revealing her appearance. Embarrassed, Rui-sha asks who she is, thinking he has never seen such a beautiful woman before. Looking closer, he notices a strange detail and wonders if those things on her head are horns. A memory from a book comes to his mind, showing a horned figure who uses powerful magic. The creature is described as having a cruel and cunning personality, leading Rui-sha to a conclusion. With a mischievous smile, the woman places her finger on her lips and confirms his deduction is correct. She approaches the young man and asks if he managed to figure out the truth that quickly. Bowing politely, Rui-sha says it is his first time seeing one and introduces himself as Rui-sha Barty. The woman notes that he does not seem scared, even after hearing that she is a demon. The boy remembers that the village chief taught him demons are dangerous, but he feels something different. Sincerely, he says that, as strange as it may be, he does not find her scary. Looking at the woman, he finishes his thought by saying it is because she is very beautiful. Upon hearing the compliment, the woman turns completely red and speechless, totally embarrassed. Another voice calls her Testarossa, asking her to calm down after her first compliment in millennia. Right after, a figure walks behind Rui-sha and says the other one is a lost cause. A little girl with white hair, horns, and wings says that now that he is awake, she wants to see his face. Surprised, the young man turns around and sees the girl's wings and tail, not understanding who she is. He introduces himself again and asks her name. She criticizes him but approves of his politeness. Proudly, the girl reveals herself as the leader of the dragon race and the 7th Dragon Queen. Rui-sha is in complete shock, repeating the title of Dragon Queen in his mind. It is explained that the dragon race is the strongest on Earth, and the strongest among them is the leader. He cannot believe the leader is that little girl, who notes that it has been a while since someone was surprised. With a cunning look, the Dragon Queen says that if he was so surprised by her, that means he still has not heard the name of the other woman who is there with them. With that, the first woman, the demon, gets nervous and unsure of what to do. She then realizes that, thinking about it, she had not formally introduced herself to the boy yet. She introduces herself as the ruler of chaos, the 66th Demon Queen, Testarossa Satanikia Nodens. Rui-sha is shocked to discover that this beautiful woman is actually the fearsome Demon Queen. Rui-sha wonders if they really are the queens, and the dragon girl blames the other for not being convincing. The Demon Queen says that because she is so pretty, she does not look bad, and the other calls her pathetic. Annoyed, Testarossa yells at the Dragon Queen, and the two begin to argue in small forms. In the middle of the fight, Rui-sha feels awkward and wonders if they are actually good friends. With both of them tired, he realizes this argument will get them nowhere. Then, the Dragon Queen suggests they show their true forms, and the other agrees with the idea. At that moment, the two prepare for transformation, and an aura of power emanates from them. Amidst a flash of light, the silhouettes of their transformed bodies begin to reveal themselves. Testarossa emerges in her demonic form, surrounded by intense purple energy. Meanwhile, the Dragon Queen unleashes a green energy, and Rui-sha is amazed by the immense magical power. The pressure of the energy pushes him back, making the boy finally believe in their identities. Testarossa asks if he believes them now as a giant dragon forms beside her. With the Dragon Queen in her monster form, the Demon Queen welcomes the boy. She welcomes him to the infinite prison, the place where the two were sealed away a long time ago. A story says that 300 years ago the hero Ogo was born, a man 3 meters tall. He saved humanity and, after defeating the queens, disappeared without a trace. Back in the present, Rui-sha remembers that this was how the story he knew ended. The boy thinks he never imagined they would be sealed in a place like this. He wonders why the hero sealed them, while the two comment on their transformation. Rui-sha thinks he should now focus on escaping and that maybe they know a way out. Awkwardly, he sits down and tries to get the attention of the two, who look at him with curiosity. The protagonist then gathers his courage and directly asks how he can leave that place. Hearing the question, Testarossa starts laughing, finding the situation quite comical. She says that is a funny thing to say, leaving Rui-sha confused by her reaction. The Demon Queen explains she understands how he feels, but it is best to give up that hope. With a serious look, she reveals that it is simply impossible to break out of that prison. Rui-sha becomes desperate, and the Dragon Queen says if they could leave, they would have escaped already. The dragon girl then slowly approaches the protagonist, who watches her closely. She gets very close to his face and asks him to look at the mark. With his eyes wide, the young man focuses on the object, surprised by what he is seeing, feeling quite proud. She shows the necklace and explains that it is the sealing crest the hero placed on her. Because of these seals, their souls are chained and trapped forever in this space. That is why they cannot leave, even if they try to tear the dimension apart with their power. Suddenly, Testarossa starts looking for something on Rui-sha and says she cannot find the magic circle. Desperate, she pulls at the young man's clothes, refusing to believe the seal is not there. She continues searching his entire body for the crest, while he yells, feeling completely awkward. The search continues even in places he cannot see, like on his leg, but she does not find it. The two are shocked that he does not have a seal and ask how he ended up there. Scared, Rui-sha simply replies that he accidentally fell into a hole while training. With a sharp look, Testarossa understands the boy was not hit by the hero's magic. She concludes he simply wandered in by accident, which makes the Dragon Queen desperate. But she soon realizes that if he does not have the seal, there might be a chance for him to escape. Hearing that, Rui-sha's hope is ignited, and he wonders if he really can get away. Full of determination, the young man states he will do anything if they can help him. Hearing the word "cunny thing," the Dragon Queen's ear twitches with great interest. With a smile, the two stare at him and ask if he is serious about doing anything. Pressured by the two, the young man gets nervous and awkward, not knowing what to answer. Testarossa then reveals there is only one single way to manage to leave that place. She explains he needs to create a hole in space using his own power to escape. The boy panics and says that is impossible because his magic is too weak. The demon queen laughs and says she already noticed he does not use magic, which annoys him. With a confident smile, she starts walking and says they are going to fix that first. Next, the woman proposes basic training so the young man can increase his magical power. Not understanding the proposal, Rui-sha is confused by the idea of basic training. Testarossa explains that magical power is like a muscle and needs to be pushed to its limit. Right after, when the person recovers, the process must be repeated once again. The protagonist starts sweating cold, seemingly finally understanding what they meant. He fears that if he uses so much magical power, he will end up passing out from total exhaustion. The queen confirms the risk but says he will become strong in about 500 years. Completely shocked, the boy cannot believe the training will take 500 years. The boy feels crushed by the news, but the dragon queen tells him not to worry. She explains that time flows slower there and 1 year in prison equals 1 day in the real world. Rui-sha realizes that if he trains for 500 years, only 500 days will have passed outside. The dragon queen proposes that he learn from them, and in return he will help both of them escape. With a nervous look, the young man wonders if he has the right to refuse their proposal. With various smiles, the two queens reply that he has no other option. Thus begins the first day of training in the prison, and Rui-sha is already completely exhausted. He falls to the ground without strength and thinks he is about to collapse after the first exercise. With a laugh, the dragon queen says it looks like he was completely worn out by her. The scene goes back a few hours when Testarossa said she would teach him to use magic starting today. Rui-sha bows and asks her to take care of him, and the queen gladly accepts the responsibility. She says the training will start immediately, reinforcing that it will take 500 years. The boy then asks if what the dragon queen said about time was really true. He refers to the part where 1 year in prison would equal a single day in the outside world. With a smile, Testarossa confirms the information and says she verified it with her own magic. Relieved, the protagonist understands the situation and seems much calmer about the idea. He remembers the village chief who raised him and thinks he would be sad and worried. With a determined smile, Rui-sha believes that when he gets out, they will surely meet again. Motivated, he turns to the queen and says he understands everything and will do his best. Happy with the young man's answer, the demon queen gives a sweet, satisfied smile. In an affectionate gesture, she gently places her hand on the boy's head. With a warm look, Testarossa praises him, saying he is a really good boy. The young man is surprised by the gesture, which reminds him of something from his past. He remembers his late mother, who treated him the same way and called him a good boy. That feeling makes him think of her as a mother, forgetting she is the demon queen. But she quickly changes the mood, saying she is sorry if he ends up fading away during training. Back in the present, the young man is on the ground, on the verge of collapsing after the first day. He begs for a break, but Testarossa, without mercy, orders him to do it all over again. From a distance, the dragon queen watches and thinks the other queen is doing a good job. Then she approaches and says it is now time for her special training to begin. Rui-sha shouts that he will pass out if he trains anymore, but the dragon queen tells him not to worry. She explains the training will not be for magic, but rather a special technique called Qigong. The boy is confused, repeating the word in his mind, not understanding what the technique is about. It is explained that Qigong, or Odo, is a mysterious power that dwells inside people's bodies. The technique can rival magic and grant physical abilities comparable to those of a dragon. With his eyes sparkling with excitement, Rui-sha gets thrilled at the possibility of getting stronger. The essence of the technique is transforming Qi into skills with 9 forms of attack and defense. The queen says that if he masters everything, he will be able to handle any situation, which leaves him amazed. But the young man thinks of an important detail and decides to question the queen about that technique. He asks why everyone doesn't use it, and she thinks that is a good observation on his part. With a tense look, Rui-sha swallows hard as he waits for the dragon queen's answer. She then reveals that the reason nobody uses the technique is because it is too hard to learn. With a blank expression, the boy is speechless, expecting a more complex reason. Rui-sha asks if that is all, and the queen confirms, saying there is another reason for that. She thinks magic is popular because it is easy, since ordinary people can use it without training. But to master Qigong techniques requires very rigorous and time-consuming training. With a smile, the boy says that for someone like him, this is just as hard as using magic. The dragon queen agrees with the young man's statement, giving a slight smirk. She explains that talent is not necessary for Qigong, only hard work and dedication. Hearing that, Rui-sha's eyes fill with determination, and he understands what he needs to do. With great excitement, the young man shouts he will do his best, and the two get ready to start. But the queen thinks that although talent does not matter, the learning speed varies. She wonders how many years it will take the boy, while he remains focused with clenched fists. At that moment, the dragon queen turns around and watches the other queen with a careful look. Testarossa thinks about the training plan, starting with a week of repeating the same exercise. The dragon queen reinforces that the goal is to master everything in 500 years, starting with Qigong. Everyone gets ready, and the young man asks the two queens to take good care of him during training. The scene jumps to the 10th year in the infinite prison, with Rui-sha using powerful magic. The boy manages to create a large whirlwind by shouting the name of his new skill. He asks Testarossa what she thought, and the queen says he still needs to focus more. The queen thinks that, despite being strict, he never complained and is already novice mage. She wonders if all humans are training maniacs, noting that his power has been depleted. With that, she says training is over for today, but Rui-sha insists he feels great to continue. He explains he wasted a lot of time before and now has no more time to rest. With an intense look, the young man begs her to let him continue training a bit more. The queen wonders what makes him push himself so hard, thinking of an obsession for power. But she feels he is going too far and decides to intervene, calling him by his name. Kneeling, she says that among humans, his magical talent is indeed considered low. In a gentle gesture, the demon queen holds the boy's hand, trying to calm him down. She comforts him, saying this does not mean all his efforts were in vain. Surprised and blushing, the young man cannot believe what he just heard. Testarossa explains there are magic circuits in the hands that carry magical power. People without talent are born with narrow circuits, which deteriorate if not used. Rui-sha realizes that if he didn't use magic, his circuits would close forever, and she confirms. But she says he trained non-stop, and a golden energy wraps around both of their hands. With this, she demonstrates that his magical power now flows smoothly because of his training. The queen states his circuits prove he is more flexible than an ordinary person. She finishes by saying his efforts were never wasted and that he has grown stronger. Hearing that, the young man begins to tremble, and the demon queen stares at him in surprise. With tears in his eyes, Rui-sha says he is fine and is just happy with the news. He smiles and says he is glad to have met her, just to know his effort paid off. With a sincere look, the boy thanks her and calls her big sister, which surprises her. Embarrassed, the queen says she did not mean to say that and apologizes, leaving him confused. Suddenly, Testarossa turns completely red and seems to short-circuit. The dragon queen says to leave her be, as it is just a mental issue, while she faints. Not knowing what to do, the dragon girl warns that training with her will start after he rests. The scene shifts to Rui-sha doing a physical exercise with the count reaching 99. With a rock on his back, he does the 100th push-up, finishing his training set. The dragon queen says it is a good point to stop, and they will finally take a break. She thinks the strength in martial arts training is paying off for his development. The dragon queen thinks that during these 10 years, he also managed to feel his own chi. Suddenly, the girl shouts to get the young man's attention and startles him while he was training on the ground. She approaches and says she already told him not to push himself so hard training alone like that. With a sad look, Rui-sha replies he has a weak body, and that is why he needs to train even harder. The queen questions the idea of a weak body, stating there is absolutely nothing wrong with him. The boy says he is slower and weaker than the other kids and praises the dragon queen's strength. Hearing this, she realizes his inferiority complex runs deep and decides to act quickly. Without wasting time, she grabs the young man's arm and says he is understanding things the wrong way. With a smile, the girl tells him to look at his own body and see the strength he gained through his effort. She explains he was only weak before because he did not know how to use his own body correctly. The queen reveals his body has a high healing capacity, and he should thank his parents for that. Crying with emotion and relief, Rui-sha agrees with her words and feels he has finally been acknowledged. Seeing the young man's reaction, the dragon queen feels embarrassed and tries to calm him quickly. Calmer, the boy looks at her and asks what the queen's parents were like in the past. She replies her parents were defeated before she could remember them, but she heard they were magnificent dragons. Realizing he touched a sensitive subject, Rui-sha lowers his head with a guilty expression. But the girl smiles cheerfully and tells him not to worry, because she also has a strong body inherited from her parents. Hearing these kind words, the young man cannot hold back his emotion once again and begins to tremble. Crying heavily, the boy moves toward the dragon queen and hugs her tightly around the waist. The girl is caught completely by surprise by the hug and turns completely red with embarrassment. While crying, Rui-sha says it must have been very hard for her too, ignoring her complaints. Blushing, the queen accepts the affectionate gesture and gently rests her head on the boy's shoulder. Then, she raises her hand and starts stroking Rui-sha's hair in a comforting way. A short time later, with the young man calmer and wiping his tears, she asks if he feels better. He agrees and says that since they went through the same thing, he will never allow himself to feel weak again. The dragon queen smiles, saying he got cheeky comparing himself to her, but confesses she likes that spirit. Thus, she announces martial arts training will resume after the break, which gets him very excited. Watching from afar, Testarossa smiles seeing their good relationship and decides she also needs to do her best. The scene advances to the 100th year in the prison, showing the young man preparing the 5th stance of the Kaigong technique. With his fist wrapped in powerful red energy, he unleashes a huge strike on the ground called Great Lotus Cascade. With immense destructive power, the red and white energy devastates the prison area. With his eyes sparkling with happiness, the boy celebrates his success in the new technique. Excited, he waves to the dragon girl and receives a grand compliment for his incredible achievement. The white-haired girl crosses her arms and reflects on the cute nickname he gave her. A memory shows the moment the young man was in shock upon discovering she had no name. She remembers that since her birth, all dragons and enemies only cared about her title. With a slightly sad and distant look, the queen reflects that no one saw her in any other way. Amidst so many shadows of the past, she realizes the boy was the only one to treat her as an individual. Back in the present, the young man smiles excitedly and asks her to evaluate his technique's improvement. With a gentle smile, the queen praises his power and thinks she does not mind that name either. Satisfied with the compliment, the protagonist clenches his fist full of determination to continue training. Playfully, she jumps on his back and says she cannot believe how much he learned in just 1 century. Very red in the face, the young man looks back and confesses he has been thinking about something for a while. Without looking away, he states his heart races whenever she gets so close. The white-haired girl is completely shocked and immediately blushes upon hearing the confession. Very embarrassed, the boy tries to explain himself, saying she is soft and smells really good. Being called a very attractive woman, the queen's eyes spin from so much embarrassment and confusion. Completely nervous, the girl hits him hard and calls him a weirdo to try and cover it up. While the young man rubs his bruised head, she turns her face trying to calm her own heart. With a slight smirk, the dragon girl reflects that he is truly an unpredictable person. At that moment, Testarossa approaches with a calm smile and asks to talk about the training plans. The dragon girl agrees to the break, and the boy says he will train a little further away. Watching the young man walk away, the demon confesses she never thought they would get so close. A memory reveals the old brutal and fierce battles the two queens fought in the past. Now, all that seems like just a distant past that brings a great feeling of nostalgia. With a sweet smile on her face, the dragon girl reflects on how things have changed since the boy's arrival. She concludes by saying that all the lonely and boring routine they lived began to change for the better. Agreeing with her friend, Testarossa shows a serene look entirely full of affection. The boy continues training his energy while the queens think the days have become fun. Focusing on the young man's illuminated face, the thought ends thanking his arrival in that place. The boy approaches and asks if she can explain something he did not understand about yesterday's magic. Before answering, the queen says she already warned him not to call her by her full name. Very embarrassed, Rui-sha does not know what to call her, falling into an awkward silence. Blushing, he calls her big sister, which makes her completely happy and excited. With a smile, she hugs him and says magic training can start immediately. The scene shifts to Rui-sha preparing a large fireball in his hand under the queen's watchful eye. With a focused and concentrated look, he prepares to use the high-level fire explosion magic. The boy launches the attack, which generates an immense wave of fire and throws him back with the force of the impact. Testarossa congratulates him, thinking his magic is much better than it was 100 years ago. She realizes he is getting stronger, but this also means the farewell is near. The young man runs to her with his eyes sparkling with happiness and asks if she saw what he did. Not understanding, he observes her and notices something strange on her face at that exact moment. With a confused expression, the boy asks if she is crying, which catches her by surprise. Trying to hide it, the woman gives a restrained laugh to try to conceal the falling tears. In a joking tone, she says she did not expect to be moved to tears by a simple human like him. With a gentle smile, she hugs him and tells him to think carefully about what he did to make her like this. The boy asks her to explain the reason, but she refuses and says he must fight out on his own. The queen thinks she will return him to his world, even if it means parting ways forever. The story advances to year 300 in the infinite prison, and the boy uses a black flame magic. The dark bluish energy spreads at high speed, creating a vortex of power around him. The black flame spins wildly, showing the young man's incredible mastery over that new skill. Amidst all the smoke and destruction, he stares at the two queens with a serious and confident look. The Dragon Queen is amazed as black magic is a technique exclusive to high-level demons. Testarossa reveals she slowly channeled her magic to him, allowing him to use it now. She thinks he has dedicated himself greatly and grown a lot, feeling great pride in the young man. When questioned, the Dragon Queen informs that Rui-sha has already mastered all forms of Qigong. She remembers the intense training where the boy was able to withstand one of her direct punches. With a proud smile and blushing face, the queen states she could not be prouder of him. Running toward the two, the young man asks if they saw his incredible magical power in action. The two congratulate him on the feat, affectionately stroking his head with admiration. Testarossa says it is getting late and training for today can finally be wrapped up. Suddenly, an intense blue light begins to glow on Rui-sha's chest, startling him. He feels a slight pain in the area, and the two queens turn to see what is happening. With the young man kneeling, the two approach and ask what is happening to him. Looking at the boy's chest, they are amazed by what they are seeing right then. The young man's clothing opens, revealing a kind of glowing crest that is formed on his skin. Testarossa reveals that this is the Master Crest, a mark that only appears on high-level individuals. Rui-sha thanks the two for the training and asks if they also have crests of that kind. Testarossa says it is the first time she will show her mark to the boy since he arrived. With a smile, she shows her queen's crest, which means Demon Queen in the ancient language. Next, the Dragon Queen also shows her crest, which represents her own title. Amazed, Rui-sha asks what the meaning of the mark that appeared on his chest is. Upon getting closer to see the crest, the Dragon Queen is completely shocked. She reveals that his crest means Demon Dragon General, a being who commands both powers. The two are shocked, because this figure only existed in legends, and Rui-sha gets excited by the news. The queen explains the crest has not fully awakened yet, and that he is at the night level. Determined, the boy says he will train even harder to become the Grand General from the legend. The queens fall silent and the young man stares at them, realizing something is wrong. The Dragon Queen explains his body has reached its strength limit for his current age. In other words, as long as he stays there in the prison, he will no longer be able to get stronger. It is revealed that people do not age in the prison, and Rui-sha understands he needs to leave soon. Testarossa says the current Rui-sha can leave and suggests he rest to try the following day. Without saying a single word, the young man stares at the two with a dark and empty expression. The scene shifts to a cozy little house with a chimney releasing a wisp of smoke. In a well-made double bed, the boy sleeps peacefully, completely covered. With a slight mumble, he starts to wake up and moves his hand to the side, feeling something soft. He squeezes what he is feeling and hears a cute female voice sighing softly beside him. Slowly opening his eyes, the young man tries to understand what is happening around him. Suddenly, he sees Testarossa lying beside him in bed, giving him a very affectionate, "Good morning." Blushing, she says she did not expect him to touch her first and that she was surprised. Rui-sha is startled to see Testarossa over him on the bed and asks what she is doing. The Demon Queen pushes him down and tells him to just accept the situation. She claims there is no escaping the combined forces of the Demon Queen and the Dragon Queen. The boy is confused by their behavior and the different clothes they are wearing. Testarossa explains she talked to Rio about what else they could give him before he leaves. The Dragon Queen adds that they already gave him strength and knowledge, but one last thing was missing. Rui-sha is curious and asks what this last gift they mentioned could be. The two queens lean close to him and ask if he is ready to accept the gift. He is caught off guard when Testarossa leans in and gives him a direct kiss. The kiss deepens, and the boy seems to be enjoying the tender moment with her. Testarossa declares her feelings, saying she loves him very much, as she kisses him again. Rui-sha is breathless and confused, asking why she is acting this way. The Dragon Queen interrupts the moment and says it is now her turn to join in the gift. She gets on top of him and the two share a kiss, while he remains confused by the situation. The Dragon Queen pulls away from him and asks how he felt after the kiss. She teases the boy, asking if he has fallen madly in love with her now. Testarossa notes that Rio's ears and face are red from so much embarrassment. The two start arguing, and the young man asks them to stop the commotion. He slowly gets out of bed while they continue to bicker about what happened. The queens calm down and look at each other, maintaining a mysterious atmosphere between them. Rui-sha makes a move to prepare to leave that place and accomplish his goal. He lies back on the bed and asks them to be gentle with him, even though he is nervous. The two lean over him, joking that none of that is going to happen, leaving him confused. Rui-sha lets out a shout, and the small house in the background starts to shake with hearts floating around. The boy is now in front of the two queens, who question him about the escape plan. Testarossa asks if he forgot something important before leaving there. He replies everything is fine and remembers how anxious he was when he first arrived. Rui-sha thanks them for their support during the rigorous training that pushed him to his limits. He says he enjoyed their company, but his days in the prison have come to an end. The young man looks at them with a smile, ready to finally leave that place today. With a determined look, Rui-sha gets ready and says it is time to finally do it. But the Dragon Queen interrupts him and asks him to wait just one more moment. She snaps her fingers and creates a mysterious item, handing it to him as a final parting gift. The boy realizes it is her earring and is surprised as she asks him to wear the item. The queen explains he must channel his magic into the earring, and he agrees to try. The object begins to shine intensely, releasing a golden light throughout the prison. Slowly, the light begins to transform and take a completely new shape in his hand. In an instant, the earring turns into a sword, and Rui-sha is amazed by its power. The Dragon Queen reveals that this is the Dragon King's sword, a weapon of great power. She explains the sword was forged from the fang of her late father, the former king of dragons. With a sad smile, the queen says she is giving him the only keepsake she has of her father. She asks him to use the sword very carefully, leaving Rui-sha speechless with that gift. The boy tries to decline, but the queen places her finger on his lips and stops him from speaking. She says she is not handing over the sword on a whim, and that he must understand her reasons. Rui-sha agrees and promises he will care for the sword as if it were the queen herself. Satisfied, she says she will show him how to use the weapon's power so he can escape. Wielding the sword, the boy says this time he will really do it, and prepares himself. With a serious and focused look, the protagonist takes a deep breath and gathers all his power. The young man grips the sword firmly, feeling the weapon's energy flowing through his entire body. He takes a step forward and readies his final attack to try and tear the prison's dimension apart. With all his might, he shouts as he readies his most powerful and destructive attack. The boy unleashes a strike called Dimensional Slash, creating a wave of golden energy. The powerful attack hits the dimension's wall, which begins to crack from the force of the impact. A large rift opens in space, revealing the chance the young man had been waiting for to escape. He stares at the rift with a serious look, seeing the light of the outside world shining through it. With a smile, he says goodbye and gets ready to cross the dimensional rift to leave. Before he departs, the two queens approach him without saying a single word. In an affectionate gesture, they hug him tightly in an emotional and silent farewell. Crying, Testarossa asks him to take care and be very careful on his journey. The Dragon Queen also says goodbye in tears, saying they will always be waiting for him. With tears in his eyes, the young man agrees with their words, knowing it really is a goodbye. He thinks living with them was fun, but living the three of them together in the real world would be better. With determination, he promises he will get them out of there, no matter what happens in the future. Rui-sha then steps away and prepares to cross the dimensional rift, leaving the two behind. The two queens hold hands and watch the boy walk through the portal to the outside world. With the rift slowly closing, Testarossa realizes the young man is truly gone from that place. The Dragon Queen comments it has been 300 years since they were alone in the prison. With a smile, she teases Testarossa, asking if the other is already feeling lonely. Suddenly, the Demon Queen throws herself into her friend's arms, leaving her completely unresponsive. Crying heavily, Testarossa admits she feels lonely and that his departure hurt a lot. The two embrace tightly as the Dragon Queen tries to comfort her friend in her moment of sadness. Amidst the tears, the Demon Queen wonders why the young man had to leave and leave them there. The Dragon Queen sighs, wondering how the strongest demon in history can be such a crybaby. Blushing, Testarossa asks if Rio isn't also feeling lonely with his departure. She replies she would be lying if she said no, but she believes in the boy's promise. With eyes full of admiration, the Demon Queen realizes how much her friend has matured. In an affectionate gesture, Testarossa hugs Rio tightly and says she is very cute. The Dragon Queen feels awkward, but her friend approaches with a look full of ulterior motives. With a mischievous smile, she suggests the two can comfort each other while they wait for him. Testarossa starts teasing her friend, who shrieks in embarrassment at the unexpected situation. Amidst the playful banter, the Dragon Queen begs for Rui-sha to return as fast as possible. Meanwhile, the boy floats in the void, realizing he is in the rift between dimensions. He remembers the faces of his two masters who helped him become much stronger. With eyes full of tears, the protagonist feels grateful for all the time he spent with them. The young man trembles with emotion, feeling a mix of sadness and determination in his heart. With a serious look, he promises that no matter how many years it takes, he will save both of them from the prison. He faces a barrier of light which appears to be the end of the dimensional rift he created. The young man wields the Dragon King's sword once more, preparing for his final strike. With all his might, he unleashes another, high-dimensional slash at the barrier in front of him. The strike opens a rift, and the boy steps through, finally returning to his home world. After being thrown through the rift, the young man slowly opens his eyes, feeling a bit dizzy. He hears the sound of birds and smells the trees, realizing he is back. With Rio's earring on his ear, the young man realizes he is home and shouts with happiness. He throws his arms up and celebrates enthusiastically while a few birds fly around him. Rui-sha realizes he needs to return to the village, but cannot remember the right path to take. Suddenly, the boy has an idea to figure out his exact location in that forest. He thinks that if he looks from the top of a tall tree, he might see where his old village is. But upon jumping, he is startled by his own strength and realizes he jumped way too high. From high above, the young man is amazed by the view, feeling a cold sweat run down his face. He can see his entire village and the ocean, completely awestruck by the incredible landscape. With a smile, he realizes how small the world he lived in was by comparison. The boy starts walking through the forest but feels worried about his promise. But he figures the two of them must be even more worried, and he fills with determination. The scene shifts to a simple brick house, showing someone's arrival. Rui-sha slowly opens the door and says he is finally home after a long time. Upon entering, he feels nostalgic and is happy that nothing has changed in his absence. He grabs a few items off a table like money and a dagger and packs them for his journey. After grabbing everything, he decides he needs to visit one more place before leaving. The boy walks through the forest with a bag on his back, arriving at his final destination. With a sad smile, he apologizes for not visiting that place for so long. It is revealed that these are his parents' graves marked by a large stone. Suddenly, while praying, he is startled by a loud sound coming from behind him. It was the village chief, who asks if that was really Rui-sha, who is startled by his presence. The old man asks where he has been, and the boy replies that many things happened. With tears in his eyes, the young man apologizes for disappearing and says he is glad to see him again. The village chief invites him to eat something warm, happy to see the young man is okay. Rui-sha clenches his fist tightly and apologizes once more, declining the invitation. With a fireball in his hand, he says he needs to leave and cannot stay in the village. The village chief is shocked, and the young man thanks him for worrying about him. Rui-sha says he is no longer weak, and the old man notices the determination in his eyes, even without understanding. The old man says he won't stop him and promises to protect the house, telling him to go without worry. With a bow, Rui-sha thanks the village chief for all his support and understanding. The young man turns around and starts walking out of the village, following his new path. Suddenly, a familiar voice surprises him, saying she finally found him. The boy turns around and realizes it has been a long time since he saw the person in front of him. With a confident smile, Lena, his childhood friend, stares at him with a mysterious look. She says she was worried about his disappearance for almost a year and already figures he wants to come back. With a cold look, Rui-sha thinks Alina hasn't changed at all and still has the same arrogance. Annoyed by his response, the girl asks how a weakling like him dares answer her back. With a threatening look, Alina approaches and says he needs to be punished. But the young man simply extends his hand with a serious expression, ready for whatever comes. With a quick movement, he easily dodges the girl's attack, and she flies right over him. Alina is shocked and cannot believe he was able to block her attack. Rui-sha says she only cares about herself and never considered that others could get strong. Angry and embarrassed, the girl tells him to shut up and refuses to accept the truth. She thinks he should just listen to what she says and tries to attack him up close once again. But to her surprise, she cannot hit the boy, who dodges every single strike. With a cold look, Rui-sha prepares the third attack form of his Qigong technique. He uses the Shiranu's skill and lands a powerful kick to the girl's stomach. Alina falls to the ground without understanding what happened and asks for help to get up, but is ignored. With a serious look, Rui-sha says goodbye to her and asks her to stop being a burden to others. He turns his back and walks away, while the girl crawls on the ground, begging him to wait. With a look of obsession, she swears she will make him hers, no matter what she has to do. Far from the village, Rui-sha walks down a dirt road, reflecting on his next steps. With a map in hand, he realizes he is lost and tries to remember what his master said. A memory takes him back to a moment when he asked what he should do after leaving the prison. Testarossa suggested he gather information about the hero, as only he would know how to break the seal. Rui-sha questioned the idea, recalling the hero was part of the human race and must already be deceased. The boy completes his thought by saying humans live at most 100 years, and the hero must have passed on by now. The Dragon Queen explained the hero's bloodline wouldn't die out, and his descendants must exist. With the memory of the conversation, he realizes he should start by looking for the hero's descendants. Back in the present, the young man regrets being lost in the middle of the forest. He realizes he needs to go to the royal capital to find the information he needs. It is explained that the royal capital of Exodoria is about a 3-day journey from Quebec Village. The Kingdom of Exodor is the second largest country on the Katarika continent, a very important place. With the map in his hands, Rui-sha regrets not asking for directions before leaving the village. Suddenly, he remembers something and has the idea to use detection magic to find his location. This magic is a demon technique, so he concentrates to expand his sensory field. In an instant, he can feel countless magical traces and finds his destination. With a smile, he realizes he found the royal capital and gets ready to leave immediately. Using his body's energy, the boy prepares to use the Qigong technique. He activates the flying step skill and sprints through the forest at high speed. The young man is amazed by his own speed, watching the landscape pass by in the blink of an eye. He keeps running through the forest, feeling the breeze and the freedom of using his new skill. After running quite a bit, he stops and takes a deep breath, realizing he got a little too carried away. Suddenly, the boy spots something in the distance and is surprised by what he sees. He sees many people in a line and realizes he has finally reached the entrance to the royal capital. Rui-sha gets nervous, as it is his first time in the capital and he doesn't know how the screening will be. One of the guards shouts for the next person in line to step up and show their documents. The guard turns to the young man and asks him to present his entry permit. Rui-sha panics because he didn't know he needed a permit to enter the city. Nervous, he approaches the guard, who rushes him so as not to delay the rest of the line. The guard stares at him with an annoyed expression, and the boy fears he has already been caught. Not knowing what to do, the young man despairs, thinking he could be arrested at any moment. But the guard just asks if he is there to take the entrance exam for the Magic Academy. Not understanding the question, the young man is confused, with a funny expression on his face. But the guard hurries him, saying the exam is about to start, and Rui-sha is startled. With a smile, the guard wishes him luck and lets him pass, much to the boy's surprise. Once inside the city, he still doesn't understand what happened, but is glad he got in. With sparkling eyes, the young man is impressed by the beauty and sheer size of the royal capital. Walking through the city, he marvels at the grandeur of the royal capital. Rui-sha is amazed by the number of people and the bustling commerce on the streets. Looking at a sign, he sees that the middle road leads to the city's residential district. Meanwhile, the road on the right, overlooking the sea, is where the large commercial district is. Finally, the road on the left leads to the Academy District, where the magic school is located. He thinks the school would be inspiring, but his focus right now is finding information. With a thoughtful look, the young man reflects on what would be the best place to start his search. He considers a tavern but drops the idea so he doesn't raise suspicions since he is a kid. Rui-sha then decides the best place to go is the Adventurers Guild to get a permit. Besides being able to travel, he could earn money, which would be perfect for his journey. Determined, the young man clenches his fist and decides he is going to become a great adventurer. But suddenly, a hand grabs his shoulder and an unfamiliar voice calls him boy. An older woman asks if he is lost, stating that the Magic Academy is not in that direction. Confusing him for a student, she drags him away, saying he can't run from his fears. She pulls the boy's ear and says not to worry, because she herself will take him to the location. Being dragged against his will, Rui-sha wonders what's going to happen to him now. It is explained that the Floy Royal Academy of Magic was created to strengthen the nation. While he is dragged, the woman explains that children can take the exam for free. Arriving in front of a large building, the woman lets him go and says they have finally arrived. Rui-sha is impressed by the beauty of the Magic Academy, with its fountain and stained glass. The woman pushes him inside and tells him to hurry up and register for the exam. She wishes him good luck, and the boy realizes there is no turning back now. With a smile, he accepts the situation and thinks maybe all of this is destiny at work. At the reception desk, he barely manages to register in time, but the attendant helps him out. The exam area has several targets floating by magic, awaiting the candidate's tests. One of the evaluators calls the next candidate, and Rui-sha gets ready for his turn. The instructor explains it is a magical aptitude test and he must destroy as many targets as possible. Rui-sha watches another candidate use wind explosion magic, creating a blast of energy. But the attack is weak and barely hits the target, proving to be just superficial magic. The boy thinks it's a waste, since everyone there is more talented than he is. Amidst the tension, the evaluator calls the name of the next candidate, Rui-sha. Positioned in the center of the arena, the boy prepares for the start of his aptitude test. He hears the others whispering about his clothes, but decides not to hold back for his master's sake. With a serious look full of determination, the protagonist promises to do his best on the test. Surprised by the change in attitude, the examiner prepares to give the starting signal. As soon as the test begins, Rui-sha shouts and focuses a large amount of energy into his hand. The young man unleashes a massive fireball, using the powerful superior flame magic. The magic surges forward with devastating force, exploding and creating a large crater at the site. All the other candidates are thrown backward by the force of the impact, screaming in shock. As the dust settles, everyone wonders what kind of magic he just used. The smoke clears, revealing that the arena was completely destroyed by the boy's power. The other candidates cower in fear, terrified by the level of power he just displayed. With a satisfied smile, Rui-sha clenches his fist and feels he used the right amount of force. He turns to the examiner and asks with an innocent smile how his evaluation went. But the man was lying on the ground, shocked by the scene, and Rui-sha asks if he is okay. The young man gets worried, thinking he might have been disqualified for overdoing his power. One of the staff members, trembling, says he was not disqualified and sends him to the next test. The woman runs away scared, thinking this year's new students are very dangerous. After the test, Rui-sha walks down the academy halls but stops when he notices something strange. He feels he is being watched and sees other students whispering about him from a distance. Suddenly, a blonde boy approaches and greets him with an unexpected hello. The young man introduces himself as Yuri and asks if they can talk for a moment alone. Rui-sha is surprised by the boy's good looks and wonders what he could possibly want with him. With a bow, the protagonist introduces himself and Yuri praises his politeness and kindness. Rui-sha asks why he approached him, and the other says they can treat each other as friends. Embarrassed, the young man agrees to call him Yuri, feeling a little more at ease. With a bright and charming smile, the blonde boy confirms that everything is fine between them. The protagonist feels awkward, thinking any girl would fall in love with that smile. Yuri explains he heard about his incredible results on the tests and got curious to meet him. He says he expected Kerr to be the best but didn't count on a surprise like Rui-sha. Yuri asks if he doesn't know, saying the capital is buzzing because of horror. Rui-sha explains he just arrived, and the blonde boy understands the reason for his confusion. Confused, the protagonist asks Yuri's name again, who apologizes for getting distracted. Rui-sha asks if she is strong, and Yuri says that word doesn't even begin to describe her. With a confident smile, he prepares to reveal the girl's true identity. Yuri reveals that she's a descendant of the legendary hero Aga, which shocks the protagonist. Rui-sha can't believe the hero's descendant is right there in front of him. He tries to calm down, taking a deep breath to process the information he just received. The young man asks what the descendant looks like, and Yuri, with a smile, asks if he's curious. Yuri tells him not to worry, because she will arrive shortly so he can meet her in person. Suddenly, a girl with pink hair slides into the hallway, stopping dramatically. With a serious look, she stares at the group, getting ready to talk to them about something. She walks up to Rui-sha and asks if he is the examee everyone is talking about. The girl glares at him with disdain, analyzing him from head to toe with suspicion. With an expression of disgust, she says he looks much weaker than she imagined. Yuri steps in and asks her to stop being rude to the boy they just met. The girl calls him Yuri and asks why he is hanging out with a guy like that. The blonde boy apologizes for the late introduction and gets ready to introduce the girl. He reveals that she is Charlotte Udilia, the true descendant of the legendary hero Oga. Hearing the word hero, Rui-sha's expression changes completely, becoming more serious. He remembers how he used to admire the hero as a child, before he knew the truth. Rui-sha thinks about how gentle the queens were, contrary to the legend that painted them as evil. Charlotte confirms she is the descendant of the hero who locked the two queens in prison. With a look of contempt, she says she cannot lose to a weak and timid man like him. The boy realizes she is completely obsessed with being number one at the academy. Yuri points out the exam is already over, but Charlotte laughs, saying isn't that smart. With a smile, she unfastens part of her outfit, preparing to show something. Yuri yells in surprise, not believing what the girl is about to do in front of everyone. Rui-sha is left speechless, watching closely to see what she is about to reveal. The girl throws a glove on the floor and challenges him to a duel, much to the protagonist's surprise. The other students are shocked by the proposal, creating a tense atmosphere in the hallway. She says if she wins, he must withdraw his admission, but if he wins, she has another proposal. With a confident smile, she says she will become his servant, but Yuri advises him not to accept. He says there is nothing to gain from the duel, and the boy agrees, thinking over the situation. Rui-sha doesn't want a servant, but realizes that if he wins, he might get information about the hero. Yuri tries to stop him, but the young man bends down and picks the glove off the floor, accepting the challenge. With a determined look, he confirms he will accept the duel, surprising everyone. An academy professor asks Yuri if it is safe to let them duel like that. The professor fears losing his job if someone gets hurt, but Yuri takes responsibility. With a smile, he says the professor must also be curious about the boy's power. The professor admits he is curious but still worries about everyone's safety. Yuri then asks the professor to act as the duel's referee, which leaves him shocked. In the arena, the professor explains the duel ends with surrender or loss of consciousness. He stresses that taking an opponent's life is forbidden and gets ready to give the signal. The referee shouts for them to defend their honor, and the two stare each other down with serious looks. Charlotte taunts the boy, saying he won't feel any pain if he just admits defeat right now. She draws her sword and asks Rui-sha to draw his weapon so the duel can begin. The girl points her sword at the young man, waiting for him to react to her challenge. With a thoughtful look, the protagonist recalls an important piece of advice from one of his masters. A memory of the Dragon Queen reminds him that the sword should only be used in life or death battles. He remembers agreeing to the promise, looking at his master with determination. In the memory, the two seal the promise, showing just how important her warning was. Back in the present, the boy decides he cannot use the sword in that duel. Irritated, Charlotte asks if he is trying to say he can beat her empty-handed. She feels underestimated and gets ready to attack with all her strength. The girl shouts her name, introducing herself as the descendant of the great legendary hero. In her ancestor's name, she swears she will defeat the young man and lunges forward to attack. But Rui-sha just stares at her with a serious look and clenched fists, ready for combat. Charlotte realizes he is not going to strike back and gets annoyed, thinking he wants to be defeated. With a smile, the boy prepares to use his Qigong technique to defend himself. He uses his fifth defensive form called Diamond Shell to block the girl's sword with his bare arm. Surprised by what she just saw, the young warrior drops her jaw, unable to believe his incredible defense. She steps back startled and asks how he managed to deflect an iron, cutting sword using only his bare hands. With a smile on his face, the protagonist introduces himself as Rui-sha and says he is neither a hero nor a demon king. He continues his explanation and calmly states that he is just an ordinary villager. The girl just stands there in shock, trying to process how such a simple young man stopped her grand attack. Looking at his own fist, the young man focuses his thoughts on the fifth defensive form known as Diamond Shell. He explains this technique hardens only one specific point and therefore can surpass the power of the iron body. The young man shows his glowing arm and says the non-hardened areas can move freely during the fight. But the girl refuses to accept the situation and angrily shouts that their duel is not over yet. Panting and full of determination, the swordswoman charges forward, rushing right past her opponent. She fires a massive pink energy slash at the boy, but he defends against the impact using his arm once again. Even after taking such a powerful magical attack, the protagonist maintains a completely calm and focused expression. Frustrated by that, she wonders who he really is to be able to keep up with her sword skills. Landing on the ground after the strike, the young woman decides she needs to change her combat strategy as fast as possible. Soon after, a glowing sphere of pink magic surrounded by flower petals begins to form in her hand. The delicate magical petals quickly transform into sharp blades ready for a fatal strike. With a swift motion, the swordswoman launches all the cherry blossom blades high into the battle arena. Noticing his opponent's new technique, the boy's eyes open wide, showing some surprise at the magic. He jumps backward right as the magical attacks hit the ground, kicking up a lot of dust. The young man lands safely in a crouch while watching the girl standing a few meters away. With a very confident smile on her face, she praises her opponent's quick dodging reaction. Next, she raises her hand, creating a giant storm of petals, and questions if he can dodge all that. The girl points forward and orders the cherry blossom storm dance to advance against the protagonist. Outside the arena, the professor watches the situation with great fear and decides he must stop the fight immediately. However, Yuri puts his hand on the professor's shoulder and firmly asks him to wait just a bit longer. The protagonist's friend asks the master to calm down and stay patient during such a dangerous match. Yuri explains that the gleam in Rui-sha's eyes hasn't faded as the boy faces the storm of blades. Amazed by the amount of magic, the young man concludes he cannot handle it using sheer brute force. Making a very risky decision, he sprints at high speed straight into the girl's sharp attacks. Charlotte is shocked and wonders if he is really running straight into her skill. With a powerful leap, the protagonist stomps the ground so hard that the earth around him cracks. He then leaps into the air, gracefully dodging the multiple petal blades flying in his direction. Reaching his hand forward, the young man shouts the name of his elite area of effect fire magic. A giant wave of flames surges across the arena toward the girl who braces for impact. The cherry blossom blades are completely incinerated by the young man's fire attack. Disbelieving, Charlotte realizes neither her sword skills nor her magic have worked. The scene shifts to a memory where someone says young Charlotte's training was already enough. A man praised her strong physique and said no one had manifested the hero's crest since Oga. He says with enough effort, she might awaken that power, which makes her happy. In another memory, a woman asks the little girl if she is the famous descendant of the hero. Everyone praised her strength and said she would become a true heroine like Oga. Because of all this pressure, she decided she needed to train much harder to get stronger. Back in the present, the girl grips her sword tightly and thinks she cannot lose right here. With all her determination, she charges forward, shouting she cannot afford to be defeated. Her hand glows with energy as she shouts that she needs to become everyone's hero. She delivers a powerful strike with her sword, declaring she will not lose in this place. With her face flushed from effort and resolve, the swordswoman stares fixedly at her opponent. The protagonist, however, watches her with a look of empathy and understanding for her struggle. He remembers when his master said his effort was useless because he had no talent. In his memory, the woman yelled there was no time to rest, forcing him to keep going. Seeing Charlotte's suffering, the young man thinks it must have been very hard for her too. With that, he decides he's going to save her from that pressure, just as he himself was saved before. As she attacks, the boy prepares to use the fifth defensive form of his Qigong technique. He uses the diamond blade catch technique and catches her sword with his bare hand. With the strength of his grip, the boy makes the sword's magical blade begin to crack. In an instant, Charlotte's sword shatters into pieces, leaving her completely stunned. The girl looks at the destroyed weapon with an expression of total shock and despair. Then, the protagonist prepares to use the first attack form of his Qigong technique. With his fist glowing with energy, he readies his finishing move, the Meteor Iron Fist. Seeing the boy's fist approaching, Charlotte closes her eyes and thinks this is the end. Holding the hilt of her broken sword, she laments that she cannot lose because she is a hero. But in a flashback, the boy is shown preparing his Meteor Iron Fist technique. Charlotte accepts her defeat and thinks this is what it feels like to finally lose a battle. The young man steps in with his powerful attack, but he deflects the punch at the very last second. His fist stops mere inches from her face, leaving the girl confused by the situation. Kneeling on the ground, the swordswoman wonders if she is actually still alive. The protagonist then says he knew he would win and asks if she is okay with the outcome. Blushing, the young woman looks at him wordlessly, her eyes beginning to tear up. The boy watches her in silence and notices she is starting to cry softly. The girl breaks down in tears on the floor, asking why all this is happening. Not knowing how to react, Rui-sha panics and wonders what he should do. He looks at the audience and realizes nobody noticed the fight ended, deciding to act fast. So the young man decides to use a black magic technique his sister Tess taught him. He raises his hand and conjures a barrier called Shadow Veil to hide them. In the stands, everyone gets confused and wonders what that black thing in the arena is. Amidst the crowd, one of his masters watches the situation with a serious and attentive look. On the other side of the barrier, the young man says they are now completely hidden from everyone. He carefully approaches and asks the still crying girl if she is okay. Scared, Charlotte wonders why everything went dark, but the boy calms her down. He explains he just used his magic to separate light and sound, which surprises her. She says she has never heard of that magic, but she is not surprised he used his strange abilities. As he kneels near her, the girl startles, and the young man apologizes for scaring her. He says he will heal her and asks her to hold on just for a moment. With a red face and watery eyes, the girl asks him to wait a bit. After healing her, the young man smiles and says that should do it, and she thanks him for saving her. The girl then asks why he went through so much trouble for her, even though she was rude. With a gentle smile, the protagonist simply repeats her question in a calm tone. He replies that it is natural to help someone in need, leaving her speechless. The young woman remembers her own motivation and realizes she forgot a simple truth about being a hero. With a smile, Charlotte admits her defeat and says he completely outmatched her. She then apologizes for her initial rudeness, saying she is very sorry for what she did. The girl admits Rui-sha is stronger than she is, both in body and mind. The boy says he still has a lot to learn and praises her strength in her final spell. Rui-sha warns he is going to drop the cloaking magic, and she shyly agrees. Embarrassed, she says her close friends call her Shero, leaving Rui-sha confused. She then stammers and says if he wants to, he can also call her by her nickname Shero. The protagonist looks at her for a moment and simply agrees to the young woman's request. Shaking her hand, the young man says he hopes he can count on Shero's help in the future. The barrier of darkness vanishes, and the crowd realizes the two are visible again. With a smile on her face, the girl raises her hand and yells to everyone that she surrenders. Upon hearing her declaration, the crowd is in complete shock, not understanding the situation. The professor asks if she is sure, and she asks him not to cancel Rui's admission. The master replies that is fine, but it seems there is still something bothering him. He reminds her of the promise she made in case she lost the duel, surprising them both. In a flashback, she had said she would become his servant if she lost the fight. The boy says he does not need a servant, and that everything is fine, leaving the professor relieved. But Charlotte interrupts him, and says he can't just ignore the rules of the duel. She then teases him, saying she doesn't mind and asks what he is going to do about the situation. The unexpected answer and the girl's tone of voice leave the protagonist speechless. Completely embarrassed by the situation, the young man's face turns entirely red. Shero asks what he will do, thinking he shouldn't get so embarrassed around girls. Impatient with his hesitation, she scolds him and grabs the boy's wrist tightly. The young man is surprised by her attitude and looks at his hand with great curiosity. Suddenly, a master and servant crest glows on both of their hands, leaving him in shock. With a smile, she says she belongs to him now and that it is bad luck for the young man. The girl warns that even if he regrets it, she will not let him back out. Awkwardly, the protagonist thinks the situation has turned into a massive problem. Meanwhile, the other students comment on how the academy entrance exam went. After the duels and tests are over, the students slowly begin to leave the venue. Soon after, Yuri approaches and congratulates Rui-sha on a good job at the entrance exam. The protagonist is happy to see his friend, who comments that the duel must have been tough. Yuri teases Shiro, saying he didn't expect the brave heroine to follow someone. Confused by the interaction, Rui-sha asks what the relationship is between his friend and the girl. Yuri turns to Shiro, who explains she didn't say anything to avoid creating a distance. Not understanding a thing, Rui-sha asks what they are talking about, and Yuri starts laughing. He then decides to formally introduce himself, revealing his full name, Yuri von Exodoria. With a smile, the young man reveals that he is the first prince of the kingdom of Exodor. Completely shocked by the revelation, the protagonist's jaw drops with no reaction. Rui-sha stammers, saying he should call him Lord, but Yuri asks him to stop. After agreeing to stay friends, Yuri changes the subject and asks his friend a question. He asks if Rui-sha has a place to stay, and the boy panics when he realizes he does not. Awkwardly, the young man shows he has no money or permit to stay in the city. Yuri understands the situation and Rui-sha bows, apologizing for all the trouble. The prince says he will take care of everything, while the young man was just thinking about leaving. Hearing the offer of help, the boy is surprised and asks what he means. Yuri offers him one of his favorite hotels with meals and help with the permit. Shiro gets suspicious and asks the reason for all this help, but Yuri says he has his reasons. The prince explains the capital needs talent to improve the academy's reputation. He then concludes by saying Rui-sha is exactly the kind of talent they need. The boy considers refusing so as not to leave his sisters alone in the village where they lived. But Yuri promises to be his sponsor, and Rui-sha realizes he can get information through Shiro. Thinking about the advantages, the protagonist agrees to enroll and shakes Yuri's hand. The next day, Rui-sha thanks the hotel receptionist for the delicious breakfast. Turning around to leave the place, the young man runs into a completely unexpected visit. Shiro was standing at the hotel door in a new outfit with a smile on her face. She greets him and asks if the announcement of the exam results will be the next day. Pouting her cheeks, the girl asks if it's a bother that she came over so suddenly. Stammering, the young man says it's no problem, and that he is happy to see her again. With a big smile, the girl says if that's the case, then there is absolutely no problem. Suddenly, she holds his hand and asks if he plans to explore the city. With an excited smile, Shiro offers to be his guide for the outing. Soon after, the scene shows the two in a store, with the girl picking out new clothes for him. Next, they are in a cafe, chatting and laughing while eating together. As evening falls, the young woman holds a shopping bag and comments on how fun the day was. The young man walks beside her and agrees, saying he also had a lot of fun. But in his thoughts, Rui-sha feels guilty towards Shiro because of the hero Oga. In a memory, he recalls that Oga was the hero who sealed him along with Rio in the past. At that moment, Rio wonders how that is possible, and Tess says the hero was not normal. The master explains he might have created a space to prevent his own aging. Young Rui-sha then says he will find and defeat the hero to break the barrier. Rio warns him not to be reckless, because Oga was an extremely strong enemy. Tess starts to wonder if maybe the hero had a reason to seal them that way. Even so, the little boy grips the bedsheet and says he still cannot forgive him. Back in the present, Shiro notices his sad look, and he covers it up by saying it's nothing. Rui-sha then asks what she knows about Oga, and she questions if he is also a fan. The girl admits that actually she doesn't know much about her ancestor either. She explains this is because the hero lived 300 years ago, and the young man understands. But she says maybe she has some items left by him at home, which excites the boy. The young woman shows her sword Frau Karasos and says it was used by the ancient hero. The young man finds the sword incredible and thinks there is something about it that calms him. Out of curiosity, the protagonist reaches out and touches the blade of the sacred sword. Suddenly, a warm power that is neither magic nor Q begins to flow into his body. Shiro asks what happened, and he apologizes, thanking her for showing him the weapon. With a confused expression, the young man stares at his own hand and wonders what that was. The girl asks if he wants to go anywhere else, but he says they had better head home. He thanks her for the day and offers to walk her back, but she holds on to his clothes. Blushing, Shiro asks if they could go to his room together. Soon after, the scene shifts to the hotel room, showing the key on the table. Inside, the two are sitting on the edge of the bed in a very tense silence. Nervous about the silence, the boy says the day was a lot of fun and thanks her for her company. With a sweet smile, Shiro says she had fun too and proposes they go out together again soon. She moves a little closer to him and thinks to herself that things are going very well so far. With a determined look, the young woman decides in her mind that she will make the protagonist fall in love with her. She remembers how in the past many people tried to take advantage of her hero bloodline with marriage proposals. Shiro was curious about romance, but her heart would never beat for someone weaker than she was. But at that moment when the protagonist reached out his hand to help her, she felt something different for the first time. The girl brings her hand closer and thinks the servant mark acts as a reminder that the young man belongs only to her. Shiro says she has now become his servant, and the young man simply nods his head quite shyly. Embarrassed, she comments that he finally got a servant but still seems a bit stiff. She gets even closer to the protagonist's face and shyly asks if he isn't going to do anything. Nervous about the situation, the young woman takes his hand and says he can touch her if he really wants to do it. Faced with such bold behavior from the girl, the protagonist is completely paralyzed, not knowing what to do. In his mind, he remembers his master Tess telling him he doesn't need to carry the burden of worrying so much about them. She explained they wouldn't be mad if he found someone important to his life in that new world. Lying nearby, young dragon Rio agreed and said only humans practiced union with a single partner. She added that for demons and dragons it is normal to have several companions, leaving the boy quite surprised. The protagonist said he thought it would be hard to do something like that, but his master comforted him, telling him not to force himself. She advised that if he found someone to protect and love forever, he should act in a way he wouldn't regret. Right after, Rio teased her companion, saying she was the jealous type despite saying all those things. The two started arguing about who is the oldest, while the boy asked them to stop doing that. Back in the present, the young woman calls the protagonist's name as she stays very close to him on the hotel room bed. The young man reflects that in the beginning he only approached her with the goal of getting information about the ancient hero. But he realizes that after fighting and spending that fun day together, his feelings for her slowly began to change. The more he got to know the young woman, the more he felt attracted to her cheerful personality and her beautiful, bright smile. The young man feels a strong desire to protect her and realizes he really wants to stay by her side from that moment on. Swallowing hard and filled with determination, he decides he will no longer hesitate about how he feels for the girl. In a swift and firm move, the boy pulls her close, leaving the young woman startled by his sudden action. He approaches affectionately and shares a sweet kiss with her, catching the girl totally by surprise. The two continue holding each other on the bed while enjoying that romantic and tender moment together in the hotel room. Rui-sha and Shiro kiss affectionately, feeling the connection between them grow intensely. The couple holds each other tightly, enjoying the romantic moment and the affection they feel for one another. They continue their tender moment on the bed, expressing their feelings through every touch. In a moment of passion, the young man helps her get more comfortable, leaving the young woman even more vulnerable and flushed. Shiro gently asks that they stop right there, saying they should end the moment for that day. The protagonist agrees and says he will be gentle with her, trying to calm her completely. The girl reflects that, if it is with him, she feels everything will be okay, giving herself over to the moment. Suddenly, the boy takes off his gear, and the young woman is startled to see what is happening there. She realizes he is going to continue with the moment, and Shiro asks him to wait a bit. With much emotion and intensity, the two finally share a deeply meaningful connection, marking a turning point in their lives. The next day, birds sing cheerfully at the window, announcing the dawn of a new morning. The two walk down the street together, but Shiro complains of pain as she moves with difficulty. Rui-sha asks if she is okay and if she needs him to use any healing magic to feel better. She kicks his foot, saying he should reflect on his actions from last night. The girl states she is very mad and demands that he take responsibility by being her boyfriend. The young man agrees and says he is a man of his word, so he will take full responsibility. Surprised by the direct answer, the young woman's jaw drops, unable to believe what she just heard. While they walked happily, a group of students approaches, asking if they are the new students. The group leader mocks Rui-sha, saying he looks much weaker than he imagined. The guy looks at Shiro and says she is way cuter than he thought, suggesting she leave him. The girl does not like the taunt at all and warns she will attack if he takes one more step closer. The bully keeps teasing, asking her not to be so cold to the group. Irritated, Rui-sha pulls the girl close to him and firmly states she belongs only to him. Shiro blushes and asks him to stop, saying they are being watched in public. The bully gets furious and attacks Rui-sha with a fireball, yelling at him not to get so cocky. Rui-sha is startled and questions using magic in the middle of the street, worried about the other people. To prevent anyone from getting hurt, he quickly conjures a stone projectile technique. He launches the small projectiles at high speed, aiming to disarm his opponent's attack. The projectiles hit the group of bullies accurately, making them all fall to the ground. Terrified, they apologize immediately and run away, leaving Rui-sha and Shiro alone once again. With a gentle smile, the boy extends his hand and invites the young woman to continue on their way. The girl gets a little red in the face and happily accepts the invitation. Soon after, she holds his hand and pulls him to walk faster so they won't be late. Arriving at the location, the scene shows a large crowd of students gathered near the board. The young man is surprised by the number of people, while she warns that everyone there is a rival. But the protagonist runs excitedly to see the results, leaving the swordswoman talking to herself. The girl explains the classes range from A to E based on each student's academic performance. Very confident in their abilities, the young woman states they will surely be in Class A. However, the young man points to the board and shows that their names were placed in Class Z. Not understanding anything, the young woman says this class didn't even exist before, and someone calls their attention. Yuri appears, smiling upon seeing his friend's energy so early in the morning. The prince approaches and introduces a man in armor whom the protagonist did not know yet. He explains that the heavily armored knight is his bodyguard named Ibuki. Very politely, the prince says they are both counting on Rui-sha's help at the academy. The armored knight suddenly takes the boy's hand and gives it a firm and unexpected shake. The armored man praises the young man's manners and introduces himself quite amiably. Ibuki offers a sweet as a symbol of friendship for the two, but the swordswoman refuses right away. Yuri explains the bodyguard always wears that helmet to keep his identity hidden. Impatient with the conversation, Sharo interrupts the prince to demand a quick explanation. The blonde understands she wants to know about Class Z and says he planned to make a big surprise. He explains Class Z is new and was created exclusively for students with special talents. The prince concludes by saying it is a group made up of only the biggest weirdos in the school. Yuri states should both go to Class A, but their abilities are unique. Because of this, the prince made the decision to place the two friends straight into the new Class Z. The girl suspects the blonde is trying to monitor the group, but he says he won't interfere. The swordswoman hugs Rui-sha's arm and accepts the situations since they will be studying in the same class. Excited to start classes, the protagonist starts walking ahead, leaving his friends behind. As they walk away, Ibuki asks the prince if his true goal is to spy on the duo. Yuri confesses Class Z is full of troublesome students who would be very hard to control. However, the blonde watches Rui-sha from a distance and trusts the young man will manage the whole situation. Ibuki comments he does not believe in the high expectations the prince has for Rui-sha. Yuri smiles, imagining what the class will be like and saying he is looking forward to the future. Now wearing uniforms, Sharo suggests they go meet the strange people of Class Z. Opening the classroom door, the scene shows the other students already sitting at their desks. Rui-sha thinks he hopes to make many friends, while Sharo is happy to sit beside him. A red-haired classmate recognizes him from the duel and asks if his name is Rui-sha. The protagonist turns around with a smile and confirms it is indeed him, unintimidated. Suddenly, the bully stands up and slams his hand hard on the young man's desk in a threatening way. Sharo stands up and draws her sword, ready to defend her friend from that provocation. The scene cuts to a memory of the professor giving a lesson about the water element. The master explains to the class that water magic works by reacting to moisture in the air. But Rui-sha raises his hand and says this magic can also interact with underground water veins. Excited by the idea of a practical lesson, the red-haired boy invites everyone outside. Yuri watches from a distance and comments it has been 2 weeks since classes started at the academy. Outside the room, all the students praise the protagonist's clear and objective explanation. But upon returning to the room, they find all the desks and chairs broken. Outraged, they wonder who would dare do something so terrible to their class. Rui-sha asks a favor from a classmate named Chisha, wanting to find out who did it. The boy agrees to help, saying there must still be some traces left at the scene. Chisha then uses his magical analysis skill to investigate the entire classroom. Rui-sha praises his classmate, saying his area analysis skill is incredible. Chisha thanks him and says it is all thanks to the protagonist's tutoring after classes. He explains he improved a lot with the training Rui-sha organizes for Class Z. After the analysis, Chisha finds a strand of hair and footprints from an unknown shoe. Rui-sha thinks he wouldn't want Chisha as an enemy, and the classmate thanks him for the compliment. The boy reveals he was expelled from his clan for being a half-blood who is good at magic, which is rare. He feels happy to be accepted in the class and to be able to use his magic to help everyone. After the investigation, Chisha hands a piece of paper with info about the intruder to Rui-sha. The protagonist asks if he isn't coming along, but his friend says he prefers to avoid trouble. With a smile, Chisha says if Rui-sha is going, then everything will be fine in the end. With a confident smile, Rui-sha accepts the responsibility and tells his friend to leave everything to him. The other classmates get excited and say they are also angry and want to help settle this. The red-haired boy proposes they show everyone the true power of Class Z. Arriving at Class A's room, the same boy asks if they can go all out against the suspects. Without waiting for an answer, he kicks the door hard, startling the girls inside. The boy shouts at Class A, saying they went there to settle the fight they started. Class A is confused by the accusation, and one of the girls recognizes they are from Class Z. Rui-sha realizes the students are playing innocent and stares at them seriously. The noble approaches and mocks Class Z, asking the reason for such an uproar. The protagonist apologizes for the intrusion but explains their classroom was vandalized. The noble feigns surprise and says it is hasty to suspect them without any concrete proof. He insults Class Z, saying they should suspect someone from their own class. The red-haired boy gets furious, but Rui-sha stops him, saying it would be a trap. The classmate asks if they should just stand there doing nothing in the face of that provocation. But Rui-sha calms him down and confidently says he will handle this whole situation himself. The protagonist approaches the noble and shows a handkerchief with a strand of hair he found. He explains a friend analyzed the hair and found that out it did not belong to anyone in their class. The noble is shocked and asks how he could know that, since the hair color is the same. Rui-sha explains he compared genetic data, but decides to use a simpler method. He then uses time reversal magic, surprising everyone with a large magical clock. The strand of hair floats in the air and begins to glow intensely with time magic. Startled by the spell, the noble's jaw drops, unable to believe what he is seeing. Rui-sha explains he used a spell to rewind the object's time and make it return to its owner. The protagonist calmly concludes that, in other words, that hair belongs to him. The noble panics, thinking even advanced mages can rarely use time magic. He wonders how a simple kimono managed to use such a rare and powerful spell. With a furious look, the noble grits his teeth and refuses to accept the situation. He loses his composure and shouts he will not accept defeat in any way. The noble points a wand and says he will purify all the insolent commoners of Class Z. He orders his companions to prepare for an attack, and Class Z braces for combat. Rui-sha says pointing a wand for no reason violates the rules and qualifies their action as self-defense. At that moment, the red-haired boy named Bern hears someone approaching the fight. Rui-sha tells his friend he doesn't need to hold back anymore and that it is time to finally strike back. With the leader's permission, Class Z prepares to face the group of nobles from Class A. The leader of the nobles gets annoyed by their boldness and orders his companions to attack with everything. The protagonist notices a crowd forming outside and worries about innocent bystanders. But his big classmate tells him not to worry and leave the protection to him. He then creates a mid-level barrier that begins to crack under the enemy's magical attacks. The noble is shocked that his magic is blocked by such a simple spell from a commoner. The red-haired boy praises his classmate and tells him to leave the rest of the battle to him. With a confident smile, the young man focuses a massive amount of energy in his chest for an ultimate strike. Soon after, he unleashes a powerful concentrated blast attack toward his opponents. The explosion hits the noble's wand, shattering it into pieces and leaving him in complete shock. The others complain, but the leader yells at them to keep attacking even without their wands. One of the nobles complains, saying he can no longer continue fighting in such an unfair way. But the blue-haired boy warns that they cannot run away from the fight they started themselves. One of the nobles glares at him and angrily yells for the boy to get out of his way. With a smirk, the young man from Class Z warns that he will regret that attitude. He then uses an enhancement magic on his legs and charges forward at an impressive speed. The boy moves so fast that he easily dodges all the enemy's strikes. The nobles are terrified and complain about not being able to land a single attack on the boy. The young man from Class Z taunts them, saying they are so slow they are making him yawn. One of the nobles stops attacking and, panting, wonders where the speedy boy could have gone. At that moment, the young man appears right behind him and lands a powerful kick to his back. He defeats the noble with just one strike and sarcastically asks if he was too fast. Terrified by the strength of Class Z, the leader of the nobles yells for Rui-sha to stay away. But the main character grabs him by the collar and reminds him that they started this mess. With a serious and intimidating look, Rui-sha tells him not to act as if they're the bad guys. Desperate, the noble admits he was wrong and begs the boy from Class Z for forgiveness. Rui-sha then turns around and says his warning is not just for him, but for everyone in Class A. He yells that he does not care what they say about him, but he will not forgive anyone who hurts his friends. With a powerful punch, the main character hits the noble in the face and throws him backward with force. The impact is so strong that the boy crashes through the classroom wall, breaking everything in his path. The noble falls to the ground unconscious, while Rui-sha glares at him with his fists still clenched. His classmates from Class Z approach, impressed by their friend's attitude in defending them. They all join a big high five to celebrate their victory over Class A. Suddenly, Yuri appears with a furious look and yells that they went too far in that fight. He complains that everything happened in a second and wonders what he is going to tell the king about this. The red-haired boy tries to defend himself, reminding him that the others started it. But the prince cuts him off, telling him to shut up with a very angry yell. Yuri calms down and says that since it was Class A's fault, he might be able to smooth things over. Everyone in Class Z celebrates, while the prince sighs and tells them to call it a day. Rui-sha approaches to apologize to his friend, who says it is fine and that it was scary. Yuri explains that he expected conflicts like this, and Rui-sha apologizes for not consulting him. The prince asks him to check in with him first next time, and the boy nods in agreement. Later, Yuri falls asleep from exhaustion on the table, snoring lightly after all the stress. Rui-sha watches him, figuring he must have spent the whole night dealing with the mess. The boy looks out the window and sees his Class Z friends practicing magic together and having fun. With a smile, the main character decides to take a walk outside the classroom. Opening the door, he finds a student he has never seen before standing in the hallway. The stranger turns around and asks if he is the famous Rui-sha everyone is talking about. The brown-haired student apologizes for approaching him so suddenly in the corridor. He introduces himself as Xian from Class A, and Rui-sha feels a strange aura coming from him. The main character asks what he wants, and Xian says he is just curious about him. The young man explains that he is referring to the incident involving Class A's invasion the day before. Xian mentions that the second-year seniors are all excited about the arrival of Class Z. He praises Rui-sha's energy, but his tone of voice changes to something more serious and dark. Xian grabs him by the shoulder and warns him not to think everything will always go his way. He admits Rui-sha is strong, but reminds him that there are far more powerful beings in the world. Rui-sha tenses up, thinking he cannot read the intentions of that strange guy from the academy. Rui-sha bows, thanking him for the advice, but says he will be fine and there is no need to worry. With a confident smile, he says he knows two people who are much stronger than he is. Xian smiles back and says he was worrying over nothing about the guy from Class Z. He says goodbye and walks away, leaving the main character alone in the academy's hallway. Watching him walk away, Rui-sha thinks again that he is a very strange person. The scene shows Xian's silhouette walking down a dark and very mysterious corridor. He looks back with an enigmatic smile, revealing a hidden and unknown intention. Back in his room, the boy throws himself onto his bed, completely exhausted after such a busy day. He thinks about how he had to fix the classroom, and that no one else should mess with Class Z now. With that thought, he feels relieved and closes his eyes to finally rest in peace. Waking up, he realizes his futon is gone and confusedly wonders if it is already morning. The boy is startled to see he is back in the infinite prison and wonders how this happened. He then decides to use his magic detection to find Tess and Rio and ask for help. But to his surprise, he cannot feel the magical power of either of his masters. Suddenly, a calm voice asks him to settle down, and the young man turns around startled. A silver-haired woman drinking tea confirms that this is the same place he knows. She invites him to sit down, and the cautious young man wonders who she could be. Rui-sha approaches and excuses himself, but the woman says there is no need for formalities. She offers him a cup of tea and asks him to drink and calm down a bit. The boy stares at the cup suspiciously, analyzing the situation very carefully. He watches the mysterious woman, who drinks her tea with a calm and serene expression. After taking a sip, Rui-sha praises the tea's flavor, and the woman is happy with the compliment. Confused, the young man finally asks who she is, and the woman lets out a soft laugh. She introduces herself as Oka and says she was tasked with managing the prison by the hero Oga. Hearing the hero's name, Rui-sha gets into a combat stance, but she tells him to calm down. Oka assures him she is not his enemy, peacefully taking another sip of her tea. Irritated, he asks what she wants and why he ended up back in that place. She simply explains that he is there because he broke one of the prison's seals. Confused, Rui-sha wonders how he broke a seal, and she asks if he touched a relic. She explains that this undid one of the hero's seals, and the boy remembers a moment. Recalling the moment with Sharo's sword, Rui-sha concludes that was when the seal broke due to a mysterious power. Then, Oka continues drinking her tea calmly and warns that the boy has a very deep connection to the prison. She explains that gathering all of the hero's relics is the key to permanently destroying the seal of that place. Excited by the idea, the young man thinks it is much easier to ask Sharo and her friends for help than to search for a lost hero. But suspicion soon arises and he questions why the facility manager is teaching him how to break the prison. With a distant look, the woman reveals that the prison has already fulfilled its duty, and its current existence is a huge anomaly. Shocked by the revelation, the main character wants to know why the hero locked the demon and dragon queens in there. Oka looks away and apologizes for not being authorized to tell him, while the young man begs for the truth. Even seeing the boy's desperation, the silver-haired woman shows great sadness on her face and repeats that she cannot reveal the secret. Understanding the difficult situation, Rui-sha decides to change the subject and simply asks the reason he was brought there. The woman stands up and reassures the boy by stating that his physical body is safe and he can return whenever he wants. Without warning, the silver-haired woman draws a longsword and prepares to reveal the true reason for that isolated meeting. Pointing the blade upwards with a firm stance, Oka agrees that the goal of all this is simply to train the young man. The boy is confused by the idea, but the warrior states he needs to get strong to break the prison seals. Following his new master's instruction, the main character creates a golden magic sword in his hands and focuses on the fight. The woman advances with a swift attack and notes that the boy's reflexes are good, but his blade techniques are weak. Admitting his lack of sword skills, he relies on the combat techniques taught by his former teachers. With an intense blue glow on his body, the young man performs an advanced move and clashes his blade against Oka's. Seeing that her student used energy to enhance his own body, the silver-haired woman smiles excitedly and decides to pick up the pace of the fight. In a fraction of a second, the warrior launches a fierce strike, and the young man struggles to defend against that absurd speed. Panting from exhaustion after the heavy impact, Rui-sha assures her the training is not over yet and fully focuses on combat. Gathering all his strength, the main character pushes his body's energy to its absolute limit and charges at his opponent. The clash between the two warriors creates a trail of light through the air as the silver-haired woman perfectly defends against the golden sword. During the intense exchange of attacks, the silver-haired woman feels her defense tremble and is surprised by his strength. Taking advantage of the small opening in the enemy's stance, Rui-sha executes the powerful true-dimensional slash with great precision. Oka gives a gentle smile in the middle of the battle and praises the boy's strength, saying that is true limitless power. Without losing his rhythm, the young man channels a massive amount of pink power and unleashes the devastating cherry blossom attack. However, the impact of the collision between the techniques is so massive that the structure of the golden sword begins to crack severely. The magic blade shatters completely in the air, but the boy maintains the fury of the strike using only his own bright aura. With a determined look and sweating from exhaustion, the main character sees victory and moves in to end the fight once and for all. Fallen on the ground with scratches on his face, Rui-sha mutters from exhaustion and laments his situation. Oka supports the boy from behind as he loses his strength and says he was very close. With a gentle smile, the silver-haired woman praises his good performance in the sword fight. The warrior places a soft kiss on the unconscious boy's forehead and wishes him protection. Looking at a light in the air, the manager entrusts the fate of the world into her student's hands. Soon after, the scene shifts to the real world, and the main character wakes up lying in his bed. Getting up with difficulty, he groans in pain and notices he overused his own strength. Analyzing his intact body, the young man understands that only his spirit went to fight. He then remembers an advanced technique that blends magic with physical strikes. The young man reflects with pride on managing to use the dimensional attack for the first time. Evaluating his skills, Rui-sha believes he can overcome enemies using energy. But worry takes over when he imagines a fight against someone much stronger. With this uncertainty in mind, the boy decides he needs to learn combat techniques. At another time, the young man walks calmly down the street and meets a group of classmates. They chat about everyone's hard work during their time off while walking through an open area. Rui-sha looks for someone in the garden and soon smiles broadly when he spots his good friend. The young man approaches Ibuki lying on the grass wearing a helmet and gets his attention. Ibuki says he was kicked out of the office by a friend and asks what the boy wants. Hearing the main character's request for sword training, the armored guy is confused. The helmeted friend reminds him that Rui-sha is already strong and suggests asking someone else for help. In response, the main character explains that Shero's movements are focused on attacks. He then praises the helmeted warrior's defenses and highlights his stances. With great excitement, the young man reveals that he wants to master both ways of fighting. Ibuki accepts the mission with pride and promises to teach him a sacred technique of his family. But as a condition for this training, the knight asks to receive magic lessons. The main character agrees to the deal and listens as Ibuki says he was inspired by his friends. Adjusting his helmet, the reddish-haired young man wants to push himself just like the others. With an affectionate look, the boy praises his classmate's new attitude and gets excited for the training. The knight raises his arm and says he will do his best in moderation, frustrating Rui-sha. Despite the small misunderstanding, the two friends laugh at the situation in a pleasant atmosphere. Sweating nervously from the training, the knight casually comments that people are very tough. The brown-haired boy ignores the comment and attacks with high energy using a wooden sword. The strong impact between the two training weapons creates a loud crack during the intense exchange of blows. At another time back in the infinite prison, Oka advances with her blade and points out a weak spot in the boy's stance. Sweating from the difficulty of combat, the young man spins his body and tries to counter with an attack using his weapon. With fluid movements and a graceful leap, the silver-haired warrior defends against the charge effortlessly. Even while defending, the woman suffers a small scratch on her forehead and lets out a soft laugh upon noticing it. Touching the scrape calmly, she smiles and praises the improvement in the young man's skills. The manager deduces he kept training in the outside world, and the boy agrees, saying he has great teachers. He gratefully remembers the intense sparring sessions he had alongside his skilled schoolmates. Happy with her student's effort, Oka praises his attitude and suggests a break so they both can rest a bit. Soon after, the focus shifts to a hot cup of tea as the woman decides to bring up a new topic. Sitting at the table politely, the young man wonders why his two masters are not in that place. The silver-haired woman takes a sip of her drink and explains the two queens are locked in the third and deepest layer. Surprised by the information, Rui-sha stands up and asks if there are any prisoners kept in the second layer. With a neutral look, the woman confirms the boy's suspicion but warns that their identity is a confidential secret. Understanding the warning, he sits back down and mutters to himself, thinking about a possible connection to the hero. Shifting focus, Oka comments on the boy knowing a descendant of the hero, and he immediately realizes she is talking about Shero. Excited to see the manager curious about something, the young man smiles broadly and confirms the two are very close friends. He humorously recalls that the girl wrongfully accused him at first, and they even ended up fighting intensely. Despite the rough start, the main character describes his friend very affectionately and praises her great desire to help people. The silver-haired warrior listens carefully and is very relieved to note that the descendant lives a happy life. Still smiling brightly, the young man assures her that he was also saved by the cheerful personality of his great partner. The boy's body begins to glow brightly to indicate his time in the prison is up, and he thanks her deeply for the training. As the student disappears into light, Oka calls his name and sadly tells him he needs to be very careful with a cult. Confused by the mysterious warning, Rui-sha wonders about this group, and the woman regrets not being able to say more than that. With a very serious expression, she warns that the boy will cross paths with these enemies when trying to free the queens. The manager finishes by telling him to stay very alert, and the brown-haired main character firmly agrees. Finally, the young man's spiritual form completely vanishes from the prison, leaving the woman watching the light with a gentle smile. But her smile soon fades, and the guardian focuses on her cup with concern as she asks the boy to take care. Rui-sha walks alone down a commercial street crowded with city folks. With his arms stretched upward, the boy stretches and thinks that days off from school are pretty boring. He remembers that Sharo was busy and regrets not having invited anyone to hang out. Feeling hungry around lunchtime, he uses his enhanced senses to try and find a restaurant. Instead of food, the young man hears an argument in the distance and is surprised to recognize someone's voice. Two armored guards just watch the scene while a person yells in sheer frustration. A gray-haired beast boy rants angrily and insists he did absolutely nothing. Rui-sha confirms it is his classmate named Wolf and finds it very strange to see the beast boy outside of class. Seeing a bald man holding the beast boy's wrist, the main character approaches the guard to ask for details. The soldier tries to shoo the young man away from the commotion, but Rui-sha points forward and says he knows the accused. Surprised by the information, the officer asks the boy to try and calm the beast down so they can figure out what is happening. With a calm smile on his face and always ready to help, the main character agrees to the soldier's request. The bald man accuses the boy and shows his hatred for the beast race, while Wolf swears he just found the item on the ground. The wolf boy becomes consumed with fury upon hearing the merchant's highly prejudiced words. Realizing the situation is about to spin out of control, Rui-sha quickly steps between the two and asks everyone to calm down. The beast boy is startled by his classmate's sudden arrival and yells nervously, but the main character asks for calm with a smile. The bald old man points his finger and accuses the wolf of stealing his valuable merchandise, and the young beast denies the crime once again. Trying to be the voice of reason, the brown-haired young man ignores the fight and asks for the real details of the whole story. With an indignant tone of voice, the old man introduces himself as Marcus and reveals his store was broken into by criminals. He says he stepped out for a short while, and upon returning, found the glass shattered and realized all his expensive items were missing. The merchant explains that right after notifying the authorities, he caught the beast boy holding his valuable merchandise. Full of hate, Marcus claims the theft was too large for one person and demands to know the whereabouts of the other things. Analyzing everything calmly, the main character realizes there is no hard proof of his classmate's guilt or innocence. He remembers that discrimination against the beast race is very strong in the city, even though it is forbidden by kingdom laws. Like the deep roots of a plant, the feeling of prejudice in society does not disappear overnight. The young man realizes his classmate could end up being locked away unfairly simply because of the city guard's prejudice. Determined to stop an injustice, the brown-haired young man clenches his fist and promises to catch the real thief. The gray-haired wolf boy widens his golden eyes and is completely shocked by his classmate's huge help. But the idea angers both sides of the argument, and both Marcus and the wolf go back to yelling very angrily. Ignoring the shouting, Rui-sha whispers and asks if his classmate runs fast, feeling relieved to learn about the beast's agility. The boy reaches out his hand with a smile while gathering energy for his next move. Raising his arm quickly, Rui-sha creates a massive smoke screen, surprising the wolf. Confused by the sudden situation, the merchant rubs his eyes, irritated by the smoke. Wasting no time, the main character grabs Wolf's wrist tightly and pulls him far away from there. Trying to see something, the old man waves his arm in the air to clear the thick dust. When his vision finally clears, Marcus furiously realizes the young beast has fled the scene. The old man angrily yells at the incompetence of the guards, who promise to begin the search. The two officers discuss what to do next and conclude they have a great lead. Deducing the boys are from the academy, one of the soldiers suggests asking a girl for help. The guard agrees to seek help at the royal castle while the other chases the fugitives. Far from there, the two classmates rest sitting on a red roof after losing the group. The wolf questions Rui-sha's sanity, reminding him the knights will also come after him. With a calm smile, the boy says everything will be fine if they find the real culprit. Wolf looks away with a sweaty face and lightly wags his tail as he reflects. Suspicious of his classmates' intentions, the young beast asks the real reason for that help. Rui-sha denies having hidden agendas and listens as the young man questions his rescue reason again. Keeping his gentle expression, the main character simply answers that they are friends. The sincere words leave Wolf completely shocked and not knowing what to say at that moment. The wolf remembers that he tried to intimidate his classmates several times at school with no success. With this, he tries to understand the human's motivations and suspects there is a hidden prejudice. Rui-sha stands up excitedly and invites his classmate to visit the place where the supposed theft occurred. Soon after, they arrive in a stone alley, but notice there is no trace of the thief left. The brown-haired young man then asks if Wolf still has the object he picked up off the ground. The wolf hands over a small green vial, and the main character asks to borrow the item for a moment. Very carefully, Rui-sha crouches down and places the stolen potion bottle on the stone ground. Using his hands, he activates analysis magic, making several blue beams glow on the spot. The spell reveals glowing footprints on the path, and the beast boy is impressed by the magic. The main character explains that he learned that tracking spell from a good friend at school. He mentions that his classmate Shisha masters the technique perfectly and helped him learn the basics. Holding the green vial with sheer determination, Rui-sha smiles and prepares to begin the hunt. Rui-sha runs ahead along the stone path while the wolf asks him to wait. The human boy's legs move at high speed, leaving the beast impressed. The main character praises his classmate's speed and listens as he questions his true identity. Excited by the run, the young man warns he will speed up even more, and the wolf decides not to fall behind. After the great physical effort, the pair finally reach their destination and take a deep breath to rest. The brown-haired young man observes the massive wooden structure and grows suspicious of that warehouse. Pointing to the closed door, the boy notes that the glowing footprints lead straight inside. With this, the human returns the small green vial to his classmate and thanks him for letting him borrow it. Putting the potion away, the wolf boy puts on a serious look and finds it very strange that the thief would hide there. Without much fear of danger, the main character grabs the double door's handle to enter the warehouse. But suddenly, a pink-haired girl holds the door and asks them to wait. The young man recognizes his good friend Sharo and listens, as she says in relief that she finally found him. Confused by the situation, Rui-sha asks the reason for her visit, and the young woman says she came looking for him. With a confident look, the warrior reveals she used detection magic to arrive before the duo. Soon after, she changes her expression and clenches her fists to complain about her friend's ridiculous speed. At that moment, the boy remembers the guard's conversation and realizes his friend was the person mentioned. Analyzing everything calmly, the main character looks at the girl and asks if she came to arrest them. The pink-haired girl looks away with a slightly flushed face and confirms her partner's suspicions. She narrates that she was teaching combat at the royal castle when the soldiers asked for help with a case. The young woman explains that she heard about the high-speed getaway, and the boy understands the current situation. Fearing being handed over to the authorities, the beast grinds his teeth and takes a defensive stance. But the pink-haired girl lets out a calm sigh, says she is already used to her partner's problems. Then the gray-haired classmate quickly narrates the whole mess so the swordswoman can understand. Taking her friend's side, the warrior holds out her hand and promises to help find the criminal. The human boy is overjoyed with his partner's support and surprises her with a tight hug. Completely blushing, the swordswoman tries to break free from his arms while the wolf watches in silence. Still embracing him, the pink-haired girl turns attention to the wolf boy and decides to make a serious observation. The beast cannot understand the reason for such help coming from a great descendant of the hero. The wolf fears that assisting an outcast from society might end up dragging the pink-haired girl's name through the mud. With a very focused face, the swordswoman retorts that the real mistake would be abandoning someone in trouble. With a gentle smile, the warrior reassures the wolf and promises he no longer needs to worry about that. She grips the hilt of her sword firmly and shows she is entirely focused on the mission. The swordswoman reveals with a serious look that prejudice against the beast race is not an entirely foreign issue to her. Ready for action, the three stand before the large warehouse to sort everything out and prove the wolf boy's innocence. Without hesitation, the doors to the mysterious place are violently thrown open with a double push. The trio stands paralyzed and completely shocked by the unexpected scene they find inside. They find several shelves overflowing with treasure chests and many valuable items hidden around the room. Rui-sha observes that the inner space is huge, while the swordswoman approaches bags full of precious stones. The young beast examines a gold necklace and concludes in a cold sweat that they have stumbled into something highly dangerous. The pink-haired girl agrees that the place is a gang secret heading out and suggests notifying the knights quickly. With a nervous smile, the main character supports the idea and warns it is already too late to try running away. Hearing noises from the wooden doors, the kids notice shadows approaching, and the warrior is startled. The metallic sound of firearms being unlocked echoes through the mysterious room, raising the tension. The trio soon finds themselves completely surrounded by several thugs aiming weapons at them from all sides. A man speaks mockingly, asking if the small group of students wandered into that dark hideout by mistake. A guy covered in luxurious jewelry introduces himself as Gilliam and reveals he is the grand leader of that faction of thieves. The criminal laughs loudly and brags about having a huge reputation and a lot of respect in the criminal underworld. Staring at the enemy leader, the brown-haired young man realizes he amassed a true fortune by robbing the city. The scene displays massive piles of gold coins and various other expensive goods hoarded by the criminals. Outraged by the amount of dirty wealth they obtained, the boy states he cannot let this slide. The bandit leader narrows his eyes slightly in doubt and asks where he recognizes that human boy's face from. Gilliam finally recognizes him and cracks a cruel smile upon noticing the day brought him a great surprise. The main character is confused while the man laughs at the irony of their main target walking right into their laps. Shero steps to the front with her hand on her sword hilt to protect her classmates as the criminals close in. The human tries to figure out why he is being called a target and hears the wolf yell loudly, grabbing the leader's attention. Full of rage, the beast boy accuses the gang of pulling off the store robbery and framing him as a suspect on the streets. The criminal seems confused by the young man's complaint and questions his underlings about an attack on a regular store. After thinking for a moment, the thief touches his chin, smiling, and confirms one of his henchmen stole something earlier. The bandit points to the corner and reveals several boxes with leaf marks stored along with the rest of the loot. Pushed to his limit, the young wolf clenches his fists and declares he will never forgive those cruel thugs. The gang leader mocks him with a smirk and offers fake apologies for causing so much trouble for the young beast. A fist squeezes so tightly it bleeds as the criminal suggests finding a new owner for the wolf. Utterly shocked by the thug's cruel proposal, the gray-haired boy asks what he means by that. Laughing at the situation, the leader claims beastmen need a master and guarantees he already has a rich client in mind. The boss of the thieves says humans break fast while beasts last longer, and he plans to make a fortune off them. The young wolf loses control completely and screams in fury, asking who they think they are. But before he can lunge, the main character quickly extends his arm and tells his classmate to stop and calm down. Rui-sha warns that acting on anger is exactly what the enemy wants, and the pink-haired girl agrees he should not listen to that trash. With tears in his eyes, the wolf tells them to shut up and accuses them of also thinking his race is disgusting and inferior. The human main character keeps a very soft expression and assures his hurt classmate that they do not think that way. Hearing those sincere and deeply caring words, the beast boy's ears twitch in surprise. Wolf looks back and sees the beautiful warrior confirming their friend's words with a highly comforting smile. Rui-sha closes his eyes and smiles in relief upon seeing his school partner finally manage to calm down. Blood drips on the floor, showing that the clenched fist from earlier belongs to the human, who is holding himself back to the max. With a dark and furious look, the main character vows that the bandit leader will pay dearly for insulting his friend. Scared by the pressure, the crime boss tells the boy to shut up and orders a henchman to finish him. A bald, highly muscular man cracks his knuckles with an evil smile and gets ready to beat the student. The giant steps forward, but the leader yells from the back, telling him to be very careful not to mess up the kid's face. Rui-sha shows immense disgust hearing the thug say his cute face could be sold for a high price. The strong man reaches his giant hand toward the young human's face with a scary, confident grin. Next, a loud snap echoes through the room, leaving the gang boss utterly confused by what he just saw. The muscular henchman drops to the floor screaming in pain as he grabs his own entirely twisted fingers. Rui-sha raises his hand, glowing with magic energy, and calls out the name of his defense technique while the giant cries on the floor. Terrified by the student's strength, the leader draws a firearm and orders his men to aim at the boy too. Staying calm in the face of danger, the main character coldly stares down his enemy and notices his weapon is shaking. Sweating nervously from the taunt, the bandit tells the boy to shut up and asks not to be underestimated. In a fit of desperation, the gang boss screams with all his might and orders everyone to shoot the intruders. With a very calm smile on his face, the student decides to use his second form of defense based on energy control. He raises his hand and creates a giant dome of blue light that blocks every gunshot with tremendous ease. The wolf boy is amazed by the magic barrier and confesses he has never seen such an incredible technique in his life. A thug pulls the trigger with no luck and complains that he ran out of bullets during the clash. Rui-sha charges to attack and tells his two classmates not to damage the merchandise. With his fist cloaked in blue energy, the main character lands a swift punch on one of the henchmen. Quickly, the brown-haired young man dodges a punch from another masked criminal in the room. Cheryl uses her magic sword to launch a powerful pink energy slash at their opponents. The pink-haired warrior flashes a hyped smile and asks her great friend to leave some targets for her. The trio works in perfect harmony and takes down several members of the criminal faction with ease. The Beast Boy watches the battle and is blown away by the flawless teamwork of the pair. The gang leader panics seeing his men down and calls the kids terrifying monsters. Enraged by his imminent defeat, the boss of the bandits draws his own weapon and aims with hatred. The man points the huge barrel at Wolf and swears to take down at least one of them with his strike. The fast projectile cuts through the air toward its target right after the criminal pulls the trigger. The wolf freezes in fear at the deadly threat while the human yells his classmate's name. In a heroic act, Rui-sha throws himself in front of the Beast Boy to protect him from the enemy's surprise attack. The scene shifts to a memory where two human boys say they have been waiting for a long time. A young wolf apologizes for being late and his classmates complain about the Beast Boy's delay. One of the boys pushes the wolf into a closed room and tells him not to worry. Wolf enters a dark room surrounded by shady men and is confused by the situation. The Beast Boy does not understand what is happening while one of his former friends waves goodbye. The human wishes the wolf luck, and Wolf cruelly realizes he was abandoned by his partners. One of the men points a weapon at the Beast Boy and reveals his friends set up the trap. The criminal claims the wolf will have a much better life after being sold to wealthy buyers. Utterly shocked by the reveal, the young boy refuses to believe he was sold out by his partners. With a look overcome by despair, the Beast Boy tries to convince himself this is all a lie. The man explains that everyone wins, while the image shows the humans counting their cash. The gray-haired boy hangs his head in defeat as he grasps the harsh reality of his situation. With deep pain in his eyes, the boy reflects on the impossibility of forming bonds with the human race. The young beast decides to never trust anyone again while fleeing past a man knocked out on the floor. Back in the present, Wolf watches in shock as Rui-sha takes the severe hit to protect him. The wolf's large golden eyes widen at his classmate's unexpected action. The Beast Boy catches Rui-sha by the shoulders before he falls and desperately asks if his classmate is okay. The main character manages a weak smile while the wolf questions why he helped someone who hates humans. The human replies softly that his classmate is just like him and all the other students in Class Z. Rui-sha calmly explains that they all face situations similar to the young beasts. He recalls the past and mentions that his friends were born with talents society found very strange. The boy says many did not have the expected skills and ended up being rejected by their own species. The wolf listens carefully as his classmate tells him they were all lonely and ran away looking for a place to belong. The human boy holds his classmate's hands and reveals his deep wish to see his friend change after meeting the class. Reflecting on his past, the wolf remembers he suffered intense discrimination from humans his whole life. He realizes he judged Rui-sha wrong and treated all humans as evil beings just like they did to him. The gray-haired youth closes his eyes with a regretful look as a tear hits the ground. Shortly after, the swordswoman approaches and offers healing to her injured friend, who says thanks with a hand on his stomach. The Beast Boy steps forward very confidently and asks them to rest while he handles the fight. With a hyped and energetic smile, the wolf warns he will show his true combat form. The boy's nails grow rapidly and his hand transforms into a massive, sharp paw of a wild beast. Right after, a large furry tail sprouts from his back, demonstrating a massive surge in magical power. The young man takes on the form of a giant wolf with a purple aura and vows to crush the enemies who tricked him. The pink-haired warrior is completely shocked and suggests that this rare technique might be the ancestral awakening. Keeping her eyes glued to the creature, she tells her partners she has heard of this immense power before. The friend explains that in ancient times, beastmen possessed the great ability to change their shape freely. The giant wolf roars loudly, and the girl reveals it is very rare for someone to be born with this grand talent nowadays. Releasing all his contained purple energy, the huge creature lets out a mighty howl that shakes the entire room. Wasting no more time, the beast's sharp claws scrape against the floor as he lunges with extreme speed. The heavy impact of the strike throws the thugs high into the air with ease before they can react. The other henchmen scramble back on the floor, absolutely terrified by the devastating strength of the giant wolf before them. One of the thieves screams in panic, begging the creature to back off, and blindly fires both his firearms. With a natural agility, the massive beast dodges the shots while charging straight through the hail of bullets. The swordswoman watches the scene in awe and praises the incredible speed of her classmate in his wolf form. The gang leader realizes the situation is very bad, seeing all his men down and defeated. The boss of the bandits runs to call for help and screams in fear as the wolf's red eyes stare him down up close. The bandit leader trembles in fear while opening a door to try and escape the area. Upon opening the passage, he reveals a massive colorful parrot locked up by thick chains. The large black wolf focuses his red eyes and wonders how the criminal got his hands on such a rare beast. Riding on the large bird's back, the gang boss desperately orders the animal to fly away as fast as possible. With a mighty leap, the dark beast launches into the air to stop the bandit's grand escape. Sensing the danger, the terrified man throws a small vial filled with a mysterious purple liquid behind him. The glass bottle shatters on the stone floor, and the wolf boy stops his attack upon noticing the strange smoke. The mysterious substance starts bubbling and takes the shape of a terrifying purple slime. The magic monster grows rapidly, and the three students are surprised by the creature's size. Staring down the bizarre slime, the brown-haired young man questions the true identity of that magical being. The large animal steps back a bit with lowered ears while assessing the threat level of the new opponent. The criminal leader escapes riding the bird and lets out a mocking laugh upon noticing the young hero's shock. The purple beast is revealed to be a rare devourer monster, capable of absorbing and consuming anything it touches to grow. Smirking arrogantly, the bandit regrets wasting the rare item and swears they will pay for defying him. The big wild wolf jumps over the warehouse rubble and tries to chase down the gang boss's cowardly escape. Realizing the huge distance, the beast boy focuses his reddish eyes and decides to finish off the creature swiftly. The purple slime stands still in the same spot, waiting for the invading students to attack. Without any prior warning, the creature raises a large extension of its gooey body, ready for combat. The shadowy being's eyes pop wide, and he instantly recognizes the danger of that surprise attack. Using his enhanced instincts, the giant beast leaps backward and dodges the purple monster's fast strike. After missing its first target, the large sticky arm changes direction and aims at one of the knocked-out henchmen on the floor. The unconscious bandit is swallowed and completely absorbed by the magic creature's clear body. The brown-haired main character watches the scene in shock, seeing the slime devour a whole person. The criminal's body terrifyingly dissolves inside the monster's thick purplish substance. Fed by the enemy's life force, the bizarre creature gains even more bulk and prepares for its next lunge. The slimy being raises new threatening extensions and targets the heroes standing inside the wrecked warehouse. The dark beast runs nimbly around the room, dodging the deadly attacks thrown by the giant creature. The pink-haired swordswoman grabs her good human friend, and they both leap away from the dangerous strike. The young warrior grits her teeth as she recalls a vital piece of information about that rare monster's skills. She warns that the devouring slime gets immensely stronger by swallowing the power of the victims absorbed into its body. The warrior explains that the purple monster absorbs objects and swallows everything in its path to feed and grow. With a look of shock, she warns that the menacing creature boasts a danger level classed as rank A. The giant wolf clicks his tongue and warns they will all get swallowed if they stay in that collapsing warehouse. Backing the idea, the three flee to the wooden roof while the slimy creature shatters the ceiling behind them. Believing they are safe up high, the team hopes the gooey monster cannot reach them up there. But the purplish creature breaks through the entire roof structure and unleashes a scary roar at the heroes. Sweating nervously, the huge dark wolf wonders how they could possibly fight such a gigantic creature. The pink-haired girl points out that a rank monster requires several veteran heroes and is too great a force for them to handle. The human boy steps up, despite his injuries, and states that more people will suffer if they give up on stopping the creature. Worried about her friend, the warrior asks about his wound, and he thanks her, saying her healing helped a lot. The brown-haired boy lets out a sigh of relief and focuses to use his skills in the battle. Gathering a massive amount of energy in his hands, the main character casts a strong, wide-area freezing spell. Instantly, huge ice crystals sprout around the monster and begin to freeze its gooey structure. The student keeps his arms outstretched, while the creature makes weird noises, trying to break free from the ice. Focused on his attack, the boy makes firm hand motions and repels slimy parts flying his way. Motivated by her classmates' courage, the pink-haired swordswoman runs forward, saying she needs to fight too. With a confident smile on her face, the warrior draws her sword and calls upon her family's combat style. The young heroine stands right in front of the giant beast while the purple monster thrashes around, trying to intimidate the girl. Seizing the moment of distraction, the colossal creature lunges through the air and crashes heavily onto the entire roof. The gelatinous body spreads quickly and wraps around the whole building with its immense dark absorbing power. Utterly shocked by the scene, the main character notes that the slimy enemy managed to swallow the whole warehouse. The giant wolf gets his human friend's attention and warns they need to run away before it is too late. But the boy refuses to run and smiles, asking the swordswoman to buy him a little time for his final attack. The warrior agrees to the idea and grips her weapon's hilt very tightly in prep for her special strike. Focusing a huge amount of strength into her legs, the heroine launches her body against the wooden roof. With an amazing leap, the girl flies high into the sunny sky and positions herself perfectly right above the monster. Diving down at great speed, she focuses all her magic energy into her blade to use her famous technique. The swordswoman's bright eyes show fierce determination and a total lack of fear facing the deadly creature. In a swift, lethal motion, the warrior executes her powerful slashing attack surrounded by a bright pink light. After the devastating impact, the young woman lands gracefully, and the ice shatters, signaling the monster's defeat. With a determined look, the warrior calls her friend and lets him know she is leaving the rest in his hands. Confident in his partner's request, the main character smiles and assures her she can count on his help. Then, the massive ice structure holding the purple creature begins to shatter into several pieces. From the wooden roof, the heroes watch the gigantic slimy monster completely frozen in place by the magic. The great black wolf is amazed by the scene and praises the human's ability to stop something so colossal. Getting back to the mission focus, the brown-haired young man says he needs to chase down the fleeing bandit. But he feels chest pain, and the pink-haired girl applies healing magic while warning that acting recklessly will make him pass out. The warrior also regrets that the criminal must already be too far away for them to track him down successfully. Unwilling to accept defeat, the giant dark-furred animal focuses his gaze and guarantees there must be some way to find him. The wolf states his speed allows him to catch up, and his sharp nose will point out the enemy's exact path. Surprisingly, the large beast invites his human classmate to ride on his back and start the chase. The main character is stunned by the invite, remembering that riding a beastman is a sign of ultimate trust. Being very honest, the wolf confesses he still cannot trust all of humanity very easily. However, he acknowledges that the two heroes are different from the rest and asks for a chance to help on the big mission. With a gentle, understanding smile, the magic student accepts the help and proposes they take down the villain together. The swordswoman promises to save the victims swallowed by the monster while the boys can fight without holding back. Pumped by his friend's strong support, the young man mounts the black wolf and gets ready to kick off the high-speed chase. Far away, the criminal leader flies over the city houses riding the giant bird and curses in pure rage. The bandit complains about those meddling kids who ruined his business in the kingdom's capital. But he tries to calm himself while inspecting a beautiful silver bracelet he found tossed in the city ruins. Realizing the shiny jewel's worth, he figures selling the treasure and his rare bird will pull in an immense fortune. With a dark look, the man swears he will rebuild his faction and seek revenge against those students. At that moment, the main character spots the large bird flying near the city limits and points the way out to the wolf. Running across the rooftops, the young man notices the target is already outside the capital and gets annoyed by the bandit's big head start. Full of fury, the huge dark wolf announces loudly that the criminal has zero chance of escaping his claws. Without losing speed, the beast takes a mighty leap and starts running up the brick walls of the massive defense wall. The human holds tight to his friend's fur while the animal scales the gigantic vertical structure with absurd agility. Feeling the strong breeze from up high, the student flashes a beautiful smile and lets out a yell of pure hype for the run. Reaching the top of the defense barrier, the boy raises his arm and cheers the beast on to keep blazing the trail. The dark wolf lands flawlessly on the other side, and the human remarks in relief that they managed to get out of the city. Running nonstop, the wolf warns that if the bandit enters the forest, they will lose sight of him among the obstacles. The human boy wonders what they could do and soon cooks up a plan to handle the tough situation. Raising his hand covered in a purple magic light, the main character states they need to wrap this up before the forest. He casts a mid-level gravity spell and wraps the huge bird in heavy purple rings to force it to land. The criminal leader panics as the bird goes down, while the brown-haired young man smiles, satisfied with the result. With the target in reach, the shadowy beast says he will leave the rest of the job to his new boss's quick hands. Using his friend's momentum, the boy leaps with great agility draped in magic and takes charge of the attack. The boy flies high through the sunlit sky like a bolt of blue light while the bandit watches that high-speed approach. Landing perfectly on the bird's back, the student startles the frightened man and greets him very casually. With a calm, friendly smile, the human young man waves at the criminal and sarcastically comments that they bumped into each other again. The gang boss yells furiously, asking the reason for the chase, and the main character asks if he thought he was going to escape. Full of hate, the man grabs the boy's clothes and threatens to strike him with all his might in a sheer act of desperation. But the student just smirks playfully and warns that he will lose his life if he gets hit, to the poor villain's despair. The bandit falls to his knees on the bird and begs for mercy, offering all his cash and stolen goods, but the boy turns it all down. Sweating cold and out of options, the crime leader tries to bribe the young hero by promising to set him up with several pretty women. Keeping his soft expression and closing his eyes, the brown-haired boy declines the offer and apologizes to the man. He points his thumb at himself very proudly and confidently reveals he already has a cute girlfriend. Ignoring the villain's pleas to stop, the student channels heavy blue magic into his fist to use his fifth defense form. The powerful energy punch smashes into the man's face with brutal impact as the boy calls out the name of his technique. The crushing force of the magic strike sends the gang boss's body flying through the air in a long, violent arc. The main character cheers his brilliant victory, throwing his arms up hyped and claiming that punch felt pretty good. Next, he pets the giant bird's feathers to calm it down and very politely asks the beast to drop down to the ground. Hitting solid ground, the young man runs excitedly toward the great black wolf to hand over the captured bandit. The jewelry-covered man remains down and entirely out cold on the floor while the proud boy confirms the rescue. The dark animal looks at the defeated criminal and is confused to hear the human made that whole catch just for him. Recalling the fight, the wolf notices his partner set everything up perfectly so he could finish the job on the ground. With a very gentle and sincere look, the large creature realizes his classmate trusted him from the very start. The young man gives a shy laugh and tries to downplay his kindness, claiming he has no idea what his beast friend is talking about. A moment of peace settles between them while the massive, colorful bird makes happy sounds next to the heroic duo. The beast youth shifts back to his human form and calls his friend to head back to the pink-haired warrior who is still saving people. The main character looks down with a confused expression and mutters something. He notices a beautiful silver bracelet pinned to the passed-out crime leader's clothes. The wolf catches his classmate's reaction and asks why, but the boy plays it off and decides to keep moving. Soon after, they carry the knocked-out man and approach their pink-haired friend waiting at the spot. The swordswoman uses a shovel to clear away the magic slime and manages to rescue the henchman swallowed by the creature. The main character points out that the knights have arrived, and the beast boy agrees it is due to all that massive chaos. Seeing the soldiers rounding up the spook bandits, the young warrior is very relieved everyone is okay. With a confident smile on her face, the pink-haired girl invites the two boys to prove the wolf's innocence. The team hands the unconscious gang boss over to the officers while pointing out the remains of the huge gooey creature. The blonde knight leads the operation at the scene and asks his soldiers to assess all the damage caused in the area. The blonde leader scolds the main character, who just laughs off the situation and apologizes to his gray-haired classmate. Picking up on the commander's annoyance, the human boy sarcastically comments about his stomach aches. Suddenly, the giant bird lets out a very loud squawk and ends up startling the brown-haired young student. The colorful bird rubs its head against the boy, showing lots of affection, while the knights look on confused. The beast boy smiles at the scene and explains that the giant animal wants to be cared for by the strong human main character. Rui-sha asks how he can understand the bird, and the wolf explains he awakened his great ancestral form. Being much closer to a wild beast, the boy can understand animals and earns praise from his friend. The boy decides to ask the dorm leader for permission to adopt the bird, who celebrates with pure joy. Petting the bird's large beak, the human youth tries to figure out why that animal likes him so much. His beast classmate adopts a serious look and claims to know the exact reason for the creature's tame behavior. He states that the bird senses the enormous potential and absurd strength hidden inside that boy's body. Changing the subject, the gray-haired young man asks why the human risks himself so much to help others. With a nostalgic smile, the main character reveals he can fight today, but in the past he was completely useless. A sad memory takes over his mind, showing a painful past where he suffered abuse for having no talents. The boy remembers the special day he met his two great teachers who taught him survival magic. They also gave him lots of love and kindness, filling that little student's void with good feelings. Inspired by all this love, the brown-haired young man made the big decision to also help other people. The wolf boy widens his large golden eyes and is completely blown away by his classmate's beautiful story. The main character points to all the students in Class Z and explains he wants to pass on the lessons he received before. The beast listens silently with his head down as the hero confesses he also learns a lot from everyone. The beast boy quickly drops to his knees and touches his head to the ground, while the human is surprised and calls his name. With his hands planted firmly on the dirt, the narrator explains that this specific posture means absolute submission for beastmen. Looking up with a highly determined gaze, the gray-haired young man confesses he is impressed by his spirit. The wolf sincerely asks to become his underling, and the brown-haired hero is shocked by the request. Waving his hands nervously, the human rejects the idea and says they can just be good friends from now on. The wolf insists on the subject and asks to have his heart devoted to him as a loyal servant, even if he is treated as a friend. Staring at his classmate with a soft and slightly worried expression, the main character says the boy's name very affectionately. With a beautiful smile, the student agrees to accept the beast's loyalty, and the wolf celebrates, calling the human great boss. Holding his classmate's hands, the boy hears the swordswoman happily comment that the two have finally become great friends. The pink-haired warrior closes her eyes with a gentle smile and blushing face, stating that this goes for the wolf as well. The beast boy shifts his focus to the girl and hears her say with great relief that they will manage to prove his innocence. Bowing her head respectfully, the heroine asks for forgiveness and admits the blame for that discrimination is partly hers too. The young man is confused as she explains that the former hero tried to wipe out prejudice but passed away mid-journey. The warrior regrets that the hero's past descendants used their lack of power as an excuse to do nothing. The wolf listens quietly as the girl says her family's help could have drastically improved the situation. With an understanding look, the beast boy grabs the warrior by the shoulders and very gently asks her to lift her head. The pink-haired heroine looks up with streams of tears running down her face, and the wolf thanks her for caring about the beasts. The gray-haired young man tells her not to blame herself and states prejudice is also a big flaw of the entire beast race. With a beautiful smile, the wolf assures her that her words made him realize the huge need for unity among the races. The girl listens closely, and the young beast asks the warrior to create new chances for unity in the future. Wiping the tears from her face, the swordswoman flashes a very genuine smile and swears to help with everything in her power. Full of pride and confidence, the pink-haired heroine places a hand on her chest and firmly states she is a descendant of the hero. The beast boy and the warrior hold hands and seal a beautiful peace agreement while the main character watches it all with pure joy. Soon after, the scene cuts to a dark room where someone punches the wooden wall in sheer rage and frustration. A young blonde noble paces the room angrily and complains that the crime boss was caught by the guards. The boy bites his own finger, sweating nervously, and plans to send ruthless mercenaries to silence the thug before he talks. A mysterious voice praises the young man's dark plan, and the noble freezes, gripping some documents in his hands in shock. Absolutely terrified, the blonde boy turns his head in a cold sweat and wonders why someone is inside his room. A guy wearing elegant dress clothes and a strange sheep mask calmly wishes him a good evening sitting on his bed. The noble recognizes the intruder, and the masked boy reveals he was the one who introduced the gang leader to the youth. The young noble sighs in relief and figures the masked intruder also fled there in panic after the crime boss got arrested. He quickly holds out his hand and asks the mysterious masked guy to use his agents to put an end to the captured bandit. But the masked guy waves his hand very softly and calmly replies that such an action will not be necessary. The intruder shows proof that the criminal has already been defeated and warns there is no longer any risk of being exposed. Tossing it on the bedroom floor, the sheep masked guy warns that the kingdom's knights will investigate much more strictly. The young noble panics at the chance of getting caught and accuses the masked guy of being there to silence him for good. Refusing to accept the end, the blonde boy tries to open the bedroom door to escape and uses his noble title as an excuse. The mysterious sheep quickly appears behind him and asks him to calm down because their important talk is not over yet. Without any warning, the masked intruder lands a fatal blow to the blonde boy's chest, who coughs and suffers from intense body pain. The noble student loses all his strength and falls defeated in the mysterious guy's arms, who holds his body firmly. Carrying the boy's body with ease, the masked guy decides to escape through the balcony and figures it is best to leave the capital for a long time. The mysterious guy regrets not being able to meet Rui-sha in person and decides to save that great pleasure for the future. With his strange eyes glowing under the mask, the villain whispers into the void that everything happens according to the creator's will. The next day, the scene shifts to the Magic Academy with a sunny and peaceful sky shining over the massive local building. Inside the classroom, the gray-haired wolf boy smiles and very proudly introduces himself as the #1 underling. He stares down another classmate with an intimidating posture and claims it is a great pleasure to meet him again at school. Rui-sha scolds his friends over the top attitude, and the wolf apologizes to the boss, admitting he is not very good with words. During the chat, a redhead boy with sharp teeth walks up to the desk and harshly grabs the two students' attention. The red-haired boy shows intense annoyance and complains that the wolf was always quiet and now acts with pure arrogance. The two classmates press their foreheads together in pure rage, and the redhead claims he is the story's main character's #1 best friend. The gray-haired boy smirks mockingly and agrees there is only room for one main sidekick next to the powerful boss. With his pride wounded, the red-haired student praises the beast vision for wanting to walk beside the human warrior. Not wanting to lose his valuable spot as best friend, the young redhead grips his weapon tightly and swears to keep his title intact. A huge brawl breaks out in the middle of the classroom as the furious redhead charges at the confident grayish wolf. Watching the mess, the brown-haired hero sighs and asks the armored knight to keep an eye on his two fighting partners. The whole room turns into a giant mess with students doing all sorts of weird activities while the two boys keep fighting. The pink-haired warrior asks if they shouldn't break up the fight, and the main character smiles, replying that the two will be fine soon. Right then, a blonde, light-eyed young man walks over to the hero and asks for a moment of his time to discuss a matter. The student named Yuri holds a fine cloth and reveals he has finished the full appraisal of the gang's mysterious silver bracelet. He reports that the valuable silver piece with red jewels was found in ancient ruins and is not part of the stolen goods. The blonde continues explaining and states he could not figure out when or who that silver accessory was made for. Surprised by this, the swordswoman points at the object in Yuri's hand and questions why something so mysterious is there. The pink-haired warrior gets a flushed face and swallows hard before revealing the massive importance of that silver item. She reveals that the accessory is actually the bracelet of the great hero from the past, leaving the two boys completely stunned. The blonde young man tries to verify the info, and the girl asks him to carefully inspect the inside of the bracelet. The shot focuses on the shiny accessory while the warrior explains that the ancient hero marked his items with a flower. The inside of the silver jewelry perfectly displays the mark of a cherry blossom, confirming the swordswoman's story. The friend asks them to keep her family secret, and the main character reflects that the mysterious item is the grand key. The brown-haired young man remembers his silver-haired master and concludes the jewel is the key to undoing the ancient seal. Thinking back to when he beat the bandit boss, the human boy realized his initial gut feeling was right. With a focused and highly determined look, the student grabs his two classmates' attention to make a request. He asks if he can hang on to the silver bracelet for a while, and the blonde boy agrees to the request without any issue. The boy thanks them very excitedly after noticing his pink-haired friend also peacefully accepted the idea. The boy warns he will be very careful not to touch the item and cause a massive disaster as his friend calls him. The heroine stares at her friend very intensely and questions the real reason he wants to keep that sacred item. Sweating nervously, the main character gives a fake laugh and answers he just wants to look into something interesting. Catching her classmates fidgeting, the young warrior cracks a gentle smile and asks him to tell her everything when he is ready. Relieved by his friend's understanding, the student states with deep conviction that he will tell the whole truth in the future. The young blonde steps up smiling, wanting to join the future chat, and the two partners agree with pure joy. Soon after, the scene switches to night, showing the large colorful bird flapping its wings at the main character's bedroom window. The huge bird invites the human to play, and the brown-haired boy pets its beak, apologizing. He explains softly that he needs to handle an important matter today and promises to play with the beast the next day. Closing his bedroom window, the student watches the creature fly off and agrees the wolf was right about its intelligence. The young man recalls he named the rescued bird Palem and got the dorm leader's permission to care for the creature. The memory also shows that the colorful bird became very popular among the students and seems to have a blast in the forest. Back in his room, the student closes the window curtains, feeling immense pride for saving the animal from that gang. With the room darker, the boy focuses his attention on the silver bracelet left on the wooden desk and decides to act. Totally focused on his mission, the brown-haired hero grabs the mystery jewel with utmost care and expectation. As soon as the item touches his wrist, an intense pink light shoots out, leaving the boy completely shocked. The main character has to use his arms to shield his face from the massive magical flash that fills his entire room. Right after the flash, the main character wakes up confused and mutters something while slowly opening his eyes. He finds himself back in the infinite prison and wonders internally which floor he ended up on this time. Fearing hostile enemies, the boy decides to explore the area very carefully to avoid being caught off guard. The brown-haired young man looks up and is absolutely stunned to find two familiar figures. Filled with sheer joy, the boy runs and yells the names of his two prison masters upon finally finding them there. The hero approaches the two warriors and sighs in relief at being able to see them up close once more. The two powerful queens turn around and also yell the name of their young, beloved apprentice. With her eyes full of tears, the dark-haired woman asks if it really is her student standing there. The boy smiles emotionally and confirms with a voice trembling with joy that he managed to return to his two masters. Without wasting a second, the main character runs with wide open arms to hug and celebrate the grand reunion. The boy hugs the queen very tightly while the other master wonders what is going on in that place. With happy tears, the boy lets them both know he is back to rescue them from that prison. The two queens hug their beloved student highly affectionately, and the boy gets squished in the middle of that tight embrace. The dark-haired demon queen pets the boy's head and praises the good work he has done so far. With a very warm, gentle smile, the woman promises that both of them will be there to help the boy with whatever he needs. The white-haired dragon queen steps up with teary eyes and calls him a crybaby in a teasing tone. But the other master mocks her, pointing out she is crying too, and the white-haired girl denies the claim, shouting. The young girl points at her friend in pure anger and yells that it's her eyes that are wet with tears right now. After the emotional reunion, the scene cuts to the inside of a house with a pink roof and brick chimney. The young man sits at the table with his masters for tea and recaps everything he went through outside the infinite prison. The dark-haired queen suddenly stands up and asks for the boy's attention to talk about something very important to her. Overcome with jealousy, the woman hugs the student tightly and complains cruelly that he got a girlfriend. The main character runs out of air from his teacher's tight squeeze and struggles to ask her to let go a little. Rio pulls her friend off the boy and tells the jealous queen to knock off all that nonsense and stop scaring the kid. Catching his breath, the brown-haired hero jokes that he almost drowned, and the white-haired master calls him a poor thing. Next, she hugs him from behind and offers comfort playfully just to annoy the other teacher beside them. The dragon queen rubs her face against the boy and brags, asking if she isn't way better than the other one who only has big breasts. Tess gets mad at the taunt and grabs Rio's neck, yelling at her not to try and steal her precious student. The student watches them bicker with a sweat drop sliding down his face as he reflects on the situation. He wonders with a blank look if the two actually got mad because he got a girlfriend in the other world. The dark-haired queen smiles lovingly and assures her student that it was all just a little joke. The other teacher admits being slightly annoyed, but the brunette just laughs at her prison mate's childish reaction. The white-haired queen turns with a gentle smile and tells him not to worry about such trivial matters. She even jokes about the guy having a few mistresses, but the human boy decides not to talk about his girlfriend anymore. With a nostalgic smile, the main character mentions it feels great to be reunited with his two masters again. Hyped about the reunion, the boy asks if he can train new techniques, and the two women agree right away. The dark-haired queen raises her hand and creates a massive sphere of golden, powerful lightning to show the boy. The other teacher focuses to control her healing power and flies through the air with a huge burst of green energy. After the intense workout, the two masters hug the young man with immense strength and care to show how proud they are of him. Suddenly, the demon queen picks up on a weird energy and screams her student's name, realizing what is about to happen. The boy's body begins to glow and slowly fade away, and he figures his time in the spiritual prison is up. The two queens step closer, worried, and demand an explanation as to why the young man's body is vanishing out of nowhere. The boy explains that another teacher taught him how to split himself, and his true physical body is back in the real world. He reveals that this is merely his spirit form, and that separating the two body forms is a highly dangerous technique. The boy shares that 1 minute in the real world equals 6 hours in the prison, which is why he needs to leave that place. The dark-haired woman is sad she cannot spend more time with him, but calmly accepts the tough situation. Without warning, the demon queen steps up to the boy and pulls him into a sudden, incredibly tight hug. The hero is confused by the woman's move and watches her step back while his body vanishes into several golden particles. Tess feels time slow down after her student's departure, even though she has lived in the prison far longer than him. In a final tight squeeze, the demon queen tells her young student to be very careful in the world outside the prison. The other teacher steps up with a smile and asks him never to forget she will always be there for him in the end. The dark-haired queen corrects her friend, stating they both will always be there to help and protect the boy. They promise that even if the whole world turns against him, they will always stay by his side, supporting him. With eyes filled with tears, the brown-haired boy thanks them for all the love and says goodbye to his beloved masters. Rio looks at her crying friend, and the two sadly watch the last particles of their student's light fade into the air. The white-haired queen tries to comfort her friend and firmly claims they will cross paths again in the future. With a curious look, the white-haired woman asks what is bothering her friend, and the queen reveals a strange suspicion. She explains she caught the scent of the man who sealed them, and the white-haired queen recalls it was the great hero Oga. Tess confirms she smelled the scent of the ancient hero coming straight from the body of her young, beloved brown-haired student. Elsewhere, the silver-haired woman sips her tea and trusts the main character is the only one capable of beating the enemy. She states the boy has a duty to defeat that man once and for all. The silver-haired woman grips her cup tightly and mutters with sheer conviction that she will not let it slide. Against a starry backdrop, Oka orders the main character to finish off the great sinner and hero named Oga. Far away, a city gate guard reviews some people's entry permits. Upon taking the next traveler's document, the soldier grows suspicious and looks the person over very carefully. The mysterious man wearing a straw hat questions the reason for such a long delay in his inspection. The guard apologizes and explains it is his first time seeing a real samurai standing in front of him. Handing back the paper, the officer asks the warrior why a samurai is in the kingdom's capital. The mysterious traveler bows his head respectfully and claims he is only there because of his job. At another time, Rui-sha walks happily through school and wishes all his classmates a good morning. The boy waves smiling at his friends, who return the greeting with pure joy. One of the boys starts telling a story and the other classmate complains, bringing up their promise not to talk about it. The main character greets a blushing girl and she walks past him without saying a single word. The student stands with his back to the blonde girl while she remains seated with a very serious expression. Another girl with braids walks up to the blonde and asks very politely about the things she likes. The girl with long blonde hair keeps her back turned in silence and completely ignores her classmate's question. With an annoyed look, the blonde elf complains about the other girl's persistence and accuses her of not realizing she is being ignored. The braided girl smiles, hyped to finally get an answer, and the other young woman sighs at the situation. The main character watches the scene and is surprised to see that not even Rona managed to get close to that student. The boy thinks that even with everyone getting along, he feels there is a huge wall between the class and the girl Iris. With a distant look, he reflects on the matter and hopes a good chance to get closer pops up in the future. A classmate calls the main character over, asking for help with homework, and the boy agrees to help him right away. But suddenly a strong, strange sensation washes over the student's body, and he clicks his tongue with deep concern. The friend notices the behavior shift and asks if something is wrong, while the hero stays silent. The brown-haired boy hides his unease and asks which part of the assignment his classmate needs help with. The young man walks away and reflects that it felt like someone was watching him, but brushes the feeling off for now. A few days later, Rui-sha collapses from exhaustion onto his study desk with a look of pure fatigue. His pink-haired girlfriend approaches the boy and asks worriedly if he is feeling alright. The girl comments he hasn't seemed to sleep right for days, and the boy denies the claim, trying to hide his burnout. In a training session, the boy summons his magic bird and orders it to use its wind spiral technique. The main character praises the big bird's hit, calling it incredible, while the animal makes a happy sound. But suddenly, the boy flashes a surprised look as he senses something different around him. Rui-sha looks back and worriedly concludes someone is watching him again, just as he thought before. The boy realizes the feeling is pure murderous intent and wonders in his head who the culprit could be. In a flashback, the hero tells the pink-haired girl everything is fine and he plans to fix the problem soon. The girlfriend smiles gently and mentions she will not worry about it if Rui-sha claims he will be okay. The pink-haired young woman tells him to ask for help if he needs it, and the boy thanks her for caring with a calm face. Back to the present, the student's gaze becomes very serious and entirely locked on his thoughts. Soon after, he recalls a moment in class where his classmates chatted happily right in front of him. The main character is annoyed by being followed all the time and decides now is his moment to act against the mystery person. With this choice in mind, the boy walks with firm steps through a forest to put his plan into action. He pauses his walk and notices out of the corner of his eye that he is still being closely tailed. Finding a good spot, the student grabs a piece of wood from the ground and notes that area will be perfect for his plan. The boy smiles as he draws a pentagram and some ancient runes on the dirt before declaring the work is done. The completed drawing reveals a large magic circle, and the narration explains there are 2 ways to use it. The image shows flames shooting out of the pentagram, and the text reveals the first use serves to boost magic power. Next, a massive energy dome pops up, and the explanation says the second use creates a stable barrier. The hero shifts his focus to the drawing and holds his glowing hand over the pentagram to cast his spell. Rui-sha lowers his body and firmly touches the ground as he commands the magic circle to activate instantly. The boy thrusts his hand forward with intense energy and says he finally managed to catch the person following him. With a huge smile on his face, the main character announces the use of his strong darkness barrier magic. At that moment, large dark energy tentacles quickly sprout from the forest floor. The student raises his arms and casts the technique called birdcage to trap his mysterious target. Someone trapped gets spooked by the magic, and Rui-sha walks up, asking for the identity of the person watching him. But the boy's victorious face suddenly changes to a look of utter shock and massive confusion. The scene focuses on the uniform of a blonde female student who was caught by the darkness trap. The blonde girl trapped inside the cage shows an annoyed look and asks why the boy is in that place. The hero is totally confused by the situation while the red-eyed young woman repeats her question in a serious tone. The girl admits she cannot believe she was caught and claims watching the main character was the right call since he is dangerous. Rui-sha throws his hands up in peace and desperately asks why they need to fight in this tense moment. The young blonde looks down with a cold face and says there is no need to ask any type of question. With a furious look, the girl states the boy is an enemy of her master and swears she will get revenge for it. The boy gets startled when a high-speed attack tears through the air right in front of him, narrowly missing a direct hit. Giving the hero no time to react, the blonde quickly charges and lands a massively powerful kick on the young man. The student groans in pain, clutching his own arm, and grumbles about the hit he just took. With an aggressive face, the girl announces the use of her Scarlet Crimson Blade technique. As she says it, a bright crimson liquid begins to run down the fingers of the student's outstretched hand. Right after, she unleashes a huge blast of red energy at her target with extreme aggression. The destructive attack violently collides and triggers a massive, bright explosion in the middle of the isolated area. The smoke clears, and the scene reveals Rui-sha slumped against a tree trunk, looking like he has been beaten. The mysterious girl relaxes her stance with a smug smile and declares she avenged her dear master. But her victory is short-lived as she flashes a shocked look upon hearing the boy's voice complaining about the pain. The hero rubs his bruised arm with an awkward smile and remarks that his opponent is quite cruel. The girl confusedly asks how he is still standing, while the boy comments on his rival's rare magic. Rui-sha asks where she learned that, and the blonde refuses to answer in a highly defensive tone. The girl's hand starts generating that strange red energy again as she vows to finish the fight for real this time. Then, the young woman summons a massive, glowing scarlet scythe and preps for another major strike. With a yell of determination, the student gathers her strength and gets ready to deal a fatal blow. She leaps and swings the heavy weapon at the hero, who just watches the charge without showing any fear. The attack is easily blocked, and the blonde gets outraged, demanding to know why she cannot land a hit on him. The student steps back, panting, and figures her target really is strong enough to have taken down her master. When she threatens to fight for real, the young man raises his hand and begs to know who this mystery master is. This question offends the girl, and she accuses the boy of playing dumb just to provoke her rage. The girl clenches her fist in sheer fury and decides to reveal her superior as the Great Demon Queen. With a proud stance, the student says the leader's full name, shocking the student who is listening quietly. Rui-sha is absolutely confused and questions if the blonde girl truly works for his friend Tess. The boy reflects that the queen is doing great and tries to figure out why her underling is attacking him now. Seriously, the opponent explains she can feel the demon queen's magic coming from inside the main character. Hearing that, the boy's look shifts suddenly, and he thinks the blonde's perception is not entirely wrong. The student remembers being a kid and realizes their energies mixed together over the 300 years. The young man recalls holding the queen's hand while noting his power is greater than a normal human's. In the memory, the beautiful lady smiles and claims the mix is very weak, so regular people would never notice. Back to the present, the boy figures the blonde managed to spot the hidden energy with total ease. The student comments in a serious tone that the hero could even fool others with his low-key magic. But suddenly the young girl's eye glows red with a magic seal, and she warns he cannot trick her vision. Witnessing that, the student gets spooked and nervously asks if those are the famous magic eyes. The girl says her eyes can see the shape and color of any person's magic energy around her. To illustrate the point, the image shows the hero's silhouette glowing with the queen's magic inside his body. The young blonde reveals she didn't notice anything at first, but saw the boy using dark magic in the entrance exam. With this, the student drops his guard and exactly recalls the moment his opponent just brought up. In a flashback, the hero is seen using the Shadow Veil skill during his official duel against another student. The young man concludes that was the exact moment the girl disguised as a maid sensed the demon queen's magic. Back in the present, Rui-sha stays dead silent while trying to process all these new reveals. The main character thinks about how the blonde has superhuman physical skills and also masters the rare blood magic. Given this, he asks the student's true identity, and the girl starts talking with a dark smile. At that moment, a pair of dark wings sprouts from the girl's back, and she warns that her family serves the demon queen. A spiked tail also grows from her body as she reveals her real name is Iris Vondelson. The student flashes her sharp fangs with a highly intimidating smile, and her red eyes glow brightly. Showing off her true winged form, the young woman confesses to the main character that she is an original vampire. The text notes that vampires are a top-tier race among demons with incredibly high magic power. The hero is stunned and remembers the species is heavily hunted due to their members' extreme rarity and beauty. Rui-sha watches the girl's mystical figure with wings and a tail, confirming she really belongs to the vampire race. Looking a bit sad, the blonde explains her people came very close to total extinction in the past. The vampire says the race was saved by the demon queen herself and she grew up hearing tales of the leader's kindness. Iris claims to hold on to hope that the queen is alive, while the young man understands the master is locked away forever. The boy figures the queen cannot be found because of the infinite prison, but many are still looking for her. The scene cuts back to the entrance exam, and the student explains she finally found a human with her leader's powers. The vampire accuses the main character of being the queen's enemy, and the hero desperately asks how she jumped to that conclusion. Iris fires back, saying it is simple because there are only two ways to take someone else's magic power. The student turns pale with sweat upon hearing the girl conclude the first stealing option is impossible for humans. Iris accuses the main character of taking the demon queen's life to steal all her magic power. The young man sweats cold at that heavy accusation and quickly tries to explain that things did not go down like that. But the blonde girl totally loses her patience and yells out in outrage, accusing the boy of playing dumb. With her red eyes blazing with rage, the vampire decides continuing the chat makes zero sense now. The hero agrees her anger is justified but readies a spell in his hand, warning he cannot afford to pass away there either. The student casts a scarlet magic spell with raw fury and orders the student to pay for his crime with his own life. At that moment, the young woman summons her ultimate technique and forms a massive red lance shaped like a cross in mid-air. The giant red weapon begins to glow intensely as it gathers a terrifying amount of destructive energy. As the colossal strike drops toward him, the main character praises his opponent's power and charges up his own defense. With a gentle smile, the boy realizes the girl's deep feelings for the queen are manifesting as sheer power. Motivated by this loyalty, the hero declares he will not lose and unleashes an intense golden light from within his body. The boy announces he will show the queen's true power and fires off his special technique, called Radiant Flash. The massive blast of golden energy rips through the air and violently clashes against the vampire's scarlet lance. The collision between the two ultimate spells creates a huge explosion of light that brightens the entire area around the fight. The winged girl steps back trying to shield herself from the heavy impact, while the student stands firm amidst the gale. When the light fades, the student widens her eyes in utter shock, recognizing the familiar essence of that magic defense. The young woman drops to her knees on the ground and realizes it would be impossible for a mere power thief to use that legendary spell. Completely confused and drained, the vampire stares at the boy standing before her and begs to know his real identity. With a highly affectionate look, the hero replies he is just a loyal disciple of the demon queen, just like her. Rui-sha kneels in front of the girl, reaching out a friendly hand, and states his biggest wish is to help their leader. Soon after, the tense vibe fades, and the scene shows the student crying heavily while sitting on a log next to the main character. The blonde wipes her tears, relieved to know the queen is alive, and offers a sincere apology for her behavior. The girl hangs her head in shame for trying to end the life of someone so close and important to her master. She swears to take any punishment even if it costs her life, and the boy tries to calm her down, saying he is not mad. The student holds the vampire's hands and hyped up tells her they now need to focus on working together on the mission. The student sweetly agrees, promising to take her punishment after the rescue, and the hero sighs, sweating cold at her stubbornness. Changing the subject, the young woman wants to know if he told this secret to anyone else, and the boy swears he hasn't said a word. The girl breathes a sigh of relief and explains the relationship between the demon and dragon races is getting worse by the day. The vampire fears that the discovery of the two queens being alive could spark a brutal, point-no-return war in the kingdom. The main character feels a bit down hearing the news and realizes it will be quite tough to get help from other people. But the girl snaps her fingers and warns that the situation is not exactly like that. The boy is surprised when several people's silhouettes form around him and says he cannot believe his eyes. The vampire explains that everyone there is of her species, and they were watching the two from afar without her noticing. A gray-haired, bearded older man wearing a cape politely introduces himself as Bruno Vondelson. The lord bows and claims the queen is their only master, but he makes an exception since he views the boy as her husband. The student is utterly shocked when the gray-haired old man asks for permission to become his loyal servants. Bruno explains they had zero clues for 300 years until they finally found a connection to their leader. In a highly serious tone, the vampire lord wraps up by calling the hero the group's last hope. The boy understands the weight of the request and agrees to take on the responsibility, leaving the older man highly impressed. The other vampires celebrate super hyped, and the hero sweats cold, thinking they were supposed to be quieter people. The student walks up and apologizes for her loud comrade's behavior while calling the hero her lord. The girl smiles, blushing with her hands clasped, and thanks him from the bottom of her heart, explaining everyone is just very happy. The main character touches his gold earring and says he is glad to make new friends before promising to save the queen. The shot focuses on the two holding hands firmly as they mutually agree on the mission. Iris kneels holding the boy's hand and blushing tells him she is eager to work with him from now on. Right after, the story changes scene showing the brown-haired boy sleeping peacefully in a comfy bed. The hero tosses under the covers as he mutters in his sleep about smelling something incredibly delicious. He suddenly pops his eyes open as he wakes up and wonders internally where that amazing smell is coming from. The boy sits up in bed and reacts with pure confusion, seeing a girl's back as she cooks in his kitchen first thing in the morning. The young blonde girl wearing a maid outfit turns around with a gentle smile and wishes her lord a good morning. The vampire asks the student to wait just a bit longer for breakfast, and he listens, sweating cold from sheer shock. As the girl stirs the food in the pan, the young man questions why she is there in his room. The blonde brags about easily picking the lock, and the boy sighs, warning he didn't want to know how she broke into his room. Walking over with a plate of food, the vampire explains that taking care of his daily needs is completely natural. Iris shows off a beautiful dish with a big heart drawn in the middle and invites the hero to eat the meal made with love. The scene highlights the perfectly set table with the two morning meal plates and drinks poured with care. The two clasp their hands together in a sign of deep respect and give thanks for the meal before diving into breakfast. Rui-sha takes a bite of the food and chews happily, revealing the dish actually tastes really delicious. The beautiful young woman blushes hard at the compliment and smiling states she feels honored by her lord's review. Right after, she offers to help him change his clothes, and the main character instantly declines with heavy embarrassment. The scene shifts to the front of the school while the girl asks to formally introduce herself to the other people in the group. The blonde reveals her name and claims with immense pride that she will now serve the young Lord Rui-sha from that moment forward. The student says it is a pleasure to meet them and asks them to take good care of her, leaving two classmates entirely stunned. The red-haired boy asks what is going on, and his wolf-eared friend admits he has absolutely no clue. The student praises his classmate for being so devoted to the boss, while the red-haired guy desperately concludes it is all a total disaster. He explains the real issue is the main character's official girlfriend, who is listening to it all from afar, shaking with pure rage. At that moment, the pink-haired girl loses her patience entirely and slams both hands on the table with ridiculous force. The young woman screams, demanding answers about this servant nonsense, while the hero laughs nervously and apologizes for the mess. The boy stays quiet upon being cut off by Iris, who suddenly walks up and calls her master a poor thing. The vampire pulls the student's face into a hug against her own body and tries to comfort him with a sweet smile and blushing cheeks. With a teasing look, the servant advises the boy to completely ignore the words of that muscle-head woman. Hearing that insult, the hero's girlfriend freezes in place and flashes a face filled with nothing but pure murderous hate. The student leaps out of her chair violently and warns she will tear the blonde to pieces if a fight is what she wants so badly. Iris adjusts her gloves with a confident grin and declares this is the perfect time to drop some hard truths. Panicking over the chaos, the hero reaches out toward the two girls and begs them to stop fighting immediately. But the rivals glare at the main character in sheer anger and ask together that he stay out of this personal matter. The student sighs in defeat while his two friends watch the scene and comment that they feel bad for their leader's situation. Soon after, class finally begins with the glasses, wearing teacher writing on the board while the class stays quiet. The main character focuses his attention on a notebook filled with demon drawings and jots down some key info during the lesson. Rui-sha sweats cold noticing the two girls giving off a dark aura and wonders how he will get the rivals to get along in the future. The boy refocuses on the teacher, who announces a very important section of the subject and asks for all the students' attention. The green-haired teacher smiles at the class and introduces the topic, noting everyone should already know the lore about the races. The teacher explains that the strong receive the silver mark, which later upgrades to the gold crest if they grow more powerful. The instructor writes on the green board and tells the class about the rare existence of a special crest among the king class. The master points to the student Ben, who eagerly raises his hand after he asks if anyone knows the bearers of the rare marks. The glasses-wearing student acts very politely and says he is deeply honored to be called on by his esteemed teacher. The boy calmly explains the special crests belong exclusively to the Great Demon Queen and the Dragon Queen. The boy highlights that the two are different and notes ancient legends also speak of the Mighty Ogre King and the Fairy King. Ben pushes up his glasses and suggests focusing on the two queens, leaving the master impressed by the accuracy of his smart answer. The Demon Queen's silhouette comes into focus as the explanation reveals her strength is tested in the martial arts tournament. The text states the title is passed down directly if the winner claims victory using their magical powers. The vampire watches her book closely as the teacher comments that this is a highly fitting tradition. Next, the explanation reveals the Dragon Queen inherits her position directly through her own bloodline. The master says the royal baby is born with the queen's crest, and the two past rulers were the strongest ones. The girl takes notes as the teacher reveals the ancient hero Olga defeated the queens for a mysterious reason. The main character smiles in awe hearing the story and thinks to himself about how Tess and Rio are incredible people. With a thoughtful look, the young man figures uncovering the real reason behind that ancient clash could help rescue both of them. The teacher wraps up the magic history class and announces he invited a general crest bearer for the practical lesson. The students are amazed by the news of the famous guest, and the master asks them to ask plenty of questions. The hero agrees with his classmates and gets really hyped to find out what kind of person the mark bearer is. The scene cuts to the training area showing a man wearing a straw hat near a large sliding door. The mysterious newcomer calmly takes off his straw hat, revealing a young face with long tied-back hair. Meanwhile, the image highlights the peaceful scenery of trees and the gate just as the visitor asks about the class. The warrior places his hand on his chest and introduces himself as the swordsman Kojiru before announcing he will be the temp instructor. The pink-haired girl questions his strength, and the boy with the earring agrees the warrior has perfect posture. The other students doubt the gentle guy holds the powerful crest and watch this situation with a bit of surprise. Keeping his polite tone, the swordsman smiles friendly and asks if anyone in the class wants to fight him. The temp master warns he will fight unarmed and gives the students a free pass to use magic or weapons in the big match. The red-haired boy gets pumped by the offer, and the wolf-eared guy pushes his friend aside, saying he will fight the rookie. The two boys start arguing to decide who fights first, and the swordsman chuckles at the strong class's hype. While the rivals push their faces against each other, the visitor calmly suggests both attack him at the same time. Suddenly, the scene shows a large wooden training sword jammed hard into the dry dirt floor. The swordsman smirks mockingly and asks if the students are scared of double-teaming him and still losing. The two boys glare at the man, annoyed at being underestimated, and decide to unleash their true strength in the fight. Kojiro locks his gaze darkly and sizes up his opponent's battle instincts before commenting that this will be fun. The master drops into a serious martial arts stance and says his full name, announcing his charge against the duo. The frame focuses on the warrior's bandaged foot stomping the rocky ground hard to launch his huge opening dash. With absurd speed, the man appears instantly in front of the wolf boy, leaving him entirely in a state of shock. With no time to react properly, the student grits his teeth and braces to take the seasoned warrior's direct hit. At that moment, the red-haired boy charges his fist with fiery energy and tries to land a powerful punch on the instructor. The red-haired youth yells out his spell and triggers a massive fiery explosion right in front of his classmate. The swordsman pops up standing in the smoke and calmly remarks that the last strike missed by a hair. The two students are stunned by the dodge, and the wolf boy apologizes for lowering his guard to the calm warrior. The redhead warns the instructor is charging again, and the duo braces for another attack from their opponent. The instructor analyzes the situation up close while the boys prep magic and physical moves at the same time in the arena. With a smile, the master praises the duo's tactic of splitting the fight into fast close, range and long-range attacks. The wolf-eared student tries to throw a punch and warns the older guy will bite his tongue if he keeps talking. But the warrior blocks the fast punch with a simple slap on the student's hand, who reacts with total surprise and confusion. Instantly, the swordsman drives a heavy knee into his opponent's stomach, completely knocking the wind out of him in pain. The red-haired young man yells his partner's name, seeing him drop defeated to the ground after that counter. Sprawled on the dirt, the beaten boy shows dizzy eyes and wonders internally if this is actually real. The other student gets furious, wrapped in a fire aura, and decides to keep fighting so he does not lose his pride. The redhead channels a huge amount of flames into his hands and warns he will use his best magic skill in the battle. With a focused gaze, the boy fires off the attack and promises to surpass the expectations of the master standing still in the arena. The student focuses all his strength and unleashes a giant wave of fire that covers a large chunk of the training field. Surprisingly, the master splits the massive flame right down the middle with a swift swipe using just his arm. After clearing a path through the fire, the warrior rushes the student at high speed, flashing a confident grin. The swordsman closes in and throws a heavy punch at the air, creating a powerful shockwave toward the student. Realizing the insane impact of that strike, the young redhead freezes and breaks into a cold sweat with a terrified face. Kojiro stops his fist right in front of his opponent's face and calmly asks if he still wants to keep fighting. The student sighs in total exhaustion and places his hand on his head, admitting total defeat against the strong-armed instructor. Two other classmates watch the scene and comment in shock about how easily the swordsman won the fight. Soon after, all the students crowd around the great master with extreme excitement and shining eyes. In another corner, the blonde girl notes things are about to get lively, and they will be getting sword lessons now too. The main character agrees with a smile and admits he is eager, feeling like the upcoming lessons will make him stronger. The story shifts scenes, showing the hero holding a wooden sword in the courtyard while the instructor calls his name. The master corrects the boy's stance, advising him to drop his center of gravity, and Rui-sha thanks him for the great tip. Kojiro praises the young man's quick learning, and the boy replies, claiming it is all thanks to his good teacher. With a nostalgic look, the warrior shares he used to be a failure back in the day, which is why he knows how to explain the skills now. The student stares at his master in awe and reflects that he also pushed himself hard to awaken his true strength. The swordsman asks the blonde boy if he should instruct the prince next in the arena, but an armor-clad hand suddenly jumps in the way to cut off the warrior's action. An armored knight states he is already training the prince and tells the master there is no need to interfere. The ponytail-wearing warrior replies there is no reason to be cautious and promises not to do anything inappropriate. The red-haired knight points out that this is his job and hopes the great instructor can understand. The blonde prince touches the guard's shoulder and comments, smiling there is no need to take the situation so seriously. With a calm smile on his face, the swordsman takes the rejection very peacefully without causing any drama. The master asks who else wants to fight, and the two defeated students raise their hands asking for a rematch. The blonde boy notes it is very rare to see a Ibuki acting that way, while the knight crouches down embarrassed. The knight apologizes for showing that side of himself, but the blonde prince reassures him, praising his attitude. Ibuki reflects that the master isn't a bad guy but claims he cannot let someone so strong get close to the prince. The young man laughs happily, thanking his knight for his immense concern, who swears to protect his great friend. Rui-sha watches the duo from afar and praises the tight bond between the two training buddies. The main character smiles hyped and asks to spar with Ibuki that day, and the guard accepts the offer right away. The temporary instructor walks away with his hand on his wooden sword, regretting the loss of that opportunity. The story changes scenes, showing the outside of a building under a blue sky while someone lets out a heavy sigh. The brown-haired student flashes a look of pure exhaustion and frustration, sweating cold over his situation. Rui-sha wonders how things ever got to this point as he's being dragged by both arms by two girls. His pink-haired girlfriend angrily asks why the blonde is following them and demands she stop getting in the way. The vampire fires back, saying it is natural to accompany the lord, and tells the girl to fix her own behavior. The two girls glare aggressively at each other behind the boy's back, and he mentally begs for any kind of help. Someone greets the main character and asks if he is okay, making the boy look sideways in slight surprise. The scene reveals the long brown-haired classmate is there, and the student says his friend's name in relief. Sheehan remarks on the huge coincidence and jokes the hero is caught up in another romantic mess. The newly arrived youth takes an interest in the ladies, and the main character decides to politely introduce the two girls. The pink-haired girl claims to be the boy's girlfriend, while Iris states she is the one who understands the young lord best. The classmate praises the main character's charm for hanging out with such beautiful girls, and the student laughs awkwardly out of embarrassment. Changing the topic, Sheehan asks if the boy has free time and reveals he has some solid intel, grabbing his attention. With a massive smile on his face, the classmate raises his hand and reveals a new dungeon was just discovered in the area. Rui-sha is blown away by the big news, while his friend hugs him from the side, knowing he is super curious. Sheehan smiles, saying he doesn't want to steal her prince, while the two girls glare at him furiously in the background. The main character finds the info sharing weird, and his classmate explains the spot holds rare monsters and treasures. With a slightly mysterious look, the long-haired young man reveals something very important about the ruins. He claims the area might have some connection to the ancient hero, and the earring-wearing boy listens very closely. The student tries to figure out what that means, and his friend just smiles happily for having caught his eye. Soon after, the boy pulls a piece of paper from his pocket and starts talking about the new dungeon's entrance. The image focuses on a large glowing seal, and the explanation reveals a strong barrier is blocking anyone from entering. Sheehan mentions there is a specific drawing on the seal, and the pink-haired girl gets spooked upon seeing the paper. The paper displays the beautiful illustration of a flower, and someone recognizes the shape of that mystery emblem. The young man asks Charlotte to explain the meaning behind that symbol since she wears an identical mark on her clothes. The main character's girlfriend sweats cold while his classmate asserts the place must be tied to the hero's bloodline. With this huge reveal in mind, the long-haired boy asks what Rui-sha plans to do from here on out. Next, the scene focuses on a man's boots stepping firmly through the grass near several trees. The glasses-wearing student adjusts her clothes and excitedly comments on the possible treasures they might find. She notices the young woman's unique way of speaking and asks, with a gentle smile, which region she comes from. The small group walks down a forest trail while the two students chat happily about the topic. The main character smiles, sharing that his wolf classmate has been training intensely with the red-haired boy. A memory shows the two friends fighting hard, and the narration explains the duel against the master fired them up. But the walk is cut short when the hero spots the swordsman crouching in the middle of the deep woods. The man holds some plants in his hands and reacts very calmly when the surprised boy calls him by his name. The warrior explains that he came looking for medicinal herbs, but wishes to know what the young ones are doing in that isolated place. Rui-sha reveals the plan about the new dungeon, and the instructor shows an enormous concern for everyone's safety. The master frowns and states that the place might have cruel traps and very dangerous unknown monsters. The student tries to calm the swordsman down by swearing that everyone will run away immediately if they notice any great danger. With a firm look, the brown-haired young man reinforces that he needs to check the place in any way possible. Noticing the unwavering determination of his dear student, the older man sighs and decides to offer a helpful item. He hands a rounded container into the protagonist's hands, explaining that it is a healing potion made by himself. The instructor asks again for everyone to be very careful, and the hero thanks him for the gift with a cheerful tone. The group watches the master slowly walking away while the young man praises him for his immense kindness and dedication. Right after, the great friends gather with an adventurous spirit and set off together to explore the mysterious place. Rui-sha and his friend finally arrive at the location, and the boy announces that they are standing before the new dungeon. The place is made up of ancient stone ruins taken over by vegetation, which seem to have been there for a very long time. The narration explains that people thought there were no more treasures there until they discovered an underground entrance the week before. Upon approaching the entrance, the group notices several adventurers fallen on the ground, and the girl in the hat reacts with disgust. The young woman with glasses adjusts her accessory and asks her friends what could be happening with those people. One of the fallen men gets irritated by the comment, and the three adventurers stare at the young ones with a threatening look. The confused men question who those people standing in front of them so suddenly could be. One of the guys stands up and complains that he was expecting someone important to arrive, not just a bunch of kids. The bearded man focuses on the girls in the group and tries to warn them that this area is not exactly safe for them. With a wicked smile, the adventurer provokes the young women, saying they could be captured by bad adults. The pink-haired girl does not like the comment at all and expresses all her disgust at the man's attitude. The blonde elf agrees with her friend and warns that if he wants to hit on them, he would need to change his tactics. She suggests that the adventurer should take better care of his own appearance first, and he blushes out of pure embarrassment. Totally offended, the man pulls out a dagger and swears to make the girls regret disrespecting an adult. The guy raises the blade with anger and advances toward Rui-sha, threatening to start his attack on the boy. But the protagonist acts fast and dodges the slashing strike easily just by ducking at the right moment. Without wasting time, the young man lands a very strong kick on the opponent's stomach, making him spit saliva in pain. The adventurer falls face first on the ground defeated, while the student lands calmly, adjusting his posture. Seeing their leader on the ground, the other two henchmen break a cold sweat and yell at the kids not to get so arrogant. Rui-sha notes that they will not be able to enter the dungeon just yet, and his older partner agrees, asking for his help. The student winks in a friendly way and comments to the hero that she loves to enjoy moments of fun. On the other side, the enemies claim to have the numerical advantage and charge with everything against the brown-haired girl. Very calmly, she raises her glowing right hand and announces that she needs to show the true power of a veteran. At that moment, she uses creation magic and makes a massive stone structure sprout from the ground, scaring the men. The smoke begins to clear and reveals a giant face made of rough stone forming right in front of the enemy group. A huge stone golem takes its full form, protecting the veteran and leaving the adventurers in total disbelief. Trying to keep his courage, one of the men wields his spear and yells at his partners not to feel afraid of the creature. Right after, he charges forcefully and strikes the tip of the spear directly against the stone monster's leg. The weapon just bounces off without causing a single scratch, and the man falls into despair because he cannot pierce the target. Observing the scene with a confident smile, the brown-haired student orders the golem to begin its attack. Without mercy, the giant stone golem lifts its heavy leg and stomps hard on the ground, making the man let out a groan. Completely crushed, the adventurer falls to the ground grumbling in pain, while his two companions look very frightened. Rui-sha and the blonde elf hear a scream telling them not to move, and they look to the side with expressions of great surprise. Acting out of cowardice, the henchman's leader grabs the girl with glasses from behind and places a sharp dagger near her neck. Seeing the hero's neutral reaction, the man gets irritated and yells, asking if they do not understand the gravity of that situation. Furious with the indifference, the guy decides to use the blade on the hostage but ends up hitting something hard and green along the way. The little student comments that all of that was the adventurer's fault for making such a big scene without any precision. She warns that her little pet has woken up, and the bandit goes into shock when he comes face to face with a huge green monster right there. Giving no time to react, the large creature swings its claw with a lot of force and hits the man squarely in the face. The girl hugs the bug affectionately and apologizes for waking it up, while the henchmen break a cold sweat at the situation. Amazed by the cuteness, the veteran asks to see it up close later, but also warns that the enemies are getting serious. Very suddenly, the image shows an abstract panel containing random information and pictures about different types of soil. Back to the combat, the little student smiles very excitedly and comments about her little monster being wide awake. The young woman decides to summon the rest of her monsters, revealing a pink worm and other bugs to balance out the fight. Completely terrified, the henchman trembles before the giant worm and tries to understand how the monsters are so friendly. With a quick command from the tamer, the beasts charge forward and begin to trample the poor adventurers fallen on the ground. Seeing her team's easy victory, the girl hugs the rounded red bug and thanks them for their great work. The team gathers again, and the girls check if Rui-sha is okay, while the veteran suggests they move forward right away. The hero crouches near the passed-out leader and warns that he will need to erase the man's memory to avoid future problems. The protagonist uses a glowing magic on the guy's head, while the girls close their eyes, impressed by the light. Smiling in a friendly way, the student explains that he learned that special technique from his dear swordsman master. He reveals that giving electrical shocks to a person's head can erase memories, which scares the pink-haired girl. Right after, the adventurer's leader begins to open his eyes, looking very confused, and tries to understand where he is. Suffering the effects of the magic, the man is left with frizzy hair and asks if he already knows them, while Rui-sha gives a thumbs up. With the problem solved, the group climbs the ancient stone steps and stands before the massive entrance door of the dungeon. The narration focuses on the details of the immense pink magical barrier covered in symbols that protects the entrance to the secret location. Curious about the door, the brown-haired veteran picks up a stone and agrees that the magical seal seems to be powerful. She throws the small object against the barrier to test its resistance, and the stone hits the pink energy shield. Immediately, a strong electrical discharge bursts from the seal and shatters the stone into tiny pieces floating through the air. After confirming the danger, the veteran smiles at the pink-haired young woman named Charlotte and asks her to take the lead. The boy gets worried about the situation and calls out to his friend Charlotte with a very gentle tone of voice. He holds the young woman's hand and states that she does not need to push herself because he will try to break that seal on his own. The pink-haired girl gives a little giggle and thanks the hero for being so concerned about her well-being. But the student explains that she is doing that for her own good, and the protagonist listens to everything attentively. With a big smile on her face, the young woman reveals that she wants to find out who her ancestor really was with her own eyes. Determined to move forward, the student raises her right hand toward the seal, stating that she cannot feel fear. The moment she touches her fingers to the pink barrier, a spark of magical energy glows and suddenly lights up the place. A very bright light takes over the environment, revealing a huge magical symbol in the shape of a flower right in front of the girl. Shortly after, the energy wall breaks like glass, and the young woman tells her friends that she finally managed to undo the seal. The brown-haired veteran smiles excitedly and comments that her guess about the magic was totally correct. The other two students peek through the open door, noticing that the fact that this seal required a descendant is scary. But Rui-sha notices something strange approaching and turns his face, asking his friends to wait attentively. Soon after, 3 unknown adventurers come running and ask the group to wait a little longer before going inside. Everyone stares at the newcomers with great curiosity while they ask the group of students to wait once again. The leader of the small team takes a deep breath from exhaustion and announces that they want to enter the new dungeon along with the kids. Quite confused by the sudden situation, the hero questions who these people standing in front of him could be. With a friendly smile, the young man apologizes for the scare and introduces himself as Max, revealing he is the leader of the Jackal team. By his side, a guy with a beanie and blue hair raises his hand to greet everyone and says he is a thief named Zim. Next, the purple-haired girl holds her staff and introduces herself as Moral, explaining she is a beginner mage. The protagonist asks the reason for the approach and Max asks for calm, warning that they are only copper-rank adventurers. The leader explains that they get very nervous exploring alone, and that is why they had the idea of forming an alliance there. Feeling awkward, the young man confesses that they were watching the previous fight from hiding and apologizes for not helping. Charlotte crosses her arms and asks what the advantage would be of taking that team along with them on the new exploration. Max agrees that they are very weak in combat but guarantees that everyone has an enormous amount of experience in dungeons. He points out that the hero's group does not know how to look for traps, and the students stay silent, accepting the truth. The girls talk about the strange proposal and decide to leave the final decision in the hands of the young protagonist. Noticing the boy's great doubt, the adventurer opens his bag and says that they also have some rare items. He shows a silver cylindrical object, explaining it is a charging ring capable of absorbing and storing magical power. Upon hearing the explanation, Rui-sha clenches his fists in awe at the equipment's usefulness, and the adventurer smiles proudly. But Max reveals that the item leaks magic when it gets completely full, and the young ones stare at the guy with enormous disappointment. Trying to convince the group, the leader shows a protection medal against attacks, and Rui-sha gets excited, asking to test it. The two girls in the group stare at the adventurer with sweat drops on their faces and get totally disappointed by his attitude. Desperate, the adventurer tries to offer a special earring, but the protagonist raises his hand and accepts the team's help. Hearing the positive decision from the young adventurer, the three team members break into big smiles of pure happiness. The hero agrees, smiling in a friendly way, while the pink-haired young woman watches everything with a lot of suspicion. Right after, the scene focuses on one of the adventurer leader's feet stepping firmly on a cracked stone on the floor. With the new group formed, the students and the three adventurers start walking together down the dark stone corridor. Walking in the back, the team's thief whispers his cowardly plan to run away and leave the students behind in case of danger. The red-haired adventurer shows a wicked smile while he plans to keep all the treasures from the secret location for himself. Noticing the leader's distraction, the boy calls him, and Max tries to play it off by warning about the presence of traps in tight spaces. Raising his finger thoughtfully, the older guy explains that there could be spears and arrows triggered by pressure plates on the floor. At that exact moment, the young protagonist accidentally steps on a loose stone block, sinking the structure into the ground. Feeling very awkward, the hero asks if that would be a trap plate, and the team leader agrees, breaking a cold sweat at the scene. A thunderous sound echoes through the corridor, and the rocky ceiling right above them begins to crack and collapse in a scary way. The massive block of stone starts falling toward the floor, and the group of young ones watches the scene with their eyes wide open in fear. The adventurer screams desperately about the boy's lack of attention, asking the students to do something right there. The beginner mage gets scared upon hearing her leader's scream calling for her and panics, pointing to herself nervously. With no other choice, the young woman points her wooden staff upwards, prepares to conjure a strong purple magic arrow. The spell hits the giant stone but ends up shattering into little pieces of light, leaving the small student completely in shock. The team leader falls into despair when he notices that the falling rock was a special sealing stone immune to magical spells. Scared by the warning, the protagonist quickly questions if there is any other viable way to destroy that massive block. Max remembers a very powerful adventurer slicing through the material, but soon states it is impossible for them and suggests a quick escape. The young man smiles confidently, stating he can break the stone with physical strikes, and steps forward while the adventurer calls him an idiot. The young student prepares his martial arts technique, wrapping his own fist in a bright blue energy aura. With absurd strength, the guy lands a direct punch against the giant rock and manages to shatter the structure into countless pieces. The large pieces of stone fall down the corridor, and the trio of adventurers watches the scene completely jaw-dropped and paralyzed. The elf smiles, praising the boy, while the student in pink asks him to be very careful, drawing a friendly apology from him. The team continues walking calmly through the dungeon, while the elf destroys a flying red scythe with her magic. Advancing through the location, Charlotte slices dangerous vines with her sword, and the hero attacks with a green aura, breaking the stone wall. The veteran smiles excitedly at the stroll through the dangerous place, but the little girl with glasses highlights the lack of treasure chests. Max points to a new, deeper path, and the young protagonist agrees excitedly to continue the exploration. The trio of adventurers breaks a cold sweat, realizing it is totally impossible to try to trick the much stronger students. As they walk down the lit corridor, the mercenaries wonder how they ended up joining some very strange people. Soon after, the group reaches the bottom of the dungeon, and everyone is amazed by the immense size of the rocky cave. Suddenly, the hero notices something in the center of the place and gets a surprised expression on his face. The image focuses on a small red magical sphere floating in the air, and someone wonders if that would be the treasure. Everyone gathers near the glowing sphere and tries to understand what that mysterious object floating in the center could be. The strange reddish item emits a very bright flash of light and suddenly begins to pulse with great energy. A beam of light connects the sphere to the two young ones, while a mechanical voice announces the heroic factor verification. The analysis is concluded quickly and the system detects two qualified individuals initiating their transfer. A huge pillar of pink light appears in the room, and the blonde elf tries to reach the protagonist, calling out his name. The dust begins to settle, revealing that the two young ones have completely disappeared from the sight of the adventurers there. Furious, the elf shakes the team leader, demanding to know the hero's whereabouts while he also despairs. Trying to keep the peace, the girl with glasses asks the elf-iris to calm down, since panicking would not bring him back. Acknowledging her mistake, the blonde apologizes for losing her composure, and the adventurer claims to understand the situation. Thinking for a bit, the guy deduces that the two must have suffered a teleportation spell to another secret room. The adventurer speaks to the veteran named Xian, confessing he feels something very bad approaching them at that moment. With a serious look, the young woman concludes that the sphere analyzed everyone and chose only the two friends to advance to the next room. The red-haired mercenary is shocked by the conclusion and begins to connect the dots with sheer dread. The veteran states that they are no longer useful there, and heavy pieces of stone begin to fall from the ceiling along with a pink light. The dust cloud reveals a giant monster made of purple rocks and glowing red eyes, roaring at the group. Everyone stares at the massive golem in fear, while the student wonders how long they will hold out without the hero there. Far away, the young adventurer grumbles, feeling a bit dizzy, rubbing his face after the intense teleportation. The pink-haired girl notices the beautiful, brightly lit room with pillars and deduces that only the two of them ended up being pulled in. Rui-sha expresses concern for the rest of the team, but the student states that he should worry more about himself. Drawing her sword with a serious expression, the warrior warns about the huge chance of the place being even more dangerous. Surprised by his teammate's protective attitude, the boy observes the determination stamped on the young swordswoman's face. Trying to calm his teammate's nerves, the guy touches her hand very gently to comfort her. The girl's body shivers slightly at the gentle touch, while the student affectionately asks her to calm down. With a beautiful, encouraging smile, the hero guarantees that he is there to help her and warms the frightened warrior's heart. With her face completely flushed, the pink-haired girl looks at her companion, feeling her heart beat faster. Trying to hide her embarrassment, the warrior claims she can protect herself alone, but the boy smiles, asking for her protection. Hearing the friendly request, the student agrees with great joy and squeezes her colleague's hand very firmly. Right after, the protagonist promises to fulfill his role as a knight, and the two walk hand in hand through the area. The students' footsteps echo through the environment as they cross the entrance of a large lit stone room. Amazed by the new place, the young ones observe every detail of the immense structure, showing faces of pure surprise. At the back of the room, they notice the presence of a figure wearing a dark cloak, standing before a gigantic painted mural. The mysterious hooded person reacts silently, seeming to quickly notice the presence of intruders in the room. The hero steps forward confused and questions why that person is there, since no one should have entered the ruins before. Suspicious of a possible attack, the boy draws his golden sword and demands to know the stranger's true identity. The mysterious individual turns his face slightly and reveals with a calm voice that he was already waiting for their arrival there. The person calls the students bearers of the hero's will, leaving the couple completely confused and apprehensive. Claiming not to be an enemy, the mysterious figure asks the two to follow him and starts walking slowly down the corridor. The young warrior comments that she does not feel any malicious intent, and the protagonist decides to follow the stranger due to a lack of options. With that, the young man takes the first step and walks cautiously, trying to understand the hidden secrets of that magical place. Soon after, the duo comes across an impressive sight, and the pink-haired girl lets out a sound of pure enchantment. The huge, colorful mural displays the painting of a powerful armored knight next to a magical fairy and a beastman. Looking at the art up close, the boy recognizes the dark armored warrior and deduces it to be the legendary and famous hero Og. The stranger agrees, stating it is a representation of the third hero, and the student immediately asks the purpose of that place. The mysterious individual hears the youngsters' questioning and promises to answer all their doubts very patiently. The figure speaks understandingly about the kid's surprise while the two students widen their eyes in shock. The face of the mysterious being reveals completely melted and scary skin as he tries to introduce himself to the young ones. But the creature forgets his own name and complains about hating having a cursed body, making the students break a cold sweat at the scene. Regaining his posture, the being explains that the place is a protection facility created to guard the hero's crucial information. The undead guardian reveals he is part of that ancient facility and confesses to having waited a long time to pass on the data correctly. Noticing the stranger's great dedication, the young protagonist asks if he chose to live in that cursed form. Without hesitating, the deformed-faced creature agrees with the deduction and reveals he accepted an immortal body of his own free will. Looking at the old painted mural, the immortal prepares to tell the true story of the great hero and his companions. Meanwhile, the narrative returns to the group of adventurers cornered by the gigantic stone golem with glowing red eyes. The blonde elf takes a step forward, showing enormous confidence, and warns that she will take care of the giant monster without any difficulty. The blonde elf conjures a crimson magic spear and throws the magical weapon toward the massive golem. The reddish spear hits the monster's stone body, but ends up breaking into several pieces instantly. The red-haired adventurer is shocked to see the magic fail and realizes that the monster is made of the magical sealing stone. The elf is left completely reactionless while the team leader shouts, asking her to fall back immediately. Without thinking twice, the warrior steps firmly on the stone floor and prepares to launch a new attack. The young woman jumps quickly toward the immense creature and delivers a strong kick straight to its stone chest. The impact of the physical blow is very heavy, and the elf lets out a groan of pain upon feeling the hardness of that material. The girl falls to her knees panting and realizes that the gigantic monster took 0 damage from her attack. Frustrated with the situation, the small young woman widens her glowing red eyes and lets out a quiet curse word. Given no time for rest, the giant golem raises its immense fist and strikes the ground with extreme violence. With no way to dodge the fast attack, the elf closes her glowing eyes and prepares to take the impact. But the little tamer riding her huge centipede grabs the elf by the waist and saves her at the last second. The little girl places her companion on the ground carefully and asks her to fall back and trust her friends a little more. Quite surprised, the blonde elf asks why her colleague risked herself so much to protect her life there. The young tamer tries to hold back a light laugh by covering her mouth, and the warrior gets annoyed, asking for the reason. With an amused smile, the little girl apologizes for laughing and asks again what her real reason for helping her was. The blonde-haired girl widens her eyes, surprised by the question, and tries to find an answer in her own heart. The scene cuts back to the two young students, talking to the hooded figure in the room lit by large pillars. The undead being explains that adopting that body allows him to live for many years while preserving all his old memories. But the creature reveals that many people lose their minds when they see their bodies slowly falling apart without being able to do anything. With a look of pure sadness, the young warrior asks if the stranger spent the last 300 years all alone there. The immortal being lets out a little laugh, asking her not to be sad, because their arrival was already the greatest reward. Excited by the youngster's presence, the undead points to the huge mural painted on the wall and decides to continue the explanation. He reveals that the painting shows the heroes group, known as the strongest in history for defeating an evil king. The pink-haired girl is very surprised because none of her old ancestors had ever told that story. The figure laments that the data only exists there, but confesses that his own memory is also getting very faulty. He points to the drawn woman, explaining she is Titania, the great fairy queen from a realm far away. Right after, he shows the huge beastman with defined muscles, revealing him to be Balmung, the powerful king of the three worlds. The young protagonist observes the old painting with great curiosity and asks what the warrior's personality was like. The immortal tries to force his mind by touching his sinister hand to his head, making the two students break a cold sweat at the scene. The undead being twists his own head around, and the young warrior is totally terrified by the creature's bizarre attitude. After messing with his own brain, the hooded monster claims to finally remember that Balmung was the strongest fighter of all. The student is amazed by the Beast King's great skill and comments that he will ask his wolf master questions about him later. The painting shows a snake woman named Echidna, and the undead says she commanded an entire race and could foresee the future. Rui-sha has never heard of her, and the girl in pink confesses she knows nothing, lamenting inheriting such mysterious secrets. The protagonist realizes that the ancient heroes were not human, and the girl hears his comment with a very thoughtful look. The young woman suspects that her ancestor wanted to avoid scandals and feels sorry since the truth could have ended a lot of prejudice. The young man smiles, stating there is a reason for everything, and the warrior girl gives thanks for her dear friend's great comfort. The student asks why the boy is there, and he smiles awkwardly, thinking it has a connection to his previous imprisonment. With new hope, the young man clenches his fist and claims he might find some secret clue about the infinite prison seal. Excited, he asks if the guardian has any more advice, and the stranger asks for a brief moment to jog his own memory. The creature pokes his macabre head again and remembers an old quote from the great hero for times of difficulty. The undead reveals that people should always trust their allies if they encountered any great danger in the facilities. Confused by the hint, the young man repeats the phrase about trusting allies, and his mind begins to process the situation clearly. The monster then warns about the other invaders being under attack, and Rui-sha panics at the late news. The student focuses his energy into his own shoes and creates a bright greenish aura while apologizing to his companion. Without hesitating, the guy jumps, destroying the stone ceiling with his green aura, and the undead is shocked, questioning the hero's strength. The immortal stares at his own glowing ghostly hand, confesses to feeling very lonely now that he has fulfilled his ancient duty. Very grateful, the pink-haired girl holds the creature's hands and thanks him for all the effort dedicated to her beloved clan. The student hugs the macabre figure with a lot of love and declares that the undead guardian was also a grand hero in history. The monster sheds tears of emotion, recognizing the nobility in the young woman's blood, and says goodbye, wishing eternal peace for the whole world. The creature's body loses its shape and melts onto the dungeon floor, turning entirely to dust, while the girl watches everything in silence. The young swordswoman clenches her fist in the magical dust left by the undead, swearing to carry on that guardian's ancient will. A bright pink flower mark emerges on the girl's hand, sealing the massive promise between her and the mysterious ruin. With an expression full of determination, the warrior girl swears to continue her difficult path as the fourth-generation heroine. Far from there, the scene returns to the other girls, and the elf tries to process the reason why she received help during the heavy attack. Still confused by her own feelings, the blonde student reflects on whether she can understand the true value of that alliance. At that moment, the adventurer leader runs desperately and yells for the girls to fall back quickly from the furious monster. The immense stone foot hits the ground with severe violence, raising smoke and crushing the space where they were standing earlier. Totally shocked, the redhead analyzes the monster's destructive strength and magical immunity, considering the beast a rank A. The red-haired adventurer calls his partners and suggests they flee the dungeon because they do not have the strength to beat that thing. The group's thief breaks a cold sweat and warns that the magical escape item has mysteriously stopped working inside that room. Fearful, the mage agrees to stay quiet in the corner of the corridor so as not to get in the students' way during the combat. The trio of mercenaries watches from afar while the small young woman with glasses commands her monsters against the target. Noticing the girl's effort, the team leader swallows hard and begins to hesitate about his cowardly decision to run away. In the middle of the fight, the blonde-haired elf jumps backward quickly, narrowly escaping an enemy attack. Panting and very tired, the warrior lands on the stone floor and tries to catch her breath after spending a lot of energy. Without wasting time, the young woman jumps backward again when the immense stone leg tries to step on her fragile body. The gigantic rocky arm comes down with absurd speed and hits the ground with great violence, kicking up dust. The student backs away, gritting her teeth in frustration as she notices that her clothes are torn due to the heavy strikes. The warrior holds her injured arm with an expression of pain and tries to endure the pressure of the dangerous combat. Right then, the blonde young woman notices something strange happening on the battlefield and expresses deep confusion. A purple smoke takes over the giant stone monster's leg and glues it to the ground, leaving the girl impressed. The adventurer named Max runs up to the student and asks if she is okay, while the elf agrees, still confused. She cannot believe the trio held off the golem and watches the purple slime sticking its foot strongly to the floor. With a big smile, the mercenary shows a sticky bomb capable of paralyzing large monsters for a few minutes. Soon after, the group's thief approaches in a friendly manner and offers a green potion for the warrior to drink. Very attentive, the team's mage bandages the student's injured leg while assuring her that everything will be fine now. The elf gives thanks for the gentle treatment but states that it would be much wiser if the group had fled the dungeon. Hearing the girl's words, the leader lowers his gaze and confesses that they really would run away in a normal situation. Hiding nothing, Max admits that they used to use other explorers as bait to escape with their lives. The narrative shows the trio's memory of carrying sacks of gold while other warriors fought in the back of the room. But the redhead explains that he started to rethink his cowardly acts after seeing the young hero's bravery breaking the rock. He remembered his own childhood dream when he held a wooden sword wishing to be a great adventurer. With an encouraging smile, the guy states that they will help in the battle no matter the cost, surprising the elf. The mage and the thief join the conversation excitedly and promise to show the true pride of beginner adventurers. The massive creature with red eyes begins to thrash violently, trying to free its foot glued to the stone floor. An intense magical energy surges in the rocky monster's hand, and flames of fire begin to glow in the dark environment. The golem uses the strong heat of the flames on its own leg to melt the purple slime holding it in place. Freeing its leg, the monster attacks with a flaming punch while the mage and the thief scream in pure despair. The red-haired adventurer smiles confidently beside the elf and comments on the massive stone creature's immense durability. Showing no fear, the guy pulls his slingshot very firmly and claims he is counting on the help of his dear partner. The blonde warrior is shocked, questioning if he will fight using only that, and the leader tells her to watch the attack. Preparing his aim, the mercenary explains that this small weapon has managed to save his life countless times in the past. With a very agile move, he shoots a small round sphere, revealing it to be a powerful smoke bomb against the enemy. The small object hits the immense creature's rocky body, creating a large explosion of gray smoke throughout the room. Taking advantage of the monster's distraction, the thief and the mage run across the battlefield, praising their leader's strategy. The purple-haired young mage hands a greenish potion to the tamer with glasses, who gives thanks for being saved earlier. The thief hands a healing flask to the brown-haired veteran, and she thanks him a lot for the great surprise help. The smoke clears, revealing the giant golem staring at the redhead and the elf, while the guy laments that the situation is not easy at all. Accepting the challenge, the brave adventurer readies his slingshot again, swearing to do everything in his power. He shoots a new special bomb that explodes right on the creature's foot, spreading a very slippery oil on the stone floor. Right after, the skilled blue-haired thief also throws a flask containing a type of magical oil at the creature. The liquid spreads across the giant monster's chest and shoulders while the guy yells, warning that the rest is up to his mage. The purple-haired girl answers the call, wielding her wooden staff and creating a strong blue magical spear. She fires her powerful spell, and the impact causes a massive combustion, wrapping the creature in dazzling purple flames. The team leader smiles very excitedly and comments that this whole grand combo would work even on a higher-level monster. But the golem's fearsome red eyes glow again through the smoke, interrupting the redhead's brief moment of joy. Taking no damage, the stone monster charges with great brutality and swings its enormous arm toward the young adventurer. Totally in shock, the mercenary realizes the plan failed and breaks into a cold sweat, trying to think of a new way to escape. The blonde elf jumps and pushes the guy to the side at the exact moment a gigantic red spear blocks the enemy's punch. The impact generates a strong shockwave, kicking up dust, while the fallen adventurer realizes he has just been saved. With immense relief, the mercenary thanks the beautiful girl, calling the young woman his savior, but the warrior denies the title immediately. The blonde-haired student blushes slightly and confesses to doing only what felt most natural in that desperate situation. The blonde recalls the little tamer's words about the real reason to help other people without overthinking it. The memory shows the moment the warrior protected the adventurer in the past, revealing she acted without thinking of the consequences. With a beautiful smile, the young elf claims that people do not need a grand reason to help the others around them. The mercenary watches the warrior, commenting that he feels much stronger fighting alongside allies than completely alone. The student's face takes on an expression of pure confidence and determination, while her eyes shine intensely. Facing the giant stone golem, the brave elf announces that it is now her turn to attack and prepares for a fierce combat. The blonde elf stares at the gigantic stone golem as she prepares for the enraged monster's heavy attack. The stone creature swings its massive arm with great speed, creating a strong gust of air in the area. With agility, the girl manages to jump backward at the last second, avoiding the giant beast's dangerous strike. Mid-air, the warrior summons her intermediate-level dark energy sword with a deeply focused expression. She lands, driving the crimson blade deep into one of the enemy's rocky joints to test its resilience. The giant monster slowly turns its face to look at the girl on its shoulder, showing zero damage from the attack. With a very sudden movement, the creature hits the young warrior head-on, throwing her far away with brutality. The blonde student flies through the air, letting out a groan of pain upon feeling the heavy impact of the blow on her fragile body. She hits the stone floor with great violence, kicking up dust, while the red-haired adventurer runs to help her. The team leader offers a healing potion to the injured elf, while the monster's heavy footsteps draw closer. Trembling with fear, the adventurer squeezes his eyes shut, gritting his teeth, and laments feeling completely useless there. The injured young woman smiles softly and comforts the guy, stating that his sad words were not true. A large dust cloud appears suddenly, and a confident voice echoes, praising the team's excellent work. The young hero appears in front of the two, acting as a strong protective shield against the massive golem's advance. With a handsome smile, the protagonist turns his face and apologizes for making everyone wait so long. The stone monster does not back down and begins to charge a glowing energy attack in its enormous rocky mouth. Keeping his cool, the student extends his hands, conjuring his analysis magic, which creates blue screens around him. The spell ends up being deflected, and the boy quickly deduces that the creature is made of the famous magical sealing stone. Holding a small flame of energy, he realizes the reason for their struggle and decides to use a special physical technique. The hero draws his golden sword and charges at high speed toward the rocky enemy for the great showdown. Wrapped in a blue aura, the young man swings his blade with extreme force, executing a powerful dimensional slash. The swift attack hits the monster dead on and cuts the giant rocky body in half in a massive explosion of light. The pieces of the golem collapse to the floor, and the protagonist lands very softly after finishing off the tough opponent. The boy sighs in relief, wiping the sweat from his face, and guarantees with a smile that the situation is under control now. Very worried about his allies, the student runs to the mage and the thief, asking if they have suffered severe injuries. The trio cries with emotion, grabbing the hero's hands and begging on their knees to become his faithful followers. The brown-haired veteran approaches relieved, commenting on how life beside the hero is always an adventure. The protagonist points to the little tamer with glasses, explaining that she was the one truly responsible for helping them. With a flushed face, the elf claps her hands near her chest, revealing that she always believed in her hero's return there. The young man holds the warrior's hands affectionately and thanks her for protecting their friends during the battle. Arriving at the scene, the pink-haired warrior comments in relief that things also seem to have been resolved over there. The protagonist welcomes his friend, praising her good work and noting that the situation was quite difficult for everyone. Next, the young woman notices the presence of the smiling adventurers and states that the boy tends to attract strange people. But the little tamer with glasses feels the ground shake violently and shows great surprise at that noise. The red-haired adventurer panics seeing the falling stones and screams, warning that the dungeon is starting to collapse. With sweat drops on his face, the young student warns that everyone will be buried alive if they do not escape that place fast. Desperate, the team leader grumbles that the exit should have appeared after they beat the place, but there was no sign of it. Hearing that comment, the hero slightly widens his eyes and understands the real reason behind that problem. He remembers that this ancient dungeon was built specifically to keep all the hero's secrets very safe. Soon he deduces that the destruction of the golem triggers a double trap to bury the invaders alive with the facility. The small young woman asks if the adventurer has anything useful for an escape, and he confirms, hesitating a little in his answer. With a very serious expression on his face, the mercenary leader draws his two companions' attention cautiously. The mercenary hands 3 glowing red stones to the young hero, and explains they are teleportation artifacts. Since there are only 3 magical items left, the adventurer warns that the group of students will need to choose who gets to escape. The redhead refuses to flee and asks the young ones to take the stones because they are capable of truly helping people. The hero gives thanks for the leader's nobility but returns the stones, stating it is impossible to choose who should be saved there. Holding his partner's hand, the student reveals he is greedy, not wanting either his friends or the mercenaries to lose their lives. Asking for a leap of faith, the boy clasps his hands together and begins to charge a powerful, radiant magical energy. The 2 girls watch the massive golden energy shining in the dark room and are enchanted by the beauty of that power. With tears in her eyes, the blonde elf recognizes that magic immediately and clasps her hands in a very hopeful prayer. Sweating from the effort, the young man maintains a totally focused expression to manage to control the immense destructive energy. Wasting no time, the protagonist fires the intense radiant magical flash, creating a huge pillar of light toward the ceiling. The elf warrior smiles as she deduces that this strong magic can nullify and erase the dungeon made purely of magical power. The hero loses his strength, falling exhausted into his companion's arms, and she supports him affectionately, thanking him for the effort. The elf asks if the tamer has any way to fly, and the little girl with glasses assures them that this is her specialty. A huge flying magical beetle appears, carrying the whole group on its back toward the hole in the ceiling made by the protagonist. They finally manage to escape the cave safely, and the veteran comments on how fun it all was, scaring the rookies. Soon after, the focus shifts to nighttime, showing the great friend saying goodbye at the door of the student dormitory. Walking exhausted through the courtyard, the boy grumbles about his aging body until he is surprised by an old friend on the way. The long-haired young man questions his friend's terrible condition, complaining about his enormous delay in returning to the room. The protagonist apologizes and Kojiro asks about the use of the healing potion, demanding the flask back right after. The friend applies the medicine to the boy's back, warning that it will sting, and he groans in pain, confirming the strong burning sensation. Soon after, the hero notices that his body feels much better, and his colleague brags, claiming his medicine works miracles. With a gentle smile, the long-haired guy says he is relieved by his friend's safety and advises him not to push himself so hard. The young man puts his clothes back on and gives many thanks for his partner's tips about taking a hot bath and resting. The student realizes his ally was very worried and decides to thank him properly at school the next day. The next day, the story shows the room illuminated by the morning sun rays hitting the protagonist's tidy bed. The boy wakes up focused and starts doing push-ups on the bedroom floor with an expression of deep exhaustion on his face. Worn out from the intense training, the hero collapses on the wooden floor while a large bird approaches him through the door. A giant bird with yellow and red feathers holds a fruit in its beak, and the young adventurer calls it by the name of Pollen. Very excited, the boy takes the giant food, giving thanks for the bird's enormous affection and picking that for him. The hero pets the bird and announces that the time to head to school again is approaching at that moment. In another location, Kojiro gathers some young apprentices and announces that this day would be his last special lecture. With a serene expression, the long-haired instructor confesses to having greatly enjoyed that short period with everyone. Hearing the sudden announcement, the young protagonist widens his eyes in confusion while standing next to the girl in pink. His teammate notices the boy's distraction and asks the reason, but he smiles, pretending it was nothing. Thoughtful, the student tries to understand the situation, noticing that his great friend seems to be much sadder than usual. The master assists the armored student and advises him not to hold the sword so rigidly to avoid dropping the heavy weapon. He explains that the focus should be only on the exact moment of the strike and praises the guy's improved posture during combat. Thrilled by the great praise, the young warrior clenches his fist, determined to improve his strong skills even further. Satisfied with the student, the instructor turns his face and calls the next blonde-haired student by the title of Prince. The little guy holds a fancy magical staff and asks for advice, revealing his interest in learning techniques with weapons. The older warrior smiles and reveals he has a lot of experience with staffs, offering to teach the basic principles. The two distance themselves in the courtyard, and the master asks the blonde boy to block a light strike using his newly learned defense. The young prince assumes a defensive stance, wielding his staff firmly, and shows he is totally focused on that. Analyzing his student, the instructor praises the good combat posture and the strong expression of determination on the boy's face. The swordsman draws his sharp sword from the scabbard with a cold look, lamenting the situation in his silent thoughts. With the large blade pointed at his student, the master announces that he will begin his attack at that very moment. Breaking a cold sweat from the tension, the blonde young man agrees with the warning and holds the magic staff, preparing his main defense. The swordsman raises the weapon above his head with both hands and prepares to deliver a heavy strike under the clear blue sky. The young prince acts fast and uses his magical staff to block the strong blow, creating a spark of light. The long-haired instructor forces his blade against the staff, while the blonde boy stares at him, quite frightened. Trying to resist the pressure, the student grips his staff tightly and shows great determination in his eyes. The older warrior closes his eyes slowly, taking on a slightly sad and deeply thoughtful expression. Then the master opens his eyes darkly and apologizes in a very low and cold tone of voice. Without hesitating, the swordsman delivers a very fast, swift striking attack, hitting the little prince's body dead on. The blonde boy falls unconscious to the ground with his staff by his side, while the other students watch the scene totally in shock. The hero's friends widen their eyes in sheer dread, unable to understand the master's sudden and violent action. The instructor raises his sword coldly and points the sharp tip of the blade directly at the fallen prince's head. With an empty look, the warrior prepares for the final strike and says goodbye to the young student without mercy. But Rui-sha appears quickly through the dust and blocks the instructor's sword, using his own golden blade. The protagonist stares at his friend with an expression of immense anger and demands to know the true reason for all that mess. The young armored warrior curses the master and screams, asking what he thinks he is doing with the prince. Furious, the armored guy claims that trash like him should never lay a finger on the little student. His redhead colleague tries to calm the angry friend, while the warrior swears he will finish off the terrible attacker right there. The hero reaches out, asking the guy not to get carried away by fury, but the armored student refuses to back down. Trying to defuse the situation, the protagonist whispers something in his colleague's ear, leaving him quite shocked by the information. After hearing the secret, the warrior lowers his head, calming down, and decides to leave the fight in the brave hero's hands. Rui-sha asks his friend to protect the other students while the pink-haired girl observes all the tension of the scene. With their swords drawn, the protagonist and his former master face each other in the courtyard while the wind blows the green leaves. The two swordsmen take their combat stances under the apprehensive gaze of the young warrior standing further back. The student clenches her fist worriedly, noticing there are no openings and feeling the massive difference in power between the two. The boy with cat ears also feels useless, lamenting not having enough strength to help his great friend. The pink-haired young woman agrees, confessing she feels like a burden and understands all the great frustration of that bad moment. But she asks the boy to pay close attention to the hero's fight and use that enormous bravery as a strong inspiration. With a heavy heart, the warrior grips her own clothes and prays silently for the protagonist to return safely. The brown-haired student stares at the instructor with sadness and asks the reason he committed such a cruel act. The hero remembers the swordsman's kindness and concern during training, believing that was his true face. With his face covered by a dark shadow, the warrior replies that the situation is not simple to understand at all. The man asks nicely for the boy to step aside, swearing he has no intention of hurting anyone else besides the prince. The attacker thinks to himself that the attack should have been final, but decides to ensure the elimination of the target just to be safe. The hero defends his fallen friend and states it is impossible to step back because there are no guarantees the other students will be safe. The long-haired man agrees with the boy's reasoning, revealing it would be foolish to trust the words of a ruthless attacker. Readying his glowing blade, the opponent reveals he has his reasons not to retreat in any way before the young student. Showing no mercy, the experienced master points his sword at the hero and warns that he will use brute force to move forward. The two warriors' blades clash with extreme violence, while the attacker reinforces his strong will to complete his mission. With a piercing look, the swordsman warns that he will begin his real assault and charges at the brave student all at once. The man moves with absurd speed through the courtyard, leaving a huge luminous trail that surprises the young protagonist. Appearing right in front of the boy, the master delivers a terrible top-down strike, forcing the student to defend himself with difficulty. Resting one knee on the dirt floor, the hero manages to duck quickly and narrowly dodges a terrible horizontal slash. Using his golden sword, the boy parries the flurry of brutal attacks with great difficulty, generating large sparks of light. The opponent takes a brief pause, praising the boy's immense physical endurance and admiring his excellent golden sword. Sweating from the enormous effort, the student smiles confidently and reveals that he received all those qualities from his great masters. Without losing his rhythm, the protagonist falls back with great agility, dodging the new slash, and swears he will not be defeated easily. The master delivers another fast and brutal attack, forcing his young opponent to use his own blade to endure that impact. The terrible strike makes the hero let out a muffled scream of pain as he tries to steady his feet on the dirt ground so he will not fall. Realizing the extreme disadvantage in close combat, the young man jumps back, seeking to create a good gap between the two there. Taking advantage of the safe distance, the boy extends his hand and conjures a flaming fire magic against his dangerous opponent. A massive wave of burning flames lights up the environment and advances at high speed toward the calm warrior in the courtyard. The warrior praises the pure quality of the spell conjured but asks the young student if he really thought he could win like that. Showing no concern, the master swordsman raises his heavy sword up high, announcing his stone-style technique. With a single fluid motion, the terrifying sharp blade comes down with full force and manages to slice the massive wave of flames in half. The young student widens his eyes, impressed, realizing the ineffectiveness of his own magical attack against the strong opponent. Pushing through the flames, the enemy attacks swiftly, warning that the hero should not waste his time looking shocked. Delivering a series of harsh, heavy blows, the swordsman points out that the true foundation of combat is doing what the enemy hates. The warrior analyzes the boy's attributes, noticing little difference in strength, but highlights the young man's massive lack of experience. Under heavy pressure from the master, the student tries to endure the heavy impacts while the attacker plans to end the fight right there. The experienced man goes into sudden shock when he notices that all his strikes are not even hitting the young hero. Facing the combat with deep seriousness, the skilled student starts predicting all the enemy's movements very quickly. Panting, the young man is glad to notice that watching his friend's training sessions helped him easily understand that complex style. The master strikes with his sword from top to bottom, while the hero manages to block the blow with his golden blade. Pressured by the weight of the attack, the boy thinks of creating a safe distance so he can use his magic freely. But the student analyzes the opponent's steps, noticing that his sliding technique makes his movements unpredictable. The experienced swordsman smiles subtly while the protagonist finally manages to find a small opening. The attacker moves fast and lands a critical blow on the young hero's chest with his terrible secret technique. Right after, the skilled warrior strikes the student's face with the hilt of his sword, praising his strength. The long-haired man is engulfed by a large thermal illusion barrier using the 7th magical defense form. The older warrior widens his eyes, extremely surprised, when the young student reappears right in front of him. Surrounded by a glowing magical aura, the hero grips his weapon and warns that he is going to end that intense fight. The boy fires a massive golden light beam with a dimensional slash while the instructor steps back, praising the attack. The opponent prepares his Heavenly Rock-style secret sword and points out that the move would only be good if it actually hit. The attacker executes his ultimate reversal and hits the young student's body with a slicing red light beam. Taking massive damage, the protagonist falls to his knees on the ground and lets out a groan of pain before the experienced warrior. The experienced man asks the boy not to get discouraged and praises his good work against that great lethal technique. The defeated student collapses on the ground while the attacker announces he will check the little prince's breathing and leave. At that moment, the protagonist's friends step in front of the warrior and block his path with serious expressions. The master swordsman confesses he does not like unnecessary fights and promises not to hurt anyone if everyone backs away. The pink-haired girl is outraged by the proposal and warns the man not to underestimate the group's strong bonds. With a very somber look, the long-haired man laments the decision and warns that the situation cannot be avoided. He points his large sharp blade at the students and swears he will have to make the 3 of them suffer a little. Totally exhausted on the dirt ground, the young hero tries to move and reaches his hand out toward his great friends. The wounded boy quietly begs them to wait, feeling deep despair at seeing his group in huge danger. The scene shifts to a serene place where the white-haired master praises the kneeling young hero's great growth. The horned woman points out that the boy still lacks something essential, and the student asks what could be missing. With a beautiful smile, the experienced master reveals that he lacks the determination to face the outside world. The serious woman warns that a dark time will come when the boy will need to defeat an opponent for good. The peaceful student tries to argue that any conflict can be resolved by talking, and the master understands his purity. The horned woman hugs the young hero affectionately and comforts the boy, stating that his kindness is also a strength. But she emphasizes that dialogue does not prevent wars and warns that the most important things can be lost quickly. The memory warns him not to hesitate in decisive moments, and the injured boy on the ground agrees with that final advice. Rui-sha mentally apologizes to his old master while the pink-haired girl watches everything very worriedly. Kneeling and hurt, the hero confesses he has just remembered that important teaching from the past. The long-haired master is surprised to see that the boy can still get up even with so many severe injuries. But the warrior highlights the guy's weakness and asks if he really plans to keep fighting in that deplorable state. Panting and badly bruised, the young student looks up with an expression of pure determination to continue the fight. Understanding his student's attitude, the instructor apologizes for treating him like a child and swears to eliminate him as a real obstacle. Without wasting time, the powerful swordsman delivers a heavy top-down strike, warning he will put an end to the young boy's journey. At that moment, the hero reacts fast and slides his foot across the dirt ground, showing enormous movement agility. With this subtle move, the protagonist dodges the slashing blow, passing very close to the older warrior's body. Totally shocked by the dodge, the master widens his eyes, unable to believe the speed of that counterattack. The man deduces that the boy just copied his own sliding step and is amazed by his rapid evolution in battle. Facing his opponent head-on, the young man maintains a fully focused gaze and shows no sign of hesitation. Taking advantage of the huge distraction, the hero strikes his master's chest very hard, causing a heavy impact on his body. The swordsman steps back feeling pain and notes that the small student's strikes are much more precise and sharp than before. Giving no chance for rest, the guy pushes forward with his blade wrapped in flaming energy, initiating his third form. He spins his body quickly in the air and lands a powerful kick covered in blue flames against the startled swordsman's guard. The man falls back with his guard up, and the boy sincerely gives thanks for learning about the terror of battle and true determination. Injured but very confident, the brave student swears he will surpass his instructor, using the strength received from the man himself. Irritated by the student's boldness, the man grips his sword tightly and tells the boy not to get too cocky. The master attacks, but the agile boy appears behind his back, delivering a luminous slash and proving his enormous growth there. Taking the damage, the warrior notices the boy's absurd change in strength and concludes it is impossible to come just from willpower. Looking back with an astonished expression, the man stammers, trying to understand what is happening with his opponent. The image shows the protagonist's bruised face displaying a mysterious red eye glowing in an intense reddish color. With a slight smile, the hero touches near his eye and gives silent thanks for receiving his master's great power. The memory reveals a conversation where the boy marveled at the woman's ability to read movements before he even acted. Excited by the guy's perception, the skilled instructor hugs him affectionately and promises to teach a very special lesson. Pointing to her own reddish eyes, she explains it as the dragon eye, belonging only to combat specialists. She details that the skill allows one to see life force and muscle tension to predict all enemy attacks. Amazed, the boy wishes to have that wonderful power, but the seated woman explains it is exclusive to the dragon race. Soon after, the master smiles playfully and guarantees that her dear student will also be able to use the special technique. The horned woman explains she injected her own blood into him to awaken the dragon clan's special power technique. The boy holds the master's hands asking about the dragon eye, and she warns that the awakening will not be that easy. Touching his own face, the student hears that the power will emerge when he feels his life is in grave danger. The skilled instructor smiles gently and assures him that the dragon race's strength will certainly come to the young boy's aid. Back to the current fight, the protagonist shows a wound on his face while mentally thanking his dear master. The long-haired warrior is startled when he notices the change in the boy and realizes the true vision the master possessed. The skilled swordsman steps forward in a fast attack and dares the young hero to try to dodge that slashing strike. The student steps back, using his blade to defend himself, and realizes that the big frontal move was just a feint. With his reddish eye glowing, the hero calmly analyzes the next steps and decides exactly how to block the attack. The swordsman attacks with force, but the young man finds a perfect opening and hits the master dead on, dealing massive damage. The attacker holds his own wounded arm while the protagonist warns that he will no longer be able to use his sword. Taken over by fury, the instructor claims that the wound is small and tells the young student not to underestimate his great strength. The master suffers a very serious wound and loses his weapon while mentally reinforcing his grand reason to fight. Even injured, the swordsman holds the sword with his other hand and swears he will do everything to win that decisive battle. The brave boy holds his golden blade firmly, stating he cannot lose either in order to protect his friends. The two warriors run toward each other for a brutal clash, while the hero criticizes the master's massive selfishness. The blades clash, generating bright sparks, and the student screams that he became much stronger to overcome all of that. Facing his opponent up close, the young man is impressed by the warrior's intense obsession even after taking such heavy damage. The protagonist jumps back quickly, creating a safe gap in the dirt courtyard, and reinforces that he will not let himself be defeated. Focusing an intense flaming magic into his injured body, the student prepares the first attack form of the dragon art. With eyes full of determination, the young warrior steps forward and delivers the powerful dragon star punch against the enemy. The swordsman holds his weapon covered in a purple aura and challenges the boy to try to endure his grand final attack. A giant sword of light appears floating in the sky, and the man announces his impressive general-level magical technique. The guy knows that magic requires a special crest, but he understands he needs to overcome it to save his allies. Surrounded by a strong, bright light, the hero charges forward with all his courage, letting out a huge yell of pure determination. The young man's magic violently clashes against the enemy's immense energy barrier, making the student groan in pain. The boy digs his own foot into the dirt floor, resisting the strong magical impact while swearing he will not be defeated there. The hero forces his fist against the enemy attack, remembering he was trained by the strongest person to protect everyone. The impact destroys the sword of light and shatters the blade of the warrior, who mentally admires the brave guy's incredible strength. With a small smile and an injured face, the master confesses he would not need to act so darkly if he were that strong. With his dragon eye activated, the young hero lets out a loud shout of determination to begin his attack. The powerful impact of the boy's strike hits the massive sword of light dead on and shatters the technique into several pieces. Without losing the rhythm, the student dashes forward swiftly and lands a flaming punch right in his opponent's stomach. The older warrior falls defeated to the ground while the panting protagonist remains standing, victorious in combat. Relieved by the end of the fight, the hero sits on the dirt and touches his own face, thanking his beloved master for the help. Right after, all the boy's friends run toward him and give him a big tight hug to celebrate. After all the confusion, the scene shows the beautiful late afternoon sky lighting up the gates of the school's vast grounds. Lying on the ground, the defeated swordsman slowly regains consciousness and opens his eyes in a very exhausted way. Upon waking up, the master realizes that his student and the other young ones are tending to all his severe injuries. The protagonist notices that his teacher finally woke up and asks in relief if he can understand the situation. Holding the instructor's hurt arm, the young man warns that the next step of the medical treatment might sting a little. With that, the hero asks for the little blonde mage's help, and the little girl readies her magic staff carefully. The young student in the white cape focuses her energy and casts a high-level healing spell on the man's arm. A strong green light surrounds the injuries and restores the warrior's arm in a matter of seconds. The long-haired man is completely bewildered to see a wound heal so fast using only magic. The little mage politely asks if the treatment hurt and guarantees that his limb will be in perfect condition soon. The master swordman keeps a surprised expression, trying to process the great miracle he just experienced. Very grateful, the instructor moves his own recovered hand and tells the little girl she has his debt of gratitude. Right after, the warrior questions the young student for saving his life after he was trying to strike down the little prince. The protagonist hears everything with a serious expression and says he has big questions of his own about all of that. The guy reports that during the final clash, the master held back his own strength as if he wanted to be defeated on purpose. Closing his eyes, the man confesses to having gotten too soft when facing children, accepts his defeat humbly. Worried, the warrior suggests taking the blonde boy to a clinic, although he doubts the prince will survive. To the attacker's huge surprise, the young royal walks up calmly and guarantees there is no more reason to panic. The little prince smiles and explains that his life was spared thanks to the magic item given to him by the protagonist earlier. The boy opens his hands, revealing the substitution medal completely split in half after blocking the critical strike. With an awkward smile, the blonde young man confesses that the absurd force of the impact made him pass out right at the time of the attack. Hearing the little student's story, the master swordsman is left speechless and feels immense relief deep in his heart. Completely emotional, the man kneels and presses his own face against the dirt while crying and apologizing to the kids. The armored guy sighs seeing the scene and warns that the warrior will receive a severe punishment for the actions he committed. The swordsman lowers his head, revealing he is prepared to accept any punishment for his recent crimes. But before explaining his reasons, the master suffers terrible pain and closes his eyes in deep agony. The man collapses on the ground complaining of extreme heat, while the hero and the little mage run to help the injured man. The young woman casts an advanced healing spell but reports with desperation that his temperature keeps rising non-stop. The warrior smiles weakly, thanking the little girl for her effort, and says he feels a bit better with the treatment. The hero opens the master's clothes and notices that the reason for that intense fever is embedded in his dear friend's body. The image focuses on the swordsman's skin, revealing a large bright red mark known as a slave crest. Analyzing the drawing, the young student notes that the magical seal was done in a totally incorrect and dangerous way. The man smiles while lying on the ground, confirming he carries an illegal crest forbidden by the laws of that great kingdom. The master warns that his fate is sealed due to the mission failure and decides to tell the worried kids the truth. The memory shows a beautiful little girl with white hair, and the warrior reveals that his little daughter got very sick. Holding the child, the master remembers looking for doctors without success to cure the same disease his late wife had. Completely hopeless, the man says that two strangers offered a magical healing item in exchange for favors. The hero listens to the story with sadness, while the swordsman claims he knows the weight of his crimes and does not care about his own fate. The warrior cries desperately and begs the young student to save his little innocent daughter's life. With a determined look, the hero summons his whole group for the rescue mission, and his friends agree immediately. Next, the scene shifts, showing the outside of a brick house with a red roof and very calm weather. Inside the place, the two men responsible for the blackmail talk excitedly about having found a gold mine. The warrior's little daughter sleeps on the bed with a magical necklace on her chest, keeping her fragile life going temporarily. The criminals laugh wickedly, eager to get more money from the master swordsman as soon as possible. But their joy ends when the young protagonist destroys the wall and invades the hideout in a big explosion. With sheer fury in his eyes, the boy glares at the bandits, confirming he has found the true culprits for the suffering. The two men draw their daggers in fear, and one of them suggests capturing the sick child to use as a hostage. The hero warns he will not allow that and attacks with his magic, asking for quick backup from his loyal elf companion. Wasting no time, the blonde warrior charges with speed and lands a powerful kick right in the face of one of the criminals. The elf rescues the little girl very carefully and announces to the group that the hostage is now completely safe in her arms. The remaining bandit backs away trembling with fear and tries to understand how those students discovered the secret hideout. The young man with wolf ears smiles next to the tamer, revealing that his monster's sense of smell caught their scent. The pink-haired girl praises another colleague's analysis, who crosses his arms showing great pride in his work. The criminal tries to recruit the strong kids to his side, proving the wicked way the master was tricked in the past. Furious, the protagonist steps forward and warns he will not forgive the humiliation done to his great master's efforts. Without hesitating, the young hero lands an extremely powerful punch straight to the blonde criminal's face, making him groan in pain. With the heavy impact, the man is sent flying far away and crashes through the wooden wall, breaking everything in his path. The hero asks about the hostage's condition, while the elf confirms that the little girl still has a high fever. Worried, the student touches the child's forehead, noting it is a mysterious illness capable of confusing great doctors. The pink-haired warrior tries to hold on to hope and asks her colleague if there is any way to cure the girl. The guy holds the master's daughter in his arms, suggesting taking the patient for a quick check up at the royal castle. Soon after, the scene changes, showing the royal castle's beautiful massive towers being lit up by the late afternoon sun. Inside, the little blonde mage holds her staff, trembling with anxiety beside the student with glasses. With a very worried look, the young healer wonders if the brave protagonist will return safely. The smart guy asks his friend to stay calm and teaches her deep breathing to relieve all the tension. Taking a deep breath, the magical little girl cracks a gentle smile and gives thanks for her companion's great emotional support. Seeing the girl's beautiful smile, the student's face blushes slightly, and he shows a very surprised expression. Trying to hide his embarrassment, he adjusts his own glasses and states he is very happy about his friend's calmness. At that moment, a loud bang echoes through the room, and the two react startled, noticing their friend's quick arrival. The hero walks through the door carrying the sick little patient in his arms and deeply apologizing for the delay. The child is placed on the bed carefully while the mage notes the girl's weakness and says she will begin the treatment. The healing spell kicks in, lighting up the face of the small patient, who opens her eyes slightly, looking very tired. Quite confused by that unknown environment, the little girl wakes up, and the healer holds her hand in a friendly way. With a very soft and calm voice, the blonde student tries to talk to the child to comfort her little heart. The boy with glasses flips through a book and comments worriedly about how incredibly pale that sick young girl in bed is. The smart student warns that the situation is delicate, and the protagonist agrees, looking for an urgent solution there. Assessing the magical situation, the young hero deduces it is no ordinary illness, making it hard to bring down the high fever. The colleague with glasses claims good doctors would notice the same thing, pointing out it is not just a simple symptom problem. The guy investigates if there is anything really strange involving the child herself, and the protagonist widens his eyes. The young fighter remembers a huge detail and shares that the sweet sick girl has an extraordinary amount of magical power. Excited, the hero claims the child could be a great mage, while his ally asks him to focus on the main problem. The researcher finds the clue amazing, revealing that the swordsman's late wife had the very same magical capacity. Putting the rare information together, the smart guy is extremely shocked by the conclusion formed in his head. He points to the old book, revealing similar symptoms that perfectly match the little girl's fever and fatigue. Analyzing the situation, the glasses-wearing scholar totally agrees with the theory and states that the illness is very problematic. He explains that the girl suffers from magical poisoning by accumulating too much power since her body cannot expel it. The protagonist suggests releasing the trapped energy, but his colleague warns that the power would just build up again after a while. At that exact moment, an orange-haired young woman appears smiling between the two, claiming to have a wonderful idea. The new ally offers a magic piece as a special favor, while the boy with glasses gets quite surprised by the visit. The hero takes the artifact and immediately understands the function of that item, greatly thanking her for the huge help he just got. Wasting no time, the young warrior immediately calls for the blonde girl, who listens to her name with a very curious face. Handing over the object, he asks his companion to put on the child and promises to cast a healing spell to help with the fatigue. With the item in hand, the young woman approaches the sick little girl's bed and offers the piece as if it were a beautiful new gift. The little patient wears the metallic bracelet on her arm and is delighted by the enormous beauty of that shiny object. Even though she is still weak, the sweet child breaks into a gentle smile and thanks her blonde companion with a very tired voice. Right after, the ally raises her magic staff and casts a high-level healing spell to recover the girl lying down. The effect of the spell is immediate, and the child's pale appearance improves rapidly while she sleeps very peacefully. Watching everything, the scholar asks about the bracelet's effect, and the girl with glasses explains it is a magical charging ring. She details that the artifact serves to store magical power, but has a small defect that makes the energy leak when it maxes out. However, the young woman points out that this defect allows it to keep absorbing power endlessly, making it a perfect item for the child. The protagonist gives deep thanks for the help, but the girl warns she prefers to get paid in cash for the loss she took. The wolf friend notices the young woman's red face and asks if she is embarrassed, while the ally plays it off with laughter. After that, the scene changes to a large stone prison where a new conversation begins in front of two armed guards. The hero approaches the entrance calmly and the guard acknowledges his presence, granting access to the interior of the place. Inside, a man in prisoner clothes gives thanks for the guy's visit and reports that the academy is closed now. The warrior sits facing the man bound by wooden handcuffs and asks calmly how the prisoner is feeling. The inmate thanks the hero for removing his slave mark in the past, and the young man says it was the least he could do. Feeling deeply guilty, the prisoner regrets closing the school and causing trouble, but the protagonist tries to smooth things over. The boy shares that the punishment would normally be much more severe, but a great leader decided to defend the man publicly. Thus, the guy guarantees the teacher will not lose his position at the academy, leaving the inmate feeling quite relieved about it. With a very serious look, the hero gazes at the long-haired man, who lowers his head, seeming to reflect on the whole situation. The prisoner leans over the table and comments he heard from the guards that the young man saved and completely cured little Foyu. Shedding many tears of emotion, the man expresses his deep gratitude, stating he has no words to thank him. Repeating his massive thanks, the teacher cries while the warrior gently touches the shoulder of the ally named Kojiro. Smiling kindly, the protagonist guarantees he only did the right thing and tells his ally to get out of that place soon for Fuyu. Holding the young man's hands, the prisoner swears on his honor that he will never forget this debt and will repay it in the future. Soon after, the scene changes focus and shows a little demon tail twitching very curiously in the air. Elsewhere, a blonde girl dressed as a maid straightens her red neck ribbon in front of the mirror. Looking very nervous about something, the young demon girl takes a deep breath while her face turns very red. Squeezing her own hands, the beautiful winged girl thinks for a bit and gathers the courage for what she plans to do next. Meanwhile, in a room well lit by the night's glow, the hero sighs deeply, claiming to be very tired. The young man lies down on his comfortable bed and decides to go to sleep a little earlier to recover his energy. But at that exact moment, the warrior hears light knocks on the door and wakes up confused by the unexpected visit. The blonde maid enters the room through the balcony and apologizes for bothering him so late, bringing new information. She walks slowly, wanting to report on the hero's relics, while the boy notices the ally's fatigue. The protagonist turns down the report for now and invites the young woman to sit near him more comfortably. Touching her own lips, the blonde demon gets a little embarrassed by the invitation and accepts the guy's request. Without hesitating, the beautiful maid sits on the bed and leans her body very close to the young fighter's shoulder. The hero gets tense at the lack of personal space, and the girl comments innocently that she does not know the ideal distance between them. Very nervous about the situation of being alone in the room, the protagonist tries to hide his massive lack of focus. Noticing his red face, the servant asks if everything is okay, and the boy answers quickly, changing the subject right away. Making a cute annoyed face, the young woman notices the master's lack of attention and asks him to repeat what he was saying before. The guy gets quite awkward over the gentle scolding, and the blonde maid decides to try a slightly different approach. Dropping the tense mood, the girl gets very close to the warrior, ensuring he will not miss a single word now. Totally shocked by the bold move, the hero wonders the real reason for the girl's sudden approach. With a deep look, the demon explains that she made this bold decision because Rui-sha was not listening to her words. Trying to push the blonde away, the guy warns that she should not act like that, and the young woman just praises her master's kindness. The protagonist gets confused when the beautiful maid reveals that this protective way is what caught her attention. The warrior tries to confirm the professional relationship between the two, but the servant admits she felt only respect at first. Holding his arm, the winged blonde confesses that she used to feel very happy just helping the queen's partner. The maid touches the young man's chest, saying the time together made her heart warm up with so much strength and kindness. Thinking of another girl in the group, the young woman confesses she ended up feeling a lot of jealousy over the closeness between them. With her face completely flushed, the beautiful demon turns her face and says she knows very well that her feelings are complicated. Wrapping up her love confession, the ally stares deeply at the hero and begs him to accept her feelings. With the mood completely right, the beautiful girl takes the initiative and gives the young warrior a very affectionate kiss. Pulling away slowly, the two look at each other with very red faces, feeling the strong connection of that moment. Next, the young woman hugs the protagonist very tightly, resting her head on his shoulder affectionately. The hero feels his heart race with so much closeness and realizes the situation is getting a little out of control. Lying on the comfortable bed, the two keep enjoying the moment in silence while the young woman's tail twitches slightly. With tears of joy in her eyes, the servant confesses to the hero that she feels like the happiest person in the world with that affection. Smiling softly, the protagonist claims that he is the one who should feel honored to receive so much love from someone special. But soon after, the guy awkwardly asks the girl to get off of him because he cannot move in that position. The young demon tells him not to worry about that and leaves the fighter confused by the sudden response. Bringing her face close again, the girl reveals she had been keeping a big secret from the master for quite some time. She confesses that since their very first meeting, she was completely enchanted by the young warrior's adorable features. The hero is surprised and thinks back to the past, commenting that the ally used to ignore his presence at the beginning of it all. Hiding her face with her hands, the servant apologizes, explaining she only acted that way out of pure embarrassment around him. The girl recalls that in the past she was very sad that the two of them had to fight as great enemies in the war. Thinking about how mysterious fate is, she celebrates they developed a beautiful relationship of affection and trust. The hero blushes deeply upon receiving the girl's compliments and tries to deal with the strong feeling rising in his chest. Looking at her partner with passion, the young woman confesses she always had the desire to make his face turn red with embarrassment. Not knowing how to act around so much charm, the protagonist kindly asks his companion to take it easy with him in bed. The beautiful ally just smiles affectionately and apologizes while getting ready to take another step in their relationship. She whispers mysteriously that this request to take it easy is the only thing she cannot fulfill in that romantic moment. Sealing her words, the blonde demon gives the young man another passionate kiss, and he just accepts the affection with his eyes closed. The two stay embraced on the bed, sharing enormous happiness while the young woman gets emotional from so much love there. Somewhere else, an angry hand punches a soft pillow, expressing tremendous rage over some recent situation. The pink-haired warrior hugs the pillow with an angry face, wondering why the other one acts like that. She angrily remembers the blonde servant glued to the hero and mocking her while easily dodging all her strikes. Feeling very frustrated, the young woman throws herself face first onto the mattress and grumbles about how annoying this whole situation is. Looking to the side, the girl notices an interesting piece of paper tossed near the bed and gets curious to know what it is about. Picking up the flyer, she notes it is an ad for the Harvest Festival and remembers she used to go when she was very little. With a great idea in mind, the warrior gets up excitedly and decides to use the event to prove who is really in charge there. After that, the scene changes to show a long silent corridor with several closed wooden doors along the way. The scene focuses on the blonde servant who walks down the corridor in a very cheerful and confident way. Arriving at the door, she thinks she will be able to admire Rui-sha's adorable sleeping face. Making no noise at all, the young demon turns the doorknob very slowly to enter the room. Whispering "excuse me," she opens the door and asks for forgiveness for the little invasion into her master's room. But looking inside, the servant notices the bed is empty and the hero is not in the room. Looking around, the girl spots a piece of paper left on the dresser and gets very curious. The rival's note told her to clean the room and was signed as Rui-sha's beloved. With silent fury, the blonde maid tears the note into tiny pieces. Touching the bed, she feels it is already cold and realizes they left there a long time ago. With a serious look, she accepts the challenge and promises to show no mercy to her new rival in love. Meanwhile, in another place, the protagonist shares that he got a big scare earlier. The guy complains that Sharo woke him up by surprise, but she was afraid of being followed by the other girl. Ignoring the complaint, the girl points excitedly at the merchant nation of Brum. The port city is full of large ships and many people walking around. The hero is surprised to notice that the locals use the huge ships as houses. The place was founded by a merchant and is the largest port on the entire continent of Katarika. Sharo explains that the place is more crowded today because it is the harvest festival. The protagonist gets very excited because it is his first time at such a big festival. With a smile on her face, the young warrior takes his hand to go together. Thrilled about the event, the girl pulls him along in a hurry to enjoy the festival. In her thoughts, the young woman celebrates having a one-on-one date with him again. She remembers an old moment when the two of them had fun like children. The young woman also recalls when she tried on a new outfit to please him. Back to the present, the festival is full of people eating at the wooden tables. The protagonist takes a huge bite out of a sandwich, seeming to really like the food. With a messy cheek, the guy claims the food there is simply delicious. He says he could keep eating all afternoon, and she praises the fish soup. The hero praises his companion, saying the chosen restaurants were great. Rui-sha notices tools his friends do not have, and the girl questions him about them. The young man says that Wolf and Byrne hang out with them, and seem to have gotten along very well together. The guy asks about the next step, and the young woman guarantees she has already planned the whole afternoon. He ends up letting out a little chuckle, and the girl gets annoyed, asking what is so funny. With a flushed face, she looks away while the protagonist apologizes for the moment. The young man says that eating and talking like this makes him feel like a normal student. He remembers that ever since he decided to rescue Tess and Rio, he thought he would fight alone. Because of that, the guy never thought he could enjoy such happy and peaceful moments. His pink-haired companion calls him an idiot, leaving the hero a bit surprised. Holding his hand, the young woman says that even though they are unusual, that means nothing. With a confident smile, she claims they have a right to happiness, just like everyone else. The warrior also adds that since they work so hard, they deserve to have more fun. With a red face and a big smile, the protagonist agrees with his ally. He admits he was overthinking things, and the girl invites him to continue their stroll. Winking charmingly, the young woman warns that they have not had enough fun yet. The hero completely agrees with his partner with a very happy smile on his face. A while later, the protagonist carries a bag full of items he bought there. The girl jokes that he always wants the weirdest things, while the guy laughs. The young man thinks that time flies when you are having fun and wants to visit more stores. But suddenly, his expression changes completely upon hearing his name being called. Behind him, a girl with red hair and pink armor glares at him with extreme anger.